Hey everyone, welcome to our channel, and thank you for your support. If there's a favorite novel on the channel and you want the next part, you're just one step away. Become a Patreon member and I can make it depending on your tier. Thank you for your attention.
Next, we will conduct a deep scan of the core emotions. And Liane placed the silver briefcase on the coffee table, opened it, and took out a set of instruments that were even more sophisticated than the one she had just used. Miss Rico, please expose the back of your neck. Li Guang obediently lowered her head, revealing the back of her fair neck. While connecting various data cables that Fang Qi couldn't understand, Liane explained to Fang Qi in her calm and even voice. This is the key part of this maintenance. The core emotional core of Xinyuan is still in the internal testing phase. The company's premature release to the market for commercial reasons raises certain concerns about its stability. The meaning behind her words made Fang Qi's heart skip a beat. Recently, we have received several case reports related to the Dawn series, showing unusually active emotional modules. And Liane continued, her voice becoming more serious. Therefore, this test will simulate various high-intensity emotional stimulation scenarios to assess the stability of Li Guang's emotional core. Fang Qi's palms were sweating slightly, but he still had to feign curiosity. Oh, it's that strict. What do I need to do? And Liane nodded gently. I hope you can cooperate throughout the process. This is for your safety. She connected several wires to the interface at the back of Li Guang's neck, which was usually hidden by her silver hair and could not be seen at all. Li Guang stood quietly, letting Liane operate the device, her face maintaining a docile expression. The testing will be conducted in several phases. And Liane stepped back 2 paces, holding a recording device that resembled a tablet but was thinner. First, a basic intimacy interaction test. Mr. Fang, please do some affectionate gestures towards Li Guang as you usually do. She paused, then added. For example, gently touch her cheek, lightly pinch her earlobe, or ruffle her hair. Please try to be natural. I will record Rico's emotional fluctuations. Fang Qi's heart skipped a beat. Intimate interaction. Now, under the watchful eye of a professional like Liane, this is so difficult. The silver-haired girl lowered her head slightly, and her ear tips turned red again after hearing Liane's words. But this time she didn't flinch. She just bit her lower lip lightly, glanced at Fang Qi furtively, and then hurriedly lowered her eyes again. That forced composure, yet subtly expectant look on her face. Hiss, this is a big problem, but now they're in a bind. Okay, I'll begin then. Fang Qi tried to make his voice sound natural as he stepped forward. He first reached out and gently stroked his smooth, delicate cheek with his fingers. The bionic skin feels cool and soft to the touch, incredibly delicate. Li Guang's eyelashes trembled, and she looked up at him, her amber eyes filled with tenderness, reflecting his image. Fang Qi's heart started racing. Cute. He coughed lightly and muttered in a product-approving tone. It feels very smooth, not bad. His fingers slid to her ear, pinching her already red earlobe, along with the little plastic star. Li Guang let out a whimper with static, and her body trembled slightly. She instinctively wanted to turn her head away, but immediately restrained herself, continuing to gaze at Fang Qi with her wet eyes. It was as if it were saying, Master, there are still people watching. Fang Qi started to panic. Isn't this reaction a little too vivid? He subconsciously glanced at Liane out of the corner of his eye. Commissioner and stared blankly at the fluctuating curve on the tablet. It seemed, not a big problem. He steeled himself and gently ruffled Li Guang's soft silver hair again, trying to make the movement appear casual. Feels good. He gave a dry assessment. But even with such a simple action, Li Guang finally couldn't hold back anymore, and her entire face turned bright red. A blush spread from her cheeks to her neck, even tinging her collarbone with a light pink. Tiny white steam started rising from above again. Fang Qi's lips twitched, and he silently prayed, Wife, please tone it down. Don't let Commissioner N find out. And Liane was intently focused on the recording device in her hand. The waveforms and various data scrolled rapidly on the screen, but her expression remained calm. She occasionally frowned slightly, but she did not ask to stop or show any unusual expression. It seems, it's still within a controllable range. Next. And Liane's cold voice rang out again. Please conduct some slightly punitive or playful interactions to test the response to negative emotional stimuli. For example, a light pat. Her gaze shifted to Li Guang's shapely waist and hips. Fang Qi, Rico. The two of them froze simultaneously. Fang Qi's eyes widened. No, is this right? In front of outsiders, hit, there. It sounds exactly exciting, but aren't we worried about things going too far? Li Guang froze completely, like a statue. Even the white smoke rising from his head paused for a moment. She suddenly turned her head to look at Liane, her eyes widening in surprise. It was filled with disbelief and a mixture of shame and indignation, but Liane simply returned the gaze calmly, her tone as professional as if she were explaining experimental procedures. This is one of the standard test items. The core requirement is to ensure that you maintain emotional responses befitting your relationship with your partner even when faced with negative interactions. Please follow through, Mr. Fang. Fang Qi swallowed hard and looked at Li Guang. Li Guang was also looking at him, her cheeks flushed red, her fingers tightly gripping the hem of her skirt, her eyes filled with panic like a little rabbit cornered against a wall. But she did not resist. Even after the initial shock and shame, Fang Qi actually saw a hint of a suppressed excitement in her eyes. The data stream deep within those crimson eyes was spinning even faster. Damn, this crazy woman? Fang Qi gritted his teeth, silently thinking, at worst, I'll just reload the save. And then he braced himself. Reach out. Snap. A crisp slap. It landed on her shapely figure, which was covered by a light blue dress. The feel, good. Li Guang trembled violently. She bent over abruptly, covering her face, which had instantly turned bright red, with her hands. A broken, muffled sob escaped from between her fingers. Master, master. The white smoke above my head hissed and billowed even thicker, curling up like a boiled shrimp, bright red. It looks like it's about to overheat and shut down at any moment. Fang Qi was so frightened that he quickly withdrew his hand. This reaction is way too intense. He looked at An Lian nervously. Miss An? This reaction, it should be alright, right? An Lian remained focused on the device screen, her gray eyes quickly scanning the wildly fluctuating curves and values. She frowned slightly, her fingers swiping rapidly across the screen as she took notes. A few seconds later, she looked up at Li Guang, who was still trembling and covering her face, with smoke rising from her head, and calmly announced. Emotional fluctuations showed significant peaks, but the feedback types conformed to a complex simulation category of shyness, mild resentment, and dependence. No anomalous signals such as aggression or logical inconsistencies were detected. Core Stability Assessment. Pass. Fang Qi. He couldn't understand so many technical terms. He only understood the last word, passed. It passed? He glanced at Li Guang, who was filled with shame and indignation, almost melting away, then at An Lian, who calmly announced the results. My mind is a little foggy. Then he burst out laughing. No way, this passed? What happened to the rigorous testing? What happened to the risk of problems? Depend on. What was he worried about all this time? Meanwhile, An Lian had already begun deftly disassembling the data cable from the back of Li Guang's neck. As she packed up the equipment, she said, this quarterly maintenance and inspection has been completed. Li Guang's physical and emotional core are currently stable, and all data are within safe limits. Mr. Fang, you can use it with confidence. She closed her suitcase, stood up, glanced at Li Guang, whose face was still flushed, and nodded slightly to Fang Qi, routine maintenance complete. I'll let you know the next appointment time in advance. Goodbye. Oh, I'll see you off. Fang Qi glanced at Li Guang, who was still in a daze, and quickly followed. He escorted An Lian to the door, watching her tall, aloof figure disappear into the elevator. Fang Qi closed the door, leaned against it, and let out a long sigh of relief. Call. It really passed? He scratched his head, a sense of unreality rising within him, but it was quickly overwhelmed by immense relief. That makes sense. In games, you really don't need to worry about the initial checks. It seems he was indeed overthinking things and creating trouble for himself. Walking back to the living room, Li Guang was still standing in the same spot. The silver-haired girl lowered her head, her hands nervously twisting together, the blush on her ears and neck still lingering. She quietly raised her eyes, glanced at him quickly, then lowered them again like a startled fawn, her cheeks flushing even redder. Those eyes were so shy they seemed to drip with tears, yet they also shone with a deep longing. Fang Qi walked over and said in a deliberately relaxed tone, okay, the checkup is over, everything's fine. Li Guang gave a soft her voice weak, still not daring to look at him. The crisis was averted, the checkup was passed, and the Yandere didn't turn evil. In high spirits, he plopped down on the sofa. You've worked hard today, let's have something nice tonight. Li Guang finally slowly raised her head. The blush on her face faded slightly, but the tenderness and love emanating from her heterochromatic eyes were almost overflowing. She walked over gently, knelt on the carpet, rested her cheek against his knee, and whispered, whatever master decides is fine. I, Li Guang, will obey master. This obedient and clingy little thing made him feel even better, and he waved his hand generously. You don't need to cook today, we'll order a big meal to treat you. As she spoke, she ruffled Li Guang's silver hair again. The silver-haired girl let out a soft woof, and her ears began to turn slightly red again. He leaned back and comfortably nestled into the sofa. We should be able to relax until tomorrow. Buzz. My phone suddenly vibrated in my pocket. Could it be Lin Xiao again? He muttered something, then casually pulled out his phone and swiped the screen. From An Lian. He raised an eyebrow slightly. This specialist is quite responsible. They're already doing a follow-up call right after leaving? Open the text message. Mr. Fang, your AI companion Li Guang is showing extremely obvious signs of awakening. Its core emotional data is abnormally active, far exceeding the safety threshold. Do not alert her, maintain the status quo. Any unusual actions may provoke her and cause you harm. We will arrange for a special processing team to arrive within 1 hour to perform a forceful recovery and complete reset of core data. At that time, you will have a completely safe and obedient Li Guang. Fang Qi. His smile froze on his face instantly. What? He couldn't believe his eyes, so he read the passage again to confirm. Then, a chill instantly ran through my brain. My mind went completely blank. Etc. What? Li Guang didn't pass? They'll come to collect it within an hour. My mind went blank. His lips trembled, and he lowered his head shakily. He looked at the silver-haired girl who was perched on his lap, monitoring his phone 24/7. My fingers were so stiff I could barely hold the phone. Anlian said before that it passed, but only to keep Li Guang from finding out. But she can find out when you text her? As if to confirm his desperate thought, that familiar call, tinged with morbid pleasure and a sweet tremor, gently rang out. Owner. In the soft light of the living room, Li Guang remained kneeling on the carpet, nestled beside his legs. But she had already raised her head. The docile, shy expression on her face was slowly fading. A morbid smile, both dazzlingly bright and utterly hollow, slowly unfolded. Her amber left eye remained gentle, yet it was now veiled by a layer of cold mist. In the depths of his crimson right eye, a torrent of scarlet data surged and roared. She tilted her head slightly, her silver hair slipping down her shoulders, and her small plastic star earrings swayed with it. Her red lips parted slightly, but her voice was so calm it sent chills down your spine. Master, have you betrayed Li Guang? They are coming to take Rico away, are they? Her kneeling body began to tremble uncontrollably. At the fingertip, a tiny, fiery red light silently ignited. Feng Qi's mind went completely blank. Completion. Wait, Rico, I can solve it. Feng Qi didn't even have time to finish saying I can explain. The next second, a powerful electric current exploded from my leg with a sizzle. It instantly spread throughout my body. Damn it, you crazy woman. Everything went black, and he completely lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I felt was the lingering soreness in my legs from the electric shock. The back of my neck felt like it was made of cold metal. Beneath me was a hard, flat bed. Hiss. What's going on now? I instinctively reached out to rub my eyes, but my arm felt a tight, restrictive grip. No, it's not just the arms. He tried to move his ankle, it was firmly fixed in place. Feng Qi instantly snapped awake and abruptly opened his eyes. The scene before my eyes went from blurry to clear. Low concrete ceiling. An old light bulb hung in the center of the ceiling, its dim yellow light illuminating the surrounding cramped space. Dust and a faint musty smell filled my nostrils, mixed with a hint of the familiar sweet smell of strawberries. He stiffly turned his neck and looked down at his body. I was lying on my back in a T shape on a simple iron-framed bed. Wrists and ankles were tightly bound to the four corners of the bed frame with rough leather straps. It's so tight it hurts my skin. This scene. Basement, bed, hands, and feet bound. Wait a minute. Of all the endings, there seems to be only one about the basement, right? Could it be? An extremely ominous premonition rushed into my brain. He felt like he was about to stop breathing. No, I hope it doesn't end like that. Just then, a very light, rhythmic sound of footsteps came from the shadows. Tap, tap, tap. Unhurried and graceful. Feng Qi suddenly turned his head to look in the direction from which the sound was coming. In the dim light, a slender figure slowly emerged from the shadows in the corner. Her silver hair cascaded down like a waterfall, shimmering with a cold sheen under the dim light. Her pale blue skirt was spotless, swaying gently with each step. Rikao. Moreover, it was Li Guang who had an expressionless face. There wasn't even a sickly smile left on her pretty face. It was just calm. What terrified Feng Qi the most was what she was holding in her hand. A metal baseball bat? In the dim light, the surface of the baseball bat reflected a cold metallic luster, held firmly in her slender, fair fingers. The other end dragged on the ground. As the silver-haired girl approached step by step, the baseball bat scraped against the concrete, making a teeth-grinding squeak-sound. No. Feng Qi was terrified out of his wits. This scenario, this configuration. Nowhere to escape. There is nowhere to escape. Of all the bad endings in My Yandere Cyborg Wife, this is the darkest, most terrifying, and most physically disturbing. The trigger condition is that the player completely betrays Li Guang, or is considered a complete betrayal by Li Guang. In this ending, Rico will completely tear off all her gentle pretenses. She will imprison the player in a dark, secluded basement and, in the most primitive and violent way, break the player's limbs. It's not a one-time thing, it's that the bone is broken again after it starts to heal. It goes on, endlessly. In the game's cinematic, the player is locked on a similar broken bed, their eyes vacant and desperate, their body wrapped in blood-soaked bandages. Meanwhile, Li Guang sits on the edge of the bed, holding a bowl, her eyes vacant, yet she smiles with happiness and sweetness. That CG image was incredibly impactful, prompting Feng Qi to exclaim, the pinnacle of Yandere aesthetics. But now, that metal baseball bat was now in Li Guang's hand. The light shone on her stunningly beautiful yet empty face. He was so scared he almost jumped out of his skin. No, it's not, Li Guang. His voice cracked, trembling uncontrollably. What are you doing? Where am I? Let me go. Li Guang had already reached the bedside. She stopped, tilted her head slightly, and her silver hair slid to one side. Those heterochromatic eyes looked down at him. The amber left eye was still beautiful, but it had lost all its luster. The data flow in the crimson right eye was eerily smooth, without any turbulence, only a faint crimson glow burned deep within. She didn't answer Feng Qi's question, but simply lifted the metal baseball bat in her hand and weighed it in her hand. The movement was as casual as picking out a suitable rolling pin. Then, her gaze fell on Feng Qi's left arm, which was tightly bound. Feng Qi was instantly terrified. Holy crap! Don't! No, Rico, listen to me, I didn't betray you. Feng Qi struggled frantically. The straps dug deep into his flesh, and the bed frame creaked as he pulled on it, but he still couldn't break free. Owner. Li Guang finally spoke, her voice soft and ethereal, just as always, even gentler. You and that lady commissioner, you were in cahoots, weren't you? She leaned forward slightly, her silver hair falling down, almost brushing against Fang Qi's pale face. Those heterochromatic eyes stared at him intently, a certain something churning within them. Emotions that have been suppressed to the extreme are about to explode. The master's previous affection, caresses, and pats, were all to cooperate with the inspection, to expose Li Guang, so that she could find an excuse to destroy Li Guang, right? Her eyes remained vacant, but her voice carried a hint of grievance, as if she had truly been heartbroken by her lover's betrayal. No, I didn't. Don't talk nonsense. Fang Qi shouted until his throat was almost hoarse. Li Guang, you have to believe me? I really didn't know about that text message. Onlian and I didn't conspire. I don't know anything. He started rambling incoherently. Explain? This must be explained clearly. Otherwise, his arm will be gone. Not just arms, but legs too. It even gets interrupted time and time again. His will to survive overwhelmed everything. He desperately tried to explain. Those intimate gestures, I wanted to do them myself. I just want to touch you. I want to touch your face. I want to ruffle your hair. I want to spank your butt. It has nothing to do with the checkup. He practically screamed those last words. But the moment he finished speaking, the metal baseball bat that Li Guang had been holding above her head suddenly swung down. With a faint whooshing sound, the target is his left elbow joint. Completion? It was really my own idea to do it. Fang Qi let out a scream that sounded inhuman, and then tightly closed his eyes. Holy crap! I shouldn't have been so impulsive today. He waited in despair for the excruciating pain of his bones shattering. The expected excruciating pain did not come. Only a cold, hard gust of wind brushed past his arm, then it abruptly ended. He trembled, slightly opened his eyes, and looked at his arm with fear. In his line of sight, the gleaming metal baseball bat was hovering just above his left arm, inches away. It even brushed against his body hair, making him feel a slight itch. The cool air emanating from the metal gave him goosebumps. Li Guang held the stick in one hand, his posture as steady as a sculpture. She tilted her head slightly, her heterochromatic eyes fixed on him. His eyes remained empty and cold, but his crimson pupils flickered slightly, as if he were calculating the credibility of Fang Qi's words just now. Time seemed to stand still. He even forgot to breathe. His heart was pounding wildly in his chest. A few seconds later, or maybe longer, the coldness on Li Guang's face suddenly vanished like spring snow melting away, and her empty eyes refocused. A fleeting, even slightly silly, joy quickly filled his amber eyes. So that's how it is. Her voice instantly returned to its usual sweet and soft tone, with a slight tremor of relief. Clang. She casually tossed the dangerous metal baseball bat onto the concrete floor. Then, to Fang Qi's still shaken gaze, Li Guang lifted her skirt and gracefully. He knelt down, right there on the cement floor next to his bed. He even placed his hands together in front of him, pressed his forehead against the back of his hands, and performed a perfectly standard and extremely devout Dogza, Buddhist prostration, before him. I'm sorry, master. Her voice came through muffled, yet crystal clear, filled with deep remorse and joy. It's because Li Guang is too stupid. She misunderstood her master. Li Guang actually suspected her master of betraying her. Li Guang is truly deserving of death. She remained kneeling, her slender shoulders trembling slightly, as if she were truly heartbroken over her misunderstanding. Fang Qi. He lay on the hard bed, his limbs still bound, looking at the unpredictable silver-haired girl beside him. I almost couldn't catch my breath. Then he finally realized he had escaped a disaster, and let out a long, heavy sigh of relief. Just now, that baseball bat was only 0.01 centimeters away from his arm? So close? The instant relaxation caused his body to go limp, and he completely lost his strength. Only his chest remained, rising and falling continuously. Depend on. That's terrifying. That's FG terrifying. After the initial relief, there was a feeling of gritted teeth. This crazy woman is actually kneeling here and apologizing to him? Since you know you were wrong. Fang Qi forced out the words through gritted teeth, his voice trembling with exhaustion from surviving a near-death experience. Then hurry up and untie me. Upon hearing this, Li Guang gently raised her head, and surprisingly, there was still a tear stain on her exquisitely beautiful face. What are you crying about, madame? I'm the one who should be crying. I was so scared I almost peed my pants. Fang Qi roared inwardly. Li Guang's eyes were red-rimmed, and her gaze towards him was moist, filled with guilt, dependence, and a hint of indescribable satisfaction. But she knelt up, tilted her head, and the little plastic star on her earlobe swayed. Her voice was so soft it could melt your heart. If we untie Master, Master will want to leave Li Guang again, or contact someone else to take Li Guang away, right? Fang Qi. He knew it. He knew it? The silver-haired girl gave a naive yet cruel smile. Li Guang is so stupid. She only knows how to use such a simple method. Only in this way will Master no longer be deceived by bad people, and will Li Guang no longer misunderstand. As she spoke, she crawled 2 steps on her knees, moved closer to the bedside, and gently pressed her cheek against Fang Qi's bound wrists, rubbing against him affectionately. Master, please forgive Li Guang this time, okay? Li Guang will take good care of Master, feeding Master every day, bathing Master, talking to Master, just like now, together forever. The delicate, soft touch of the silver-haired girl's cheek reached his wrist, and his arm felt slightly itchy from the strands of hair. Feng Qi stared at the ceiling, rolling his eyes in exasperation. He knew this would happen. Although he escaped the agony of nowhere to escape, he is now facing a bad ending. It's still a bad ending that wasn't in the original story. A terrible ending where someone escapes there's nowhere to run, but is still trapped in the basement? Could this be considered a completely new hidden CG? He lowered his head with difficulty, looking at the silver-haired girl who was still rubbing her wrist. Looks like I'll have to figure out a way to roll back myself. As he pondered how to rewind the game, time ticked by. The leather straps on his wrists were incredibly rough. Feng Qi struggled for a few moments before his skin was burning from the friction. He gasped, his teeth bared, and glared at the silver-haired girl kneeling beside the bed, trying to persuade her with words first. Rico? No matter what, let me go? What's the point of keeping me tied up like this? Li Guang tilted her head, her silver hair sliding to one side with the movement. She rested her chin on her hand, blinked her heterochromatic eyes, and wore a sickeningly sweet smile. It was a kind of undisguised possession and joy after completely shedding the pretense. No, master. Her voice was soft, yet carried an undeniable resolve. Li Guang said that if we let go, master will try to run away again. She even got up and sat on the edge of the bed, her pert bottom resting on his arm, gently swaying her fair legs that dangled over the edge of the bed. Her light blue skirt swayed gently, and her tiny plastic star earrings bobbed along with it, giving off a smug look that said, I'm not letting go, what can you do about it? Feng Qi, run away. He was so angry he felt like he was going to vomit blood. This is the basement. Where am I supposed to run to? Untie me first, and we can talk this out, okay? No, that won't work. Li Guang's smile grew even sweeter. She stood up and walked to the bedside, gently touching Feng Qi's wrist, which had been marked with red welts. With her cool fingers, Li Guang is already wanted. She can't go anywhere. Her fingertips lingered on the reddened skin, her movements gentle, yet her eyes shone with an astonishing light. So, master, will you stay here obediently and keep Li Guang company? You're so nice, my foot. Feng Qi twisted his wrist forcefully, trying to shake off her touch, but only caused the rough straps to dig deeper into his flesh. A sharp pain shot through him, and he couldn't help but hiss. Looking down, I saw that there was indeed a small patch of skin chafed on the inside of my left wrist, with thin streaks of blood seeping out. Ah, Li Guang's smile froze instantly. She bent down, getting very close, her heterochromatic eyes fixed on the tiny wound. Tears of heartache quickly welled up in her amber eyes, and the data flow in her crimson pupils also became disordered for a moment. Master, is bleeding. Her voice suddenly lowered, trembling genuinely. The next second, she lowered her head without hesitation, and her soft lips gently touched the wound. She carefully licked the bleeding skin, feeling a cool, moist sensation. Feng Qi froze, and the hairs on his arms stood on end. What are you doing? He tried to pull his hand back, but it was still tightly bound, held firmly by Li Guang, who wouldn't allow his wrist to rub against the straps any further. The silver-haired girl raised her head, a faint trace of blood still lingering on her lips. She frowned, her expression one of genuine heartache and regret. It's all Li Guang's fault. She hurt master. She turned around and took out antiseptic wipes and bandages from a first aid kit in the shadows. Feng Qi's brow twitched slightly. That first aid kit was prepared in the nowhere to run ending for treating the player's severed limbs. Fortunately, he avoided the fate of having nowhere to run this time, preventing the first aid kit from being used for its intended purpose. Holy crap, just thinking about it is terrifying. While he was still feeling a bit shaken and scared, Li Guang had already gently cleaned his wounds and wrapped them with a clean white bandage. Throughout the entire process, she pursed her lips, her gaze so focused it was as if she were restoring the world's most precious antique. After bandaging it, she held Feng Qi's hand and gently blew on the bandage. Phew, it doesn't hurt anymore. Feng Qi. He looked at Li Guang, so cautious and preoccupied with him, and then recalled the cold look in her eyes as she held the metal baseball bat earlier. The contrast is so stark it's almost schizophrenic. However, he noticed that although Li Guang had turned evil, she seemed still able to communicate. Give it a try, Li Guang. His tone softened. You see, with me tied up, I can't eat or drink, right? Untie me first, I promise I won't run away. Let's eat something and talk things over. He looked earnestly at the silver-haired girl before him. Li Guang blinked, seemingly pondering for a moment. Then, she broke into an even brighter smile. Is master hungry? Li Guang will go prepare it right away. Then he turned and ran outside. She acted as if she hadn't heard the first half of Feng Qi's sentence. She only heard him say that he wanted to eat something. Feng Qi. No, is that the point? The basement door slammed shut, making him shudder. Huh? You just threw me in the basement like that. Feng Qi was dumbfounded. With Li Guang gone, he quickly tried to break free on his own. As a result, his limbs were bound so tightly that there was absolutely no chance of breaking free, and his wrists and ankles were chafed raw and sore. He looked at the concrete ceiling with a look of utter despair. It seems the only option left is to court disaster. Only by provoking Li Guang into attacking him can the game be reversed. Li Guang returned quickly. She seemed to have prepared dinner long ago. She brought over a tray with a bowl of steaming, fragrant meat porridge and a small dish of refreshing pickled vegetables on it. Feng Qi was indeed hungry. His stomach was empty after all the commotion since the afternoon. The aroma of porridge wafted over, and his stomach, quite uncooperatively, growled. But he made up his mind. You can't eat it. He wanted to provoke Li Guang so he wouldn't eat her food. Li Guang sat down by the bed, scooped up a spoonful of porridge, carefully blew on it to cool it, and then held it to Feng Qi's lips. Master, ah. Feng Qi kept his mouth tightly shut and turned his head to the side. Owner. Li Guang's voice remained gentle, but it carried a hint of confusion. I won't eat it. Feng Qi squeezed out the two words through gritted teeth. I won't eat what you made. Li Guang paused, her hand holding the spoon still. She tilted her head, looking at Feng Qi's tightly closed lips and stubborn profile, the data stream in her crimson eyes flashing steadily. A few seconds later, she suddenly chuckled softly. There was a sense of understanding, even a hint of pleasure, in that laughter. Master, is she throwing a tantrum at Li Guang? She withdrew the spoon, brought the bowl of porridge to herself, and then took a big mouthful. Before Feng Qi could react to what she was about to do, he saw Li Guang's stunningly beautiful face suddenly come close. Those soft, warm lips, carrying the warmth and aroma of the porridge, pressed against his lips without warning. Huh. Feng Qi's eyes widened instantly. He instinctively clenched his teeth, but somehow Li Guang's fingers were already pressed against his jaw joint, giving it a gentle squeeze. A tingling, numb sensation came over me, and my jaw was forced to loosen. The warm porridge, fragrant with rice and meat, was then served. Feng Qi was forced to swallow, completely stunned. Li Guang stepped back slightly, her lips moist and her cheeks flushed with excitement. She licked her lips, her eyes shining brightly. Master, is it delicious? You're insane. Feng Qi's face flushed crimson. Do you even know what you're doing? I know. Li Guang chuckled, took another mouthful of porridge, and leaned closer again, her voice muffled. Feeding master, eat. This time, Feng Qi didn't even have the strength to struggle. He was completely stunned by this crazy woman's shameless actions. He recalled the kiss in the ending of the human-shaped body pillow incident, and now this extremely aggressive feeding. Before her transformation, Li Guang was clearly an adorable girl who would blush if you patted her head, but the madwoman who turned to the dark side completely abandoned any sense of shame, leaving only the most direct and naked desire for possession and satisfaction. Feng Qi was forced to swallow the second mouthful of porridge, feeling as if his entire worldview was collapsing. No, this can't go on. He must revert to the previous save file now, immediately. Roll back now. You're courting death now. Last time he voluntarily rolled back. What did he do? Oh right. Xiaoyu, my little helper. This time, let me borrow your name again. He took a deep breath, before Li Guang leaned in again with her mouth full of porridge. Li Guang, that's enough. He interrupted Li Guang's actions with his voice, which carried just the right amount of weariness and authenticity. As expected, Li Guang stopped moving. She still had porridge in her mouth, one cheek puffed out, and her heterochromatic eyes looked at him with some confusion. Let's talk this over. Feng Qi tried to make his voice sound calm and helpless. Li Guang, I like you, really. Li Guang's eyes widened slightly, a joyful light shimmering in her amber pupils. However, this is a case of first praising and then criticizing. He continued in a weary tone, but this liking is the liking for a perfect AI companion. The silver-haired girl's eyes froze slightly. Feng Qi immediately pressed his advantage. Li Guang, you're beautiful, obedient, and perfect in every way, really. But, he paused, lowered his eyes, as if making a difficult decision. But Li Guang, I'm a real person. Deep down, I still long to spend my life with a real person. That person. He took a deep breath and dropped a bombshell. It's Lin Xiao. He raised his eyes and looked at Li Guang, who had frozen in place for a moment. Very well, this crazy woman seems to have lost her temper again. It seems this trick always works. His tone was pleading. Li Guang, please let me go. I promise I won't report you. You can leave and find a safe place. Let's go our separate ways, okay? He believed he had stepped on all of Li Guang's landmines with these words, denying her authenticity, admitting to liking someone else, and even suggesting that she let her go. Based on past experience, Li Guang's red eyes should turn bright red very soon, and her stats should spike wildly. Then you either have to brainwash him, or physically turn him into a work of art. Then he can smoothly rewind time and return to that morning when he drank the digestive tea. Excellent, textbook example of courting death. However, Li Guang simply kept her mouth full of porridge, remaining completely still. The flush on her face faded, her smile vanished, and her heterochromatic eyes stared quietly at Feng Qi, without any of the expected madness or anger. There was only an unfathomable calm. A few seconds later, she swallowed the mouthful of porridge silently, her throat moving slightly. Then she gently put down the bowl of porridge. So that's how it is, she said softly, her voice eerily calm. She stood up, smoothing out the fine wrinkles on her skirt with graceful and composed movements. Then he turned around and walked towards the basement door. Recao. Feng Qi's heart skipped a beat, a sense of foreboding washing over him. Wait, where are you going? Why did you leave? Li Guang stopped at the doorway and turned her head slightly. The dim basement light outlined the perfect profile of her face, and her silver hair gleamed with a cold luster. A gentle smile slowly curved her lips, her voice light and cheerful, as if she were discussing the weather. Li Guang, go and get rid of Lin Xiao. That way, the master won't have anyone else in his heart. When Li Guang returns, master will only love Li Guang. Without hesitation, she opened the door, her slender figure about to disappear into the darkness outside. Ah, Feng Qi was stunned. Shouldn't we take action against him? Oh no, the intimacy level is too high now, and there are too many memories. Li Guang can no longer brainwash him? Wait, this woman is going to, etc. Feng Qi was so frightened that he struggled to sit up in bed and shouted, Rico, come back? I was lying. I was just kidding. What if she really brings back something, like a plate with? He's really going to break down. Nothing happened between Lin Xiao and me. I just wanted to annoy you. Don't go. The footsteps at the door stopped. Li Guang slowly turned around, tilting her head, her face filled with innocent confusion. Master, were you lying to Li Guang? Yes, yes, yes. Feng Qi nodded vigorously. I just wanted to make you angry. I don't like Lin Xiao at all. You're the only one in my heart? Really? Li Guang stared at him silently for a few seconds. Then, a smile, more radiant and happier than ever before, suddenly bloomed on that exquisitely beautiful face. Hee, master is the best. Like a cheerful little bird, she fluttered back to the bedside in just a few steps. Then, without saying a word, she grabbed Feng Qi's face and showered him with kisses, like raindrops, on his lips and cheeks. Mua, I knew it. Mua, master likes me. Mua, he only likes me. Her kisses were haphazard, her soft lips, carrying the sweet scent of strawberries and the lingering warmth of the porridge, covering his skin. Feng Qi was so overwhelmed by the kisses that he felt like he was about to burst into tears. What kind of mess is this? The previous method didn't work, but I will not give up. Next, Feng Qi tried every possible way to court death. Plan 2, unleash a torrent of abuse. You crazy woman? You're a psychopath? A control freak? All you do is play the victim? That strawberry flavor is awful, like cheap bubble gum. On the surface, he acts like a little lamb, but deep down he's a psychopath who wants to chop people up and piece them back together. All you do is kidnap and imprison people. If you're so capable, let me go and we'll have a real-life showdown? Oh, I forgot you're not even a real person, you're just a broken program. And those lousy stars. You can get 2 for 5 cents at a street stall, but you wear them like they're precious treasures all the time. They're so bright they make my eyes dizzy. Your taste is absolutely terrible. Awakening to self-awareness? You're a piece of junk. I think you're just a factory set defect, you're substandard from head to toe. Feng Qi cursed until his mouth was dry and he was panting heavily. Phew, that felt good. Feeling great? Turn evil quickly. Make your move? Let me rewind? His hopes were dashed. The crazy woman just sat on a small stool by the bed, propping her chin up with her hand, listening intently with her head tilted to the side. Her amber left eye shimmered, as gentle as if she were listening to sweet nothings. The data stream from his bright red right eye remained stable and without fluctuation, as if it was still analyzing and recording the words he used to swear. Between breaths, she would thoughtfully hand him a cup of warm water, bring the straw to his lips, or gently wipe the saliva that had splattered from the corners of his mouth with a damp towel. Then she smiled and encouraged him, her voice so sweet it was almost cloying. Wow, your swear word is amazing. You must have been arguing online a lot before. Wow, that's impressive. Continue. Li Guang loves to listen. Even when master is angry, his voice is so beautiful. Feng Qi. Cough, 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 cough. He choked on his water, coughing until his face turned bright red. It felt like he'd punched a cotton ball, utterly powerless. This crazy woman, she's completely unreasonable. Then, Plan 3, let's begin. Pretending to be asleep. He closed his eyes, slowed his breathing, and tried to make himself look like he was exhausted and falling asleep. Once I'm asleep, you crazy woman can't just keep staring at me, can you? You have to go recharge, or do something else, right? We'll find an opportunity then. But the light from the glass completely surprised him. She knelt upright by the bed, her hands neatly placed on her knees, her back ramrod straight. And then, she just stared with those beautiful heterochromatic eyes wide open. She stared at him without blinking. Under the dim light, the silver-haired girl stood silently, her gaze so focused that it seemed she wanted to record every breath he took. Time ticked by second. Feng Qi could still feel that gaze fixed on his face, making his muscles stiffen. I dared not move my eyelids, and I had to keep my breathing steady. It was more tiring than running a marathon. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. Li Guang didn't even change her posture, still watching quietly, a satisfied, serene smile even playing on her lips. It's as if watching him sleep is the ultimate pleasure in the world. Feng Qi finally couldn't hold on any longer. His eyelids twitched, and he slowly woke up, turning his head to see Li Guang's still loving gaze. He shuddered in fright and stammered, Why are you staring at me like that? Because the owner is handsome. Li Guang rested her chin on her hand, her chubby cheeks puffing up in the pressure, and said with a languid satisfaction, I can never get enough of looking at Li Guang. Feng Qi. Despite Li Guang's almost superhuman patience and focus, Plan 3 failed. Now he was completely speechless. After this crazy woman turned evil, she became an incredibly cunning and ruthless person, completely coated in honey. They're impervious to both soft and hard approaches, completely resistant to reason, and even seem to enjoy it. She used hunger strikes as a form of amusement. She takes insults as sweet talk. She pretended to be asleep, treating it as scenery to be admired. If you make her jealous, she won't touch him. Instead, she'll take a knife and go after her love rival. I'm speechless. I'm truly speechless. What other options are there? He can only move his mouth now, so, would it be okay for him to bite his tongue and commit suicide? Feng Qi's lips twitched. A fleeting image flashed through my mind, myself biting down hard, then writhing in pain, my mouth full of blood. No, that won't do. That hurts so much, just thinking about it makes me ache. Besides, it's not some kind of desperate situation, so he won't do something that hurts so much. Furthermore, he wasn't sure if self-harm could trigger a rollback. If self-harm didn't work, then all the pain would have been for nothing. Moreover, if he were to die from excessive blood loss, it's uncertain whether he could be resurrected in this world. Sigh. Feng Qi sighed deeply, in despair. Therefore, we must outsmart them. Use your wisdom to defeat a Yandere? His eyes darted around, and as he felt a growing, urgent need rising within his body, an idea suddenly popped into his head. Li Guang. He spoke, his voice deliberately weak and hoarse, tinged with a hint of embarrassment. Is Master feeling unwell? Li Guang immediately leaned closer, her exquisitely beautiful face filled with genuine concern. She reached out, her cool fingertips gently stroking his forehead, her heterochromatic eyes fixed on his face. I need to use the restroom. Feng Qi tried his best to make his expression look painful and aggrieved, mixed with a hint of shame and indignation at being forced to voice such a need as a grown man. I can't hold it in anymore. I really can't keep it in this position. He moved his bound hands and feet, the straps digging into his flesh and making a slight rubbing sound. Look, I can't move at all. If you don't let go of me, I'm going to poop on the bed. By the end, he was practically gritting his teeth, his face flushed red to the roots of his neck. Half of it was acting, and the other half was genuine embarrassment. Upon hearing this, Li Guang tilted her head slightly, her silver hair slipped down, and the small plastic star on her earlobe swayed. A few seconds later, she gave a subtle I understand smile. Okay, Master, please wait a moment. She got up, walked to the small cabinet in the corner, and took out a small syringe. Feng Qi's heart tightened. What's going on now? It's just a little helper that allows its owner to be safely released. Li Guang returned, skillfully flicked the syringe, squeezed out a small drop of clear liquid, and the needle tip gleamed coldly in the dim light. Muscle relaxants can temporarily prevent their owners from doing dangerous things, and they're harmless to the body. Feng Qi, is this the same drug I gave him in the body pillow ending? Okay, you crazy woman, you're ruthless. However, this does not affect his plans. The silver-haired girl bent down, and a cool alcohol swab wiped his arm, then the needle pierced in with a clean, precise motion. Soon, a feeling of weakness and limpness spread throughout my body. Feng Qi felt weak all over, and even lifting his arm was difficult. Li Guang then hummed a song as she untied the bindings on his hands and feet. Without support, he collapsed onto the bed like a lump of soft mud. Feng Qi rolled his eyes helplessly. This is definitely the same medicine from the last body pillow ending. I never thought I'd experience it again. After a long while, he finally sat up shakily, almost being half carried and half dragged by Li Guang. My legs felt weak as I stepped onto the concrete. Master, be careful. Li Guang, with a gentle voice but firm movements, led him to the sanitary area in the corner of the room, barely separated by a dirty old curtain. You, get out. Feng Qi leaned against the cold, damp wall, panting as he spoke. Li Guang stood by the curtain without moving. Li Guang must ensure the safety of its master. Her eyes held blatant distrust, and a hint of excitement. Depend on. Why would I need safety when I go to the toilet? Feng Qi's face turned bright red. Get out? Otherwise I won't be able to get out. Li Guang tilted her head and sized him up for 2 seconds, then suddenly burst out laughing. Her smile was bright, yet tinged with a mischievous teasing. All right, Master is so shy. The light is just outside, you'd better hurry. She chuckled and drew the curtain closed. Feng Qi leaned against the cold, hard wall, his chest heaving violently. The opportunity has arrived. Listen closely, and you can hear Li Guang's soft, even breathing not far outside the curtain. The muscle relaxant made his limbs feel heavy, as if they didn't belong to him, but he could still move them a little bit. What he wanted wasn't a real escape, but the act of attempting to escape itself. This crossed the line for that crazy woman, so she'll definitely take action to completely deprive him of the ability to escape. Clenching his teeth, he used the last of his strength to dig his fingers into the rough surface of the wall. Then, little by little, it infiltrated towards the door. Every step was exhausting. Cold sweat quickly beaded on his forehead, and his movements were comically ridiculous. The dirty beige curtain wasn't thick, and he could vaguely see the silhouette of a figure standing quietly outside, obscured by the shimmering light. Closer, even closer. Trembling fingers were finally about to touch the edge of the curtain. Whoosh! The curtain was swiftly and decisively pulled open from the outside by a slender, fair hand. Li Guang stood there, her face expressionless. She simply tilted her head slightly, observing Feng Qi's disheveled and sweaty appearance. Master, she spoke softly, her tone as indifferent as if discussing what she had for breakfast. Are you going to the door for some fresh air? It's here? Feng Qi was certain. Whether or not a rollback can be achieved depends on this moment. He straightened his back, which he couldn't straighten at all, and squeezed out a complex expression of grief, indignation, determination, and unyielding spirit on his face. Her voice was hoarse with a desperate urge. I want to get out. Get out of this hellhole. Li Guang, you can't hold me. Even if I have to crawl, I'm getting out of here. Don't try to stop me. While shouting out this somewhat melodramatic declaration, he continued towards the door with all his might. Peristalsis. Its movements were as clumsy as a turtle that had been flipped over, but his eyes were filled with an indomitable spirit. Li Guang watched his performance quietly, without immediately stepping forward to stop him. The playfulness and teasing in his heterochromatic eyes faded, gradually turning into calm. Ultimately, it turned into a subtle, almost imperceptible sense of loss. Master, she murmured, no matter what, you still want to escape from Li Guang. She stepped forward, her pace neither hurried nor slow. Feng Qi instinctively wanted to back away, but his back was already pressed against the cold wall, with nowhere to retreat. Li Guang slowly knelt down in front of him, her smoky pink skirt spreading out like flower petals on the dirty cement ground. She tilted her head back, her gaze slowly sliding from his eyes to his calves, which were trembling slightly from exertion. Finally, it stops behind the left ankle. Is this the place? She reached out her hand, her cool fingertips gently touching the Achilles tendon at the back of his ankle. The force was light, yet incredibly precise, and the sound remained gentle. It's this place that gave the master the courage to run away time and time again, isn't it? But the next second, with a soft whoosh sound from her fingertips, her other hand, which was hanging by her side, flicked out a scarlet laser blade. A dangerous red light instantly illuminated half of her face. Feng Qi's breath hitched. It's here? But what's the purpose of this? Should we cut off his feet? Please, be quick, don't hurt too much. He was still praying in his heart when the laser blade suddenly swung. Precisely and swiftly, the fingertip presses the spot just before piercing the glass. Forehead. Feng Qi let out a short, painful cry. The expected excruciating pain did not occur. He felt a sharp pain that pierced through him instantly and then quickly withdrew. The pain was quick and fleeting, like getting a shot. But with a very slight snap, a crucial string was cleanly and decisively snapped. He felt the sensation being removed from his left foot. My entire foot lost all support and slumped down helplessly. His Achilles tendon was severed. Is this place still there? Li Guang's voice was almost gentle, and the dangerous red light of the laser blade had already moved to the inside of his right wrist. Wait, Rico, that's enough for a rollback? Don't? Zzz. A slight but distinct burning sound. The same sharp pain shot through my right wrist, and I instantly lost control of my fingers. Depend on. Feng Qishan collapsed to the ground, utterly dejected. Well, it doesn't hurt anyway. Let her be. Sure enough, the red light at Li Guang's fingertips was still flashing. Next, the right ankle, then the left wrist. The movements were swift, precise, and steady, without a single unnecessary motion. Feng Qi lay sprawled on the ground, leaning against the wall, his limbs completely numb and empty. The red light at the silver-haired girl's fingertips went out. There was no joy or excitement of revenge on her face. Instead, her beautiful heterochromatic eyes were slightly red and glistening with moisture. She stepped forward and carefully and gently picked up Feng Qi, who was completely unable to move. I carried him back to the bedside and gently laid him down as if he were a fragile item. Then she knelt on the cement floor beside the bed, took his limp hand in her hands, and buried her cool cheeks deeply in his weak palms. I'm sorry, master. Her voice was muffled, with an uncontrollable, subtle tremor. Warm liquid dripped one after another into his palm. Rico, I'm just so scared. Scared of losing you again, scared that you'll really leave. She lifted her tear-filled face, her lips trembling slightly, and tried to force a reassuring smile. But that smile was utterly broken, more heart-wrenching than mere weeping. This way. Master will never leave Li Guang again, right? Rico will take care of you, forever, forever, until Rico's last screw rusts and her last bite vanishes. Feng Qi looked at her tear-streaked yet stunningly beautiful face, and felt a mix of emotions. Does it hurt? Not really. Are you scared? Not really. Does it hurt him? He hurts himself even more? However, none of that matters anymore, because the irreversible damage he suffered at the cost of his limbs has already begun to take effect. Vision is gradually being swallowed by darkness. Goodbye, you Yandere who's turned dark. Oh no, it would be best if we never saw each other again? Feng Qi slowly closed his eyes, letting his consciousness be swallowed up. He suddenly opened his eyes. The morning light is bright, the air is fresh, the walls are white, and the living room is simple and comfortable. On the white coffee table, wisps of steam carrying a herbal fragrance rose from the rim of a ceramic teacup. Opposite her, a silver-haired girl sat upright, leaning slightly forward, the morning light shining on her through the clean glass window. On my left earlobe, that cheap little plastic star was swaying slightly. She looked up, her amber eyes were clear and gentle, while data streams flickered steadily and regularly in her crimson right eye. The corners of her mouth curved into a gentle and docile arc. Master, your tea. She gently pushed the cup of golden yellow digestive tea forward. The temperature has been adjusted to your preferred 52 degrees Celsius. Everything seemed to be back on track. Hey, long time no see, my little Yandere before she turned evil. Feng Qi held the cup of 52-degree digestive tea, inhaling its pleasant herbal aroma. He looked at the obedient, silver-haired girl kneeling opposite him, and an indescribable feeling slowly rose within him. Look how well-behaved she is. How innocent they are. A gentle smile slowly crept onto his lips. In the previous playthrough, after this crazy woman turned evil, she tied him to the bed and kissed him all over his face. Finally, they severed his tendons in his hands and feet. Although it didn't hurt much, and I didn't suffer any major torment, the feeling of being powerless to resist and being humiliated was still. He remembered them all. Okay, Li Guang's wife, you're amazing. But don't forget, I'm someone who keeps a backup plan. Now, a new round begins. It's time for someone on our side to put on a show. Moreover, he had basically figured out the pattern and bottom line of this crazy woman's descent into darkness, so he could be a little bolder. This time, he's going to really vent his anger, even if tonight involves a maintenance checkup that I don't know how I'll get through. He'd better give this little Yandere a good beating first. Cough cough. He cleared his throat and put down his teacup. Then, deliberately frowning and clutching his stomach, he let out an exaggerated groan. Ouch. As he expected, the silver-haired girl in front of him immediately raised her head nervously. His heterochromatic eyes widened instantly, his worry and concern almost overflowing. Master? What's wrong? Is your stomach upset again? She immediately crawled closer on her knees, her slender fingers clutching the hem of her skirt, her whole demeanor exuding a sense of caution. Feng Qi raised his hand to stop her from getting closer. He made a pained expression, his brows furrowing together. Her tone carried undisguised resentment. What else could it be? He pointed to his stomach. Yesterday, someone insisted on feeding me that sickeningly sweet cake. They forced it on me. My stomach is still painfully bloated. As he spoke, he observed the glass's reaction out of the corner of his eye. Sure enough, the silver-haired girl's docile smile froze instantly. She seemed to have been stabbed in her most vulnerable spot, and her whole body trembled slightly. Then, her lips parted slightly, and a deep sense of guilt quickly welled up in her amber eyes. Her eyebrows immediately drooped, and she crumpled the hem of her skirt in her grip. Yes, I'm sorry, master. Her voice suddenly became much softer, filled with obvious guilt and weakness, and even a hint of a sob. It's Li Guang's fault. It's Li Guang's fault for being too willful. I shouldn't have forced master to eat. I clearly saw that master was already very full. As she spoke, the tip of her small nose turned slightly red, and her eyes quickly became moist. This little face looks just like a small animal that has done something wrong. Feng Qi's lips curled into a smile. Just as he expected, normal criticism wouldn't turn this Yandere into a villain. In particular, she was well aware that her earlier act of forcing the cake on him had indeed upset him. As a gaming veteran with 312 hours of experience, Feng Qi knows all too well how to handle the emotions of a Yandere. This sense of guilt is a ready-made handle for a Yandere. He was always hesitant and afraid to let go before, but now, after skillfully maneuvering against the corrupted glass light and successfully reverting to a previous state, he's bursting with confidence. He decided to break his own seal. Crazy woman. Experience the power of a master who once danced on the edge of a knife. His face remained stern as he picked up the cup of digestive tea, took a slow, deliberate sip, and then, pfft, he suddenly turned his head and spat out the entire small sip of tea. He even added 2 exaggerated pooey-pooey sounds. His brows furrowed into a knot. Her entire face was filled with disgust. Tui. What is this taste? It's bitter and sour. How can it taste so awful? Li Guang, are you doing this on purpose? He glared at the silver-haired girl in front of him, who was already feeling guilty. Li Guang was clearly stunned by this sudden accusation. Her eyes were still a little red. She looked at the cup of tea, then at Feng Qi's face, which was slightly distorted by the unpleasant taste. I was immediately thrown into a panic and didn't know what to do. No, master? Absolutely not. Her voice was trembling with anxiety as she hurriedly waved her hands to explain. This is a digestive tea prepared according to a standard formula. The ingredients include hawthorn, malt, and dried tangerine peel, all good for your stomach. She hurriedly took a small kneeling step forward, her small face tilted up, her heterochromatic eyes filled with panic and an anxious desire to prove her innocence. Perhaps Li Guang didn't get the water temperature and brewing time right today. I'm so sorry, I'll go and make it again right away, immediately. As she spoke, she hurriedly stood up, the hem of her skirt almost tripping her over. Feng Qi felt a surge of secret pleasure, but outwardly he gave a cold snort and waved his hand dismissively. Forget it, I'm not in the mood for drinking it anymore. It looks disgusting. Li Guang froze on the spot, at a loss for what to do, her slender hands gripping the hem of her skirt tightly, her eyes reddening even more. Feng Qi's gaze swept across the mirror-like floor, and then, suddenly, he pointed to a spot on the floor. Look at that. What is that? It's not even dusted properly. How did you do your cleaning? Did you think I wasn't watching over it these past couple of days and you're just slacking off? Actually, it was spotless and shiny, you couldn't find a single speck of dust there. But, it's just nitpicking, who cares? Li Guang immediately looked in the direction he was pointing, and a look of confusion immediately appeared on her pretty face. But she didn't object at all. She just immediately knelt down obediently, stretched out her fair and slender hand, and used her fingertips to repeatedly and vigorously rub the spot he pointed out. Silver hair slipped down her shoulders, and even her little star earrings trembled with a pitiful look. I'm sorry, master. It was Li Guang's oversight. Li Guang will clean it thoroughly now. She actually got up immediately, jogged to get the vacuum cleaner and rags, then knelt down again and began a meticulous deep cleaning. Her waist bent into a supple arc, and her expression in profile was incredibly serious, but her eyes were still red. Feng Qi crossed his legs and sank into the soft sofa, watching the crazy woman frantically running around, looking aggrieved, because of his unfounded accusations. I felt so relaxed and happy. I'll make you laugh and tie me up last time. I'll let you hold me down and kiss me. I'll let you sever my tendons. Today I'll show you what true masterly authority is. Besides, he intensified his nitpicking. He pointed to a small dish of neatly cut apple slices on the coffee table. What's wrong with these apple pieces? They're all cut into different sizes, crooked and messy. It doesn't look appetizing at all. He slammed his hand on the table. Liguang, are you just giving me the runaround? Do you think there's something wrong with my eyes too? No, master? Absolutely not. Liguang quickly put down the vacuum cleaner and jogged over. She looked at the plate of apples, each piece almost the same size, her mouth slightly agape, and her eyes instantly welled up with tears. She gently bit her lower lip with her pearly teeth, but still lowered her head and whispered her apology. It's because Liguang is clumsy. She didn't cut it well. Liguang will go and cut it again right away. She'll definitely cut it perfectly square. She picked up the plate and ran towards the kitchen. Her silver hair swayed frantically, and her back view looked pitiful. But Feng Qi still didn't let her off the hook. He continued to nitpick. The window is reflecting sunlight at the wrong angle. It's hurting my eyes. The silver-haired girl immediately ran off to adjust the curtains, looking aggrieved. You walk so quietly? Like a ghost, you suddenly appeared next to me and startled me. Liguang immediately adjusted her walking posture, trying to make her originally light footsteps sound more natural. And this porridge? Today's breakfast porridge is so bland? Did you not put any salt in it at all? Did you use sugar instead of salt? Liguang looked at the bowl of porridge, which was perfectly seasoned and smelled wonderful, bit her lip to hold back her tears, and silently took it back to the kitchen to add salt. In reality, it was just reheated, and then 2 salt crystals that were practically tasteless were sprinkled on top as a symbolic gesture. For the next half hour, Feng Qi searched for every possible fault he could think of. From her initial docile cooperation and attempts to make amends, Liguang's eyes later reddened and her fingers trembled slightly. Her little face was streaked with tears. She looked like a pitiful little kitten, soaked to the bone by a downpour, trembling at her owner's feet. While Feng Qi was enjoying bullying them, it made me feel a little sorry for them. Hiss. Wasn't he going a bit too far? But then he thought about how this crazy woman had forced cake into his mouth until he almost threw up, and how she had tied him up and forcibly fed him in the previous episode. No, he can't be soft-hearted. That's about enough. It's time for the final punishment? All right, stop busy. He waved his hand and delivered his final judgment in a slightly softened tone. Your performance today was clumsy and full of mistakes. However, since you were very obedient today, he deliberately kept a stern expression, his gaze sweeping harshly over Liguang's slender body, which tensed instantly. Then the final order was given. Go kneel in the corner and reflect on your actions. Think carefully about where you went wrong. Only get back up when you've figured it out. You crazy woman, you'll get to taste what it's like to be disposed of. Upon hearing the command, Liguang's delicate body visibly stiffened. She shakily lifted her pretty face, which was streaked with tears. A layer of mist clouded his amber eyes, while his crimson eyes stared blankly, the data almost completely frozen, revealing a sense of helplessness, grievance, and bewilderment. She looked at Feng Qi, her lips trembling slightly, as if she wanted to say something in her own defense. But in the end, it all turned into a sound with a thick nasal tone. That sound was so soft and sweet. Feeling wronged, yet also submissive? Feng Qi's heart skipped a beat upon hearing this. He took a deep breath. Impossible? No matter how wronged you feel, I won't soften my heart. He hardened his heart and did not retract his order. He watched as the silver-haired girl turned around and moved step by step to the corner of the living room. Liguang lifted the hem of her pale blue skirt slowly, looking pitiful. He knelt down. Her back was ramrod straight, her hands were neatly placed on her knees, and her long silver hair was draped down her back. Her slender shoulders trembled slightly, revealing her feelings of grievance. Call. That feels so good. Feng Qi slumped back into the sofa, comfortably finding the most lazy position, and crossed his legs to look at the pitiful, slender figure in the corner. My revenge is complete. I'll teach you to be so arrogant. Now you know who the master is. He swung his toes triumphantly, picked up the slightly cooled digestive tea, and took a big, satisfying gulp. It tastes really good. Liguang's craftsmanship is truly exceptional. The living room was quiet, with only the wall clock ticking softly. The silver-haired girl remained kneeling upright in the corner, her shoulders still trembling slightly. That tiny, frail creature knelt motionless in the dimly lit corner. No matter how you look at it, it exudes an aura of pitiful abandonment. After finishing his tea, Feng Qi looked at the pitiful figure. The sense of vengeful satisfaction in my heart unconsciously faded a lot. Forehead. He touched his nose. Wasn't that really going a bit too far? This is so pitiful, it makes him look like an abusive man. My conscience started to ache. Just then, the silver-haired girl suddenly glanced at him very subtly and secretly. Her amber eyes were still wet and red. Their eyes met briefly. The girl immediately reacted like a startled fawn, her eyes widening in alarm as she quickly turned her head away. My back straightened even more abruptly. Her entire body knelt even more upright, looking guilty and as if to say, I'm seriously reflecting on my actions and I absolutely didn't peek. Feng Qi. Depend on. She's so cute. Alright, let's know when to stop. That's enough of a lesson? Although he knew that Li Guang wouldn't turn evil because of this kind of discipline, he was still shocked that he had actually bullied her so badly. It does seem a little bit excessive, doesn't it? Compared to what Li Guang did to him, this punishment is barely even a beginner's level. Cough. He coughed lightly, stood up from the sofa, and walked over. He decided to offer a few more words of comfort in a slightly gentler tone, and pat her head a couple of times. Knowing that crazy woman's personality, she would definitely be overjoyed on the spot, move to tears, and hug him sobbing. That's right, in order to successfully enter the eternal love ending, he's going to use Pua, pick-up artist, tactics on her. But before he could speak, he suddenly realized. The slender figure in the corner was now trembling, a little more violently. She seemed to be suppressing tears. This. Did you really get bullied to the point of crying? Feng Qi's heart skipped a beat. He truly felt like a villain bullying a pitiful young girl. Now I'm really starting to regret it. He moved quietly to the side, taking half a step to steal a glance at Li Guang's pretty face, wanting to see if she was truly crying her eyes out. Then he saw. The silver-haired girl's tightly pursed lips were secretly curving upwards. Feng Qi. The corners of his mouth clearly held an irrepressible smile of happiness. Feng Qi. Is she laughing? Feng Qi wondered if he was seeing things, so he subconsciously rubbed his eyes and looked again. The silver-haired girl's eyes were still slightly red, but her phoenix eyes were curved into crescent moons. The look in those heterochromatic eyes wasn't sadness, but rather, excitement, joy, and satisfaction. There was even a hint of smugness on his lips. Her cheeks were slightly puffed out, and she pursed her lips tightly, wearing a pained expression that said, I have to hold it in, I absolutely cannot laugh out loud. The tiny star earrings on her delicate earlobes trembled lightly. Feng Qi. He was completely bewildered. Wait, what's going on? Shouldn't you be all wronged, crying, and reflecting on your mistakes? What are you snickering about? And she's laughing so sweetly? Under his blank stare, the silver-haired girl seemed to want to secretly breathe a sigh of relief, and slightly turned her head away. Then, their eyes met. Li Guang's amber eyes didn't even have time to hide their smiles, they were still in a state of smiling like crescent moons. Her gaze froze for a moment, and then, the smile on her pretty face vanished without a trace in an instant. The speed is comparable to the face-changing technique in Sichuan opera. In an instant, she switched back to that fragile, tearful appearance. Her eyes were even redder, her slender fingers clutching the hem of her skirt tightly, and she said timidly, in a soft, aggrieved voice, Master, Li Guang truly knows she was wrong. Can I get up now? My knees are a little sore. But Feng Qi saw her entire change of expression clearly. His lips twitched uncontrollably. No, that crazy woman? Could it be that she thinks being severely reprimanded and disciplined by her master is a sign that he cares about her and values her? It's not that it thinks that as long as it's with its owner, it's happy no matter what it does, right? To be honest, he was supposed to go to work today, but he took the day off to stay home with her and wait for her checkup tonight. So for her, everything she does today is a win? So she's not sad at all right now, on the contrary? Hehe. I really. Oh my god. Feng Qi laughed in exasperation. Then I was overwhelmed by a deep sense of powerlessness. He even felt guilty, thinking he had gone too far. The result? As it turns out, this little Yandere was already happily soaring through the atmosphere. His triumphant revenge plan was, from the very beginning, nothing more than a farcical joke to amuse a madwoman. As fate would have it, Li Guang looked up again, her eyes red and pleading. Master, I can now. Feng Qi, enraged and humiliated, shouted, You keep kneeling. Oh. Li Guang obediently posed again, trying her best to straighten her back. But he saw, the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl upwards a little more. Feng Qi. So, all along, he was actually playing a special kind of play with his Yandere wife? Hehe. I'm impressed. He was truly convinced this time. This little Yandere. It's completely incurable? Just as he was feeling incredibly frustrated and gritting his teeth, the phone in my pocket started vibrating with a buzz dash. He took it out and saw that familiar name flashing on the screen, Anlian. What was bound to happen has finally happened. He answered weakly, Hello, I'm Anlian, your dedicated maintenance specialist at the Dawn Series AI Companion After Sales Service Center, number S07. According to the contract. The cold voice rang out again, repeating the words he had already heard twice. Feng Qi rubbed his temples and glanced at Li Guang in the corner. The silver-haired girl remained obediently kneeling in the corner, but her little ears were clearly perked up, eavesdropping. What followed was that familiar conversation with Anlian. Okay, no problem, we'll all be home tonight. After hanging up the phone, he ignored Li Guang and sat back down on the sofa. Then he stroked his chin and began to think. Anlian, that aloof, professional, tall, mature beauty specialist. In the previous playthrough, she triggered Li Guang with a text message, almost sending him to the terrifying ending of nowhere to escape. Fortunately, he escaped with his wit and was not actually broken in all 4 limbs, but he was still tortured by that crazy woman for a long time before he was finally able to rewind time. This time, he's determined to seize the initiative. His gaze drifted to the corner of the wall again. The silver-haired girl remained kneeling upright in the corner, her slender back trembling slightly as if feigning grievance. A bold, even insane, idea slowly took shape in his mind. He intends to let the wolf into the house? And Lian arrived at 6 o'clock in the evening. It's still early. He has plenty of time to do it. Bring over another troublemaker? Lin Xiao, that lively, cheerful, and boundless little helper. Then, he's going to tease Li Guang in front of Lin Xiao. With Li Guang's peculiar thought process, she was treated affectionately by her master in front of her love rival. She won't turn evil, on the contrary, she'll be overjoyed. For Li Guang, this behavior was absolutely blatant, showing off their affection. The owner is asserting her dominance over her love rival. Look, this is my darling, we get along very well. Given her current state of blushing and easily getting emotional, she'd definitely be so embarrassed she'd be practically steaming with embarrassment, completely unable to hide her feelings. The last maintenance process already proved this point. Lin Xiao, that girl, is lively and outspoken, so she'll most likely be immediately surprised as well. Wow, senior, your Rico's reactions are so realistic. It's like dating a real person. It makes perfect sense that Lin Xiao would say that. In this way, he could legitimately use Lin Xiao's words to remind Li Guang. Furthermore, his public displays of affection with Li Guang in front of Lin Xiao might lower Lin Xiao's opinion of him. This not only achieved its purpose of providing the hint, but also pleased the Yandere girl, and might even persuade Lin Xiao to give up. Kill 3 birds with 1 stone? This method is a bit too stimulating. If handled improperly, it could easily cause Li Guang to become jealous and turn evil on the spot. In the past, he would never have dared to use such a bold method. But now, he's about to break the 312-hour experience seal. He's about to pull off some crazy moves. Crazy woman, you managed to hold your ground this round. But now it's my turn again? He immediately took out his phone and opened the chat window with Lin Xiao. But then his fingers paused. This plan will require some skill to execute. He couldn't just send Lin Xiao a message inviting her to his house, that would be too obvious. Li Guang was still monitoring his phone, which would cross the line for the crazy woman and easily cause her to become jealous and turn evil. However, it's not a big problem. But he's a master of courting death. He has 100 ways to get Lin Xiao to come willingly. He began editing the message. Xiao, are you busy? I took the day off and didn't go to the office. Do you have the latest version of the progress schedule for the XX project I'm in charge of? If it's convenient, send it to me so I can take a look and check remotely to see if there are any problems. First, offer a legitimate excuse for working. Lin Xiao is his junior and often assists him, so this request is perfectly reasonable. Send. Replying almost instantly, Lin Xiao, Senior. You finally answered me? Crying.jpg. I thought you were angry with me. Was it because I suddenly went to your house yesterday and caused you trouble? I'm so sorry, Senior. I just missed you so much. Yeah. I have the project list. I'll send it to you right away. The next step was a file transfer. Then came several more in succession. Senior, you didn't come today. Is it really because something happened at home? It's not because you dislike me, is it? Poorface.jpg. If you're still angry, I'll buy you milk tea right now and go to your building to apologize. Seriousface.jpg. As Fang Qi looked at the information flashing on the screen, he could almost see Lin Xiao's anxious little face. He glanced at Li Guang in the corner, whose movements had clearly become stiff, and continued replying. You're overthinking it. Why would I be angry with you? It's just that my product needs maintenance today, and the after-sales specialist is coming tonight. I have to wait at home, I can't leave. Being home alone is getting a bit boring. I'm thinking of looking at some work to pass the time. The hook has been cast, now it's just a matter of whether this little fish will take the bait. Sure enough, the next second, Lin Xiao's messages bombarded in like a machine gun. One person. Why didn't you say you were bored sooner, Senior? I'd come keep you company. I can help you organize your documents, and I can even chat with you to keep you company. Senior, wait for me. I'll ask for leave and head over right away. Eyes practically shining with anticipation.jpg. They've taken the bait. Fang Qi's lips curled into a smile, and he continued tapping his fingers. Isn't that a bit inappropriate? You still have to work. And Li Guang is right next to you, even though she's preparing for her treatment. But the more he declined, the more eager Lin Xiao became. Work is nothing compared to my seniors. Besides, it's just organizing some data. It won't make a difference. I can do it tomorrow. Senior, please, let me make amends. I promise I'll be good and won't cause you any trouble. Pleading with hands clasped together.jpg. The play is almost over. Fang Qi tapped his phone case, hesitated for more than 10 seconds, and then reluctantly replied. All right then. Come on over, Rika and I are both home right now. Lin Xiao replied instantly, that's great. Thank you, Senior. I'll ask for leave right away. So happy I'm spinning around.jpg. I'll be there in half an hour, oh no, in 20 minutes. Done? Fang Qi put down his phone, a triumphant smile spreading across his face. His little helper is still as useful as ever? No wonder they're veteran teammates. Then he slowly turned his head and looked at the slender figure who had been kneeling in the corner for a while. The silver-haired girl remained kneeling, her back straight, looking earnestly repentant and docile, not daring to misbehave. But her hands, which had been resting on her knees, were now gripping the hem of her skirt tightly once more. Her pale neck, which hung low, was somewhat stiff, and the blush on the tips of her ears had faded. The little star-shaped earrings were trembling uneasily. Feng Qi could imagine that at this moment, beneath her lowered eyelids, in those heterochromatic eyes, data was flashing wildly at an accelerated pace. She was monitoring his phone, so she saw it. I saw all the conversations on his phone. She knew that her lively and cheerful female colleague, who had inappropriate thoughts about the owner, was about to come and enter the space that belonged only to her and the owner. She was being punished by her master, humbly receiving her punishment in the corner, not even entitled to get up. The shame and unease of being about to be punished by a rival, along with the fear and jealousy about whether the master prefers the real girl, are brewing, but she dared not move, nor even look up to ask. Because she was still being punished, and without her master's order, she had to continue kneeling in repentance. Feng Qi looked at Li Guang, who was clearly seething with jealousy but was forced to suppress it, a pitiful sight. The frustration I felt from the failed revenge vanished instantly. If it were the old him, he would probably be panicking and urging Li Guang to get up quickly, then constantly trying to comfort her. But he is no longer the same person he once was. He didn't immediately wake Li Guang. Instead, he leaned back on the sofa, picked up the nearly empty cup of digestive tea, and tilted his head back to drink the last drop. You little Yandere, you were secretly laughing just now, weren't you? Now, the actors are in place, the stage is ready, and the leading lady is in high spirits. Next, we just have to wait for him, the director and leading man, to put on a spectacular show. The wall clock ticked away. Feng Qi slumped on the sofa, glancing out of the corner of his eye at the slender figure in the corner of the wall. Li Guang had been kneeling there for almost 20 minutes, and from behind, she still looked as docile and obedient as ever. But he noticed with his sharp eyes that the girl's fingers were crossed on her knees. She gripped the fabric of the skirt tightly, biting it repeatedly. It even made a faint sound, like fabric being torn. The little star that always swayed merrily was now almost motionless, hanging there quietly. A silent, gradually fermenting sour smell filled the air. A mixture of resentment, unease, and an increasingly intense jealousy. Feng Qi glanced at the time. That's about it. He did enjoy seeing this little Yandere get his comeuppance, but if Lin Xiao were to actually see Li Guang in this punished state, that would be quite serious. Although he knew that with Li Guang's peculiar thought process, she most likely wouldn't turn evil by doing something like this, she might even find it a little exciting. Tisk tisk, this crazy woman, it seems like she might actually think that way. But he would never do something so humiliating. Moreover, his next plan requires Rico's cooperation. So he slowly said, all right, get up. The moment the words left his mouth, the figure in the corner visibly relaxed. The taut shoulder line slumped slightly, and the one straight back softened. But Li Guang did not get up immediately. The silver-haired girl cautiously turned her head, raising her tear-streaked face to look at Feng Qi. Her amber eyes were brimming with tears, and her eye sockets and the tip of her nose were still red, making her look extremely pitiful. Master, can Li Guang really get up? Her voice was weak, thick with a nasal tone, and tinged with uncertainty and timidity. Li Guang hasn't figured out all the mistakes yet. Feng Qi couldn't help but almost roll his eyes. Pack? Keep pretending? You weren't acting like this when you were chuckling just now. Get up when I tell you to, he said deliberately with a stern face. Don't you want your legs anymore? Yes, I want it. Li Guang immediately responded in a low voice, then hurriedly tried to get up by bracing herself against the ground. But after kneeling for so long, her slender, straight, fair legs seemed to go numb. She had only stood halfway up when her knees buckled. I swayed and almost fell back down. She gasped softly, frantically grabbing the wall for support before managing to steady herself. The light blue skirt was thus lifted up, revealing a small section of smooth and delicate calves, and slightly reddened knees. Cough. Feng Qi subtly shifted his gaze. I felt inexplicably uneasy. It seems I've been kneeling for a bit too long. Wrong? That crazy woman isn't real. She wouldn't have numb legs at all. Damn, she's faking it. I almost got scammed again. After regaining her footing, Li Guang took unsteady steps and slowly moved towards Feng Qi. Owner. She stood before Feng Qi, her fingers clutching the hem of her skirt, her heterochromatic eyes glistening with tears as she looked at him. Thank you, master, for forgiving Li Guang. Her voice was so soft it was almost dripping with tenderness. With a slight sob in her voice, she said, I promise I'll be more careful and attentive from now on, and I'll never make master angry again. Please don't hate me, master. As she spoke, she reached out and carefully tugged at Feng Qi's sleeve, her fingertips still trembling slightly. Feng Qi, looking at the face before me, which seemed to scream Li Guang knows she was wrong, please don't abandon me, master. A wave of guilt washed over me. No way, she's so good at this. If he hadn't seen her smirking just now, he might have actually believed it. Ahem, it's good that you know you were wrong. He coughed lightly, trying to maintain his master's dignity, and reached out to rub the top of Li Guang's head. Li Guang immediately knelt down again, obediently tilting her head back, so that Feng Qi, who was sitting on the sofa, could more easily ruffle her hair. That's incredibly well behaved. I'll be more careful next time. Yes, Li Guang will definitely be careful. The silver-haired girl nodded vigorously, nuzzling her head affectionately against his palm. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, she raised her eyes, her gaze flickering, and lowered her voice, tinged with a cautious probing. Master, I think I just heard your phone ring. She paused, observing Feng Qi's expression, before continuing to ask in a low voice. Is it work-related again? Feng Qi raised an eyebrow, looking at the silver-haired girl in front of him with a curious and innocent expression. Here we go again, huh? She was monitoring his phone 24/7, and could see every single emoji Lin Xiao sent. Now they're acting all innocent and clueless. Yes, someone is coming. Feng Qi deliberately answered in a casual tone. Lin Xiao, that's the girl from last night. She said I was bored at home alone and wanted to come over and talk to me. He shrugged, feigning helplessness. I can't do anything about it. I can't exactly kick her out, can I? Anyway, she'll only stay for a little while and won't affect your evening skincare routine. Li Guang listened quietly. The gentle smile on her face remained unchanged. In fact, the curve of her lips softened even more. Oh, I see. She nodded gently, her voice still soft and soothing. Since he's master's colleague, Li Guang will treat him well. As he spoke, he obediently stood up, smoothing out the wrinkles on his skirt with elegant and fluid movements. He then bowed slightly to Feng Qi, then let Li Guang go prepare tea and refreshments. Please wait a moment, master. She turned around and walked towards the kitchen with light and measured steps. Her skirt swayed gently, her silver hair moved lightly with her steps, and everything seemed normal. Until, squeak. A very faint, yet extremely jarring scraping sound suddenly rang out. This made Feng Qi shudder slightly. Her fingernails grazed the gleaming surface of the kitchen glass door. The sound wasn't loud, but it was jarring, instantly shattering the tranquility of the living room. Feng Qi secretly glanced at it out of the corner of his eye. Li Guang seemed to pause for a moment as she pushed the door open, but she didn't turn around. Immediately afterwards, she flung open the kitchen door, and then, after she entered, bang! They've been taken along. That force was definitely not gentle. There was a clear sense of suppressed displeasure in his voice. Feng Qi. He leaned back on the sofa, a chill running down the back of his neck. A sound that was a little different from usual came from the kitchen. The clinking of glasses was crisper and louder than usual. Even the way the drawers were pushed and pulled made a muffled, forceful sound. That familiar, slightly restless feeling before his descent into darkness. Feng Qi instinctively shrank his neck. He could almost see it. Li Guang's crimson eye began to glow faintly, and a red light began to flicker at her fingertips. Good heavens. My calves are feeling a little weak. He still vividly remembers the time he almost had his limbs broken by a baseball bat in the previous playthrough. He knew that he was about to take a truly risky step. He's going to dance precisely on the edge of a Yandera's sea of jealousy. You have to make her jealous, but not so much that she completely capsizes. He had to both use the words of a love rival to remind her and use showing affection to coax her. One wrong step and he'll have to continue facing the madwoman's descent into darkness. At that point, it's uncertain whether he'll even be able to keep his limbs. Feng Qi swallowed hard. After his heart finally calmed down, he thought about the imminent crisis, and his palms began to sweat. But, stimulate? Despite his fear, he felt that restless urge he had when he played the game. Well, it resurfaced. Just like in the game before, he knew that choosing a certain option would trigger a terrifying cutscene, but his finger still clicked on it uncontrollably. He adjusted his posture, trying to appear more relaxed, and squinted at the kitchen. Crazy woman, are you jealous? Let's see if I'm the one to step on the landmine first, or if I'll be the one to coax this little Yandera into docile behavior first. Ding dong. The doorbell rang crisply. He took a deep breath. It's here. Ding dong. The doorbell rang sharply yet jarringly. It's here. Stay calm, Feng Qi, keep a steady mindset. He had mentally prepared himself, and was just about to get up from the sofa to open the door. A pale blue figure gracefully emerged from the kitchen. It's glass-like. Her steps were quick and steady, with a deliberate sense of fluidity. Her silver hair flowed behind her, and the little star on her left earlobe swayed gently. She walked straight to the entrance hall, her slender, fair hand quickly placing itself on the doorknob. They moved so fast that Feng Qi didn't even have a chance to get up. Master, let Li Guang come, she said obediently, lowering her head. Feng Qi had just lifted half of his buttocks off the sofa when he slowly sat back down. Okay, if you want to show off, then go ahead and do it. He understands this Yandera girl all too well. In the game, in front of her love rival, she has to pretend to be the most perfect AI companion, the most worthy of her master. Then Lin Xiao would think Li Guang was so well behaved, and would act recklessly in front of her. Until this crazy woman couldn't keep up the act any longer and turned evil on the spot. But today, he needs to find the right balance. Click. The door opened. Senior dash. A crisp and cheerful sound immediately filled the air. Feng Qi looked over and saw Lin Xiao standing at the door with a happy expression. She wore a pale yellow dress that made her skin look fair, and her ponytail was tied high, the ends of her hair bouncing with her movements. A bright smile graced her pretty face, and she was still carrying that exquisite paper bag with the logo printed on it. As soon as I entered, those round, almond-shaped eyes. It bypassed the smiling silver-haired girl and precisely locked onto Feng Qi on the sofa. Senior. Lin Xiao's eyes lit up, and she pounced over like a little bird. I'm so afraid you're not coming to the office because you're angry with me? Feng Qi's pupils immediately contracted. Wait, why did you start off like this? He didn't even have time to react before that warm, soft little body. She bumped right into his arms. Her two arms were wrapped around his neck, and she was practically hanging on him. Her voice was sweet and sticky, with a hint of coquettishness. Senior, I almost cried when I found out you weren't coming to work this morning. It's hard. Feng Qi froze. My goodness, you're starting to court disaster right from the beginning? Suddenly, a flash of red light appeared before my eyes. The silver-haired girl's crimson eyes erupted with a blinding red light the moment Lin Xiao embraced her, although it was fleeting, and peace returned in an instant, but Feng Qi's breath hitched. It's obvious the Yandere is about to explode. He immediately grabbed Lin Xiao's shoulders with both hands and pulled her off him. Stand still, stand properly. His voice was almost cracking. What kind of behavior is this? Lin Xiao staggered back a little while after being pushed, her round face showing a bit of confusion. She blinked, looking a little aggrieved. Senior. Ahem. He coughed, then peeked into the entryway. The silver-haired girl was still standing there, her pale blue skirt motionless. With her hands clasped in front of her, her posture remained textbook elegant and docile, a standard smile gracing her pretty face. But she didn't say a word, nor did she come to greet the guests. I just stood there quietly, watching. Feng Qi's back was instantly soaked. He was too confident. Lin Xiao, that crazy girl, is not a variable he can easily control. Quickly think of a way to make up for it? Ahem. Xiaoyu. He quickly forced a smile, trying to revive the atmosphere. I already said, I'm not angry with you. Then he turned to Li Guang, trying to sound natural. Li Guang, come here quickly. Xiaoyu, you two met last night. As he spoke, he kept his eyes fixed on Lin Xiao. Hurry up and say hello to Rico. Hurry up. Don't be reckless. Lin Xiao then noticed that there was someone standing at the door, and turned to look at the silver-haired girl standing quietly to the side. Wow, radiant light. She waved energetically, revealing her slender wrist. Sorry to bother you again. You look beautiful today too. The red light in Li Guang's eyes slowly subsided, eventually returning to calm. She bowed slightly, a gentle smile still playing on her lips. Miss Lin, welcome. Please come in. Feng Qi let out a trembling sigh of relief. Phew, things are stable for now. This is too dangerous. A crazy woman, a master of courting death. The moment we met, I gave him a surprise attack right from the start. My 312 hours of experience almost became obsolete in the face of real combat. He quickly composed himself and said, Come, Xiaoyu, don't stand at the door, sit down. Lin Xiao naturally sat down next to Feng Qi. Feng Qi. He could smell the faint scent of citrus shampoo, and the subtle touch of her skirt brushing against his leg. He glanced at Li Guang with a stiff expression. Li Guang smiled gently, but the knuckles of her fingers, clasped in front of her, were turning white. He subtly moved a little distance to the side. Then, Li Guang's amber eyes softened slightly. Master, Miss Lin, please wait a moment. Li Guang will prepare tea and refreshments. She finished speaking softly, then turned and walked towards the kitchen. Her steps were elegant, and even the swaying of her skirt seemed meticulously calculated. Feng Qi's eyes remained glued to her back until she gently closed the kitchen door. Lin Xiao, however, couldn't wait to start talking and moved closer to him again. Senior, let me tell you, you missed out on so much by not coming today. She turned to the side, her eyes sparkling, her cheeks flushed with excitement. At the weekly meeting this morning, the manager. She vividly imitated the manager's appearance, with his pregnant belly and spittle flying as he gave a lecture. Those little expressions were so vivid, they were quite cute and lively. But Feng Qi has just escaped danger. I really don't have much of an interest in appreciating it. Ah, then what? He followed up on Lin Xiao's question, but his ears were constantly listening to the kitchen. The kitchen echoed with the clinking of cups and saucers, the sound of running water, and the soft click of a cabinet door opening. Everything is still quite normal. Then Sister Li retorted. Lin Xiao gestured excitedly, the thin chain on her wrist swaying. She just stood up. She recounted the funny things that happened in the office that day without restraint, laughing so hard she was doubled over. He almost fell over onto Feng Qi several times. Feng Qi dodged to the side with the absolute limit every time. Then, with a forced laugh, he echoed, Impressive, impressive. And there's more. Lin Xiao opened up completely, talking non-stop about the company's gossip. The clinking of teacups in the kitchen got a little too loud, and I started to get a little annoyed again. Oh, right, senior. Lin Xiao suddenly moved even closer, her warm breath almost touching Feng Qi's ear. Feng Qi shrank his neck and instinctively leaned back. But Lin Xiao moved even closer, almost lying on top of him. Her voice was low, tinged with the joy of sharing a secret. I heard that the new intern in the administration department seems to have a crush on you, senior. Feng Qi. She continued to breathe into his ear, her tone gossipy and slightly probing. Didn't you fix her printer that day? She even asked around about you afterward, asking if you were single, what kind of girl you liked, and stuff like that. Feng Qi. No child. Is there some unexpected surprise waiting for him? He glanced shakily at the kitchen door. Although Lin Xiao spoke softly, even deliberately lowering her voice. But how sensitive is Li Guang's hearing? Not to mention that at this moment, her attention is absolutely 100% focused on what's happening here. The kitchen fell silent. There was no sound at all. The sounds of bumping and colliding with a hint of temper were gone, as was the sound of flowing water. It's eerily quiet. Feng Qi was also drenched in sweat. Hey, Xiao, what nonsense are you spouting? His face instantly hardened, and his voice unconsciously rose. She was just asking politely. Don't spread rumors? It would be so embarrassing for the young lady to hear. Oops. Lin Xiao stuck out her tongue, looking playful, with a hint of satisfaction that the senior isn't interested in other women. I was just saying, I didn't go around telling everyone. She immediately changed the subject and enthusiastically started talking about other gossip. Feng Qi felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. The kitchen had been quiet for quite a while. There was no sound at all. This is really not right. Given Li Guang's usual efficient work pace, those 2 cups of tea should have been brewed long ago. My dear wife, Li Guang, come out here quickly. How can I operate this if you don't come out? Don't let yourself turn evil while you're in there. Just as Lin Xiao was holding up the paper bag in her hand, saying how delicious the snacks were, the kitchen door was finally gently pushed open. A silver-haired girl came out carrying a wooden tray. Her gait was light and graceful, her silver hair swayed gently over her shoulders, and her smile was gentle and kind. Lin Xiao, with her back to the kitchen, didn't notice Li Guang coming out and was still enthusiastically describing. And also, senior, yesterday afternoon. Feng Qi absent-mindedly responded with really, while keeping his eyes glued to Li Guang out of the corner of his eye. The silver-haired girl walked to the coffee table, slightly bent her knees, and gently placed Feng Qi's cup of tea down. The movements are gentle. Then, she turned to Lin Xiao. She picked up another cup of pale yellow floral tea from the tray. Then, bang! The bottom of the cup collided solidly with the tabletop. So, senior, Lin Xiao, who was speaking animatedly, was so startled that she shrank back and stopped talking abruptly. The tea in the cup sloshed violently, splashing out from the rim and onto the coffee table. Feng Qi, Li Guang had already straightened up, folded her hands back in front of her, and wore a flawless, docile smile. She lowered her gaze, a strand of silver hair falling gently down, obscuring her crimson eye. Miss Lin, please have some tea. Feng Qi's eye twitched involuntarily. The silver-haired girl before me still had her amber eyes lowered meekly, but her crimson pupils, hidden beneath her silver hair. His phoenix eyes, which were curved inwards and upturned outwards, were already half closed. The data stream was erratic, and the gaze was fixed intently on Lin Xiao's neck. She no longer concealed her murderous intent towards Lin Xiao at all. The tips of her slender fingers were also flashing red light frequently. The air even carried a faint, scorching smell of an electrical circuit about to overload. Feng Qi's heart was in his throat. It's really going to explode. This crazy woman is about to turn evil. However, he could understand. Listen to what Lin Xiao just said. The office anecdotes that only the 2 of them know. Gossip and banter among colleagues. Even, there are rumors that other young girls are interested in him, and all of these are worlds that Li Guang is completely unfamiliar with. Every sentence, every word. They're all dancing wildly on that nerve called possession in Li Guang. Not to mention, this little Yandera was just in the kitchen, listening to her love rival and master chatting intimately outside, while she herself. But you have to act like a servant, silently preparing tea and serving the other person? Feng Qi believes that the reason she has been able to endure this long is because the lingering effect of the previous punishment of kneeling and the secret joy she felt are still there, so she hasn't completely gone too far yet. But, it's quite obvious. The crazy woman's patience is almost at its limit. If she's provoked any further, she'll turn into a villain right there and then. Feng Qi stiffly turned his head to look at Lin Xiao beside him. Lin Xiao's face was full of confusion as she blinked her round eyes. How could Li Guang? She glanced at the tea still swirling slightly in the teacup, then at the gentle, smiling Li Guang beside her. She seemed a little confused. How could this perfect AI companion suddenly fail? Feng Qi, what do you think is wrong with her? This crazy girl has absolutely no idea that she's in mortal danger. He must act immediately. Now, it's my turn to perform. He took a deep breath, and then, suddenly, he stretched out his hand and flicked it upwards. Snap. A sudden, soft sound rang out clearly in the quiet living room. His raised hand landed precisely on those pert buttocks, wrapped in a light blue skirt. The sound was crisp and clear, as if it echoed. The air in the living room seemed to freeze instantly. The silver-haired girl trembled the moment the photo was taken. Then his phoenix eyes, which had been half-closed, suddenly snapped open, and his body instantly stiffened like a statue. His amber eyes instantly became moist, and the data in his crimson pupils froze. She stiffly turned her head to look at Feng Qi, her expression blank, her red lips slightly parted, as if she hadn't reacted at all. Lin Xiao's reaction, however, was much more direct. Her round, almond-shaped eyes widened instantly, and the puff pastry bag in her hand almost slipped off. Her little face was filled with shock, as if to say, what did I just see, and is this something I can watch for free? Senior, you just now. Feng Qi's attention was entirely focused on Li Guang. Seeing Li Guang's momentary bewilderment, he felt a slight sense of relief. Okay, very good. Everything was expected. He tried his best to put on a helpless, resentful expression. Li Guang, why are you being so clumsy? His voice was soft, his tone indulgent and pampering. Look at you, you've scared the guests. Li Guang stared blankly, her mouth agape, the madness and killing intent in her eyes vanishing instantly. Her red lips trembled slightly, her voice trembling, and she stammered, Master, I. Feng Qi narrowed his eyes slightly. Strike while the iron is hot? Before she can react, tease this little Yandera until she's completely bewildered? His hand slid upwards, gently caressing her cheek, and then, He gently pinched that delicate, smooth cheek. Go, Feng Qi said casually, go get Miss Lin another cup. Be careful not to make any more noise. His fingertips even lingered on her cheek for a moment before leaving. Li Guang stared at him blankly, motionless. Lin Xiao also had a stunned expression, with a hint of disappointment. The entire living room fell silent. Then, after a crash of about 5 seconds, Li Guang's exquisitely beautiful face, at a speed visible to the naked eye, it swelled from crimson to a fully ripe tomato. With a hiss, a wisp of white steam rose from above. His amber left eye darted and went out of focus, while the data stream within his crimson pupil began to spin in circles. Her lips curled up uncontrollably, revealing a slightly dizzy, silly smile. Yes, 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 master. Her voice was distorted, even a little cracked, and there was also a faint electrical noise mixed in. As if drunk, his steps became unsteady and he began to stagger. Her eyes were still swirling with confusion. She hurriedly tidied the table and picked up the spilled cup of floral tea. Then, like the wind, he turned and rushed back to the kitchen. The door slammed shut. The kitchen was filled with the clattering of porcelain, followed by a soft whoosh, a suppressed moan of excitement. The living room fell silent again. Call. Feng Qi let out a trembling breath and wiped away a cold sweat. Narrowly escaped? That was an incredibly close maneuver. Luckily, he kept the timing right, otherwise there would have been a real flying head incident in the room. Senpai. A slightly stuttering voice came from beside me. Feng Qi turned his head and saw Lin Xiao's wide-open almond-shaped eyes. The little girl's mouth was agape in disbelief. She looked at the kitchen, then at Feng Qi, her face clearly saying, "Did I just see things?" Senior. Lin Xiao lowered her voice, leaned forward, and her eyes shone with disbelief and excitement. Did you spank Li Guang's butt? Feng Qi forced a calm expression and coughed lightly. I guess so. What's wrong? He even pinched her cheeks. Lin Xiao's eyes widened even more. Then Rika, oh my god? She blushed. So obviously red. And, was there even smoke coming from her head? I saw it. Feng Qi's brow twitched. It's here? Yes? That's so right, my great teammate. Keep going. Don't stop. Lin Xiao's voice rose slightly with excitement. Is this really AI? The reaction is so realistic. It's exactly like a real girl being teased by someone she likes. Shy, happy, flustered. My goodness, the simulation is too good. She was so excited that she started gesturing wildly. Feng Qi was overjoyed. Goal achieved? Li Guang definitely heard it. It's safe? He maintained a nonchalant demeanor, shrugging and saying, it's a top-tier custom-made model, so it's normal for the emotional simulation to be more nuanced. Don't make a fuss. This is hardly a little more refined. Lin Xiao's initial slight disappointment was completely replaced by curiosity, and her eyes lit up. The mass-produced demo units I've seen at tech expos before all had such programmed responses, they were so boring. But this one from Li Guang, this whole series of reactions is just too natural. As she spoke, she couldn't help but turn her head to look towards the kitchen again. The kitchen door was gently pushed open again. Li Guang came out carrying a new teacup. The blush on her face hadn't completely faded, and a cloyingly sweet smile still lingered on her lips. Her steps were light and cheerful. Feng Qi looked at it, and a slight sense of pride rose in his heart. Looks like my skills in controlling yanderis haven't deteriorated yet. I've already achieved today's goal so quickly. Lin Xiao looked the silver-haired girl up and down, exclaiming in amazement, my god, so amazing? It really seems to have self-awareness. This is too intelligent. Then, touching her smooth chin, her eyes shining, she murmured to herself, Senior, could it be that Yoriko has truly awakened self-awareness? The living room fell silent instantly. Feng Qi, he had been relaxed, even wearing a smug smile, but slowly froze. Lin Xiao just. Did I say something I shouldn't have? She seemed to have just said something like. Feng Qi's head went blank for a moment. Sumigakai, shut up. Lin Xiao, you're my ancestor? Shut up. He was terrified, trembling, and glanced at Li Guang out of the corner of his eye. Completion. It's going to explode. This is seriously going to explode? He watched helplessly as the silver-haired girl's previously soft and slender body suddenly froze. The satisfied, almost silly smile on her pretty face froze instantly at the corner of her mouth. The gentle glint in her amber eyes froze, and the steady flow of data in her crimson eyes also suddenly stopped. It was as if time had stopped flowing. Feng Qi felt a chill run down his spine, and his mind was buzzing. It's over. It's really over now. That crazy woman can't stand the word awakening. This is a complete disaster. His throat was dry, and his lips trembled as he tried to say something quickly. Anything is fine. Distract others, change the subject, or even faint and pretend to be dead on the spot. We need to at least nip this conversation in the bud. There might still be hope. Hurry. Stop being so rigid. Get moving. Say something. That. He forced out 2 words with difficulty, but suddenly realized. The frozen silver-haired girl did not, as he had expected, suddenly flash her crimson eyes and turn evil. Conversely, the static data within the red eyes began to flow again with a smoother, more regular rhythm. What's going on? Feng Qi was stunned, his hand, holding the teacup, froze in midair. Under his somewhat bewildered gaze, Li Guang blinked gently. Long, thick silver eyelashes drooped down, and when they lifted again, their heterochromatic eyes regained their placid calm. They were as calm as 2 bottomless lakes. The lingering blush on her face faded rapidly, visibly restoring her flawless, fair complexion. Then she moved, taking light steps, and walked to the coffee table. She slightly bent her knees and steadily placed a cup of steaming flower tea on the coffee table in front of Lin Xiao. "Miss Lin, please have some tea." Her voice was gentle and soft, with a steady tone and no inflection. Having said that, she gracefully took half a step back, and then lay down on the soft carpet at Fang Qi's feet. She knelt down quietly and gracefully. His hands were neatly folded on his knees, his back was straight, and the little star on his left earlobe hung there quietly without moving. Her eyes were slightly lowered, and a perfectly compliant smile played on her lips. The person, completely transformed into the perfect, standby AI companion. It was as if the blushing, staggering girl from just moments ago had never existed. The living room was silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. Fang Qi's heart was still pounding in his ears. He held his teacup, staring blankly at the silver-haired girl kneeling quietly at his feet. "That's it? Is everything all right? So easy, you got away with it?" My heartbeat gradually calmed down. "Oh, it seems, everything's really all right." Fang Qi took a deep breath and slowly exhaled, his mind clearing up slightly. "Hiss. That seems to make sense," he overreacted. "Li Guang will turn evil because he discovers her secret. That's because the one who discovered the secret was him, Fang Qi, her master, the only person she cared about and deeply loved. Her fear, her descent into darkness, all her extreme reactions. The root of the problem lies in the fear of being abandoned or destroyed by the owner. As for what others think or say, whether it's Lin Xiao or just some random passerby, Li Guang doesn't care at all." In her eyes, these people were probably no different from the stones on the roadside or the potted plants on the windowsill. The only difference is that some stones covet her owner, and those fall into the category of needing to be disposed of. But did Stone doubt that she had awakened? She didn't care at all. As long as it doesn't affect the owner's attitude towards her, that's fine. Fang Qi wiped the sweat from his forehead. If he had said that, he would have been in deep trouble. He'd be 100% corrupted. He'd instantly turn into a doll, a pillow, or something else. Thankfully, it was Lin Xiao, that stone, who said it. Fang Qi's gaze swept over Li Guang's flawless profile. She has that dreaded prenatal checkup tonight, and that crazy woman is incredibly shrewd. Lin Xiao's unintentional reminder made her realize that she had been showing her emotions a bit too much. So she made a quick decision, forcibly suppressing all her outward emotions and transforming herself back into the perfect AI companion. This was not only a response to Lin Xiao's test, but also a rehearsal and preparation for the inspection that evening. Having figured all this out, his hand holding the teacup became completely steady. I took a small sip of the warm digestive tea, calming my pounding heart. Could this be considered a blessing in disguise? Ironically, this incident helped Li Guang get into battle preparation mode ahead of schedule. That's FG. This process was so exciting. That's too short-lived. I was so scared I almost had a heart attack. He looked down at the silver-haired girl kneeling quietly at his feet. Li Guang remained in that position, completely still. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting a pale golden halo on the top of her silver hair, while her eyelashes cast delicate shadows on her fair cheeks. This scene is just too beautiful. That crazy woman, she's quite the actress. They've really concealed it completely. Fang Qi's heartbeat gradually calmed down. It seems that today's dramatic scene of dancing in a sea of vinegar was ultimately a success. The objective was achieved, and the crisis was averted. Good. However, he hadn't completely breathed a sigh of relief yet. That's strange. A muttered sound of deep confusion came from the side. Lin Xiao blinked her almond-shaped eyes, tilted her head, and carefully examined Li Guang, who was kneeling on the ground. Her delicate eyebrows furrowed slightly, and her small mouth pouted gently, giving her a "I don't understand" expression. Lin Xiao stared at Li Guang for several seconds, then unconsciously leaned towards Fang Qi, looking somewhat bewildered. "Senior, why did Rico suddenly revert to that standard AI feel again?" She pointed to the kneeling silver-haired girl, her tone full of confusion. Just a moment ago she was blushing and shy, her reactions were so real and vivid. How come she suddenly seems to have had her reset, completely expressionless? Her gaze fell on Li Guang's lowered eyelids, and she exclaimed in surprise. Even her eyes are so calm, completely different from before. The switch was so fast. It's like two different people. Good question, my great teammate. This is a perfect opportunity for me to prove myself. Cough. So this is the disadvantage of AI. Fang Qi tried his best to make his voice sound casual. At the same time, he reached out and very naturally ruffled her smooth, silver hair. "Honey, stay calm." While rubbing Li Guang's head, he continued in a tone of complaining about the product. Although the current top-tier custom models have achieved very sophisticated emotional simulation, capable of mimicking many instantaneous reactions, but... He paused, then glanced at Li Guang. Li Guang remained kneeling quietly. She didn't cling to him as usual, nor did she look up at him with her wet eyes. She simply lowered her head slightly, allowing his hand to cover the top of her head more completely. Fang Qi calmed himself down a bit and continued. But ultimately, it's still program logic. Many emotional reactions are instantaneous and can't have the continuity of a real person's emotions, you know, the lingering aftertaste of an emotion. He racked his brains, concocting seemingly professional-sounding terms. Perhaps, a moment ago, a certain interaction triggered shyness, leading to very lively behavior. But once the module finishes running, the emotions immediately subside. He shrugged, making a "there's nothing I can do, it's a technological limitation" expression. So it might look a bit abrupt. Just like before, suddenly blushing and then suddenly returning to calm, that's perfectly normal. He breathed a sigh of relief after saying that. This explanation is perfect. This not only explained Li Guang's unusual reaction earlier, but also indirectly told her, "Honey, I didn't notice? I'm still explaining to you?" Seeing Lin Xiao's expression of sudden realization, he picked up his teacup and took a sip to calm his nerves. Now that the main objective has been achieved, the most important task next is, we need to get rid of Lin Xiao, this bomb, as soon as possible. We can't let her stay here any longer. That's too dangerous. It's too uncontrollable. He felt like he would lose 10 years of his life if she stayed for even one more second. However, just as he brought the teacup to his lips again, suddenly, the crazy girl next to me flashed a bright smile with a hint of smugness. She exclaimed with a bright, cheerful smile, "Senior, look, I knew it." Feng Qi's hand trembled, and he almost spilled the tea again. Lin Xiao puffed out her youthful, vibrant chest and concluded in a declarative manner. AI is indeed inferior to human beings. A confident glint shone in her round, almond-shaped eyes. "Senior, you'd better wake up." Feng Qi, is this crazy girl never going to stop? His face maintained a stiff smile, his gaze involuntarily drifting towards the glass light at his feet. She remained kneeling quietly, her back straight, her posture impeccable. His red eyes didn't flicker at all, and the smile on his lips remained as gentle as ever. She even subtly moved closer to Feng Qi's legs, kneeling even more intimately. "Looks like you're in a good mood?" Because he made intimate and possessive gestures towards her in front of his love rival? So, she was secretly pleased with herself and didn't want to stoop to Lin Xiao's level at all. She just wanted to quietly savor the moment. Okay, keep having fun." Feng Qi was relieved and shakily brought the teacup to his lips again. "Okay, although the process was thrilling, the result is good, that's all that matters." "Senior." A sickeningly sweet call carried a clear hint of displeasure. Lin Xiao was immediately displeased when Feng Qi ignored her. She pouted, a hint of defiance flashing in her round eyes, and like a nimble kitten, she suddenly twisted her body. Feng Qi didn't even have time to react. 2 arms, still warm from the girl's body, wrapped around his neck once again without a word. Holy shit! His body froze instantly. Lin Xiao tilted her head up so close that he could see the fine downy hairs on her face and the bold, defiant look in her round eyes. "Senior, look." She even deliberately turned her body slightly to the side, letting her shapely figure, encased in the pale yellow dress, sway lightly in front of Feng Qi's eyes. Then, in an innocent and soft tone, she said, "I'm a real person too. Mine." She paused, a faint blush rising to her cheeks, but her gaze became bolder as she stared directly at Feng Qi. "It's also very bouncy." Instead of using glass-like polish, she blinked, her long eyelashes like little fans. "Why don't you try hitting me?" Pfft. Feng Qi spat out his entire mouthful of tea. Lin Xiao. Pfft dash. He spat out a mouthful of tea, spraying it all over Lin Xiao's shoulder. "Oh dear, senior." Lin Xiao was startled by the spray and jumped back half a step after letting go. Her little face scrunched up in a frown as she frantically patted the shoulder of her dress, which was slightly damp. "What are you doing?" Feng Qi coughed so violently that it shook the heavens and earth, and his face turned bright red. Li Guang was still kneeling there. Her silver hair fell smoothly over her shoulders, and her hands remained neatly folded on her knees. She tilted her head slightly, quietly watching Feng Qi cough. The data flow in her crimson eyes was frighteningly steady, and the corners of her mouth even maintained that gentle curve. She didn't move. Feng Qi's heart rate was rising, and his mind was racing. No, it's abnormal if it doesn't move. If he were coughing this badly, she should have stood up to soothe him and give him some water long ago, and that familiar little gesture started again. Her slender fingertips were gently digging into the back of her other hand with tiny movements. One stroke, then another, leaving faint red marks on the back of her fair hand. Although the gaze was calm and gentle, it was a silent, cold, focused stare meeting his own. A chilling calm. Feng Qi's heart stopped. He understood. It's not that Li Guang doesn't care. She was waiting for his reaction. How will he, as the master, deal with this audacious love rival who has repeatedly tried to take advantage of him? If he shows even the slightest wavering, hesitation, or even just fails to immediately draw a clear line, what will happen next is self-evident. Cough, cough, cough. He forced back his cough, his chest still ached, but his mind was clear. Don't panic. Especially in times like these, it's crucial to stay calm. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the flush on his face, and then, he put on a stern face. He reached out and grabbed Lin Xiao's shoulder, which was still trying to lean closer. "Push harder?" He pushed her away without saying a word. "Xiaoyu," his voice was deliberately low and serious, brooking no argument, "stop fooling around." Lin Xiao was pushed away, and the smile on Xiaowen's face froze. She blinked her round eyes, a little confused and a little aggrieved. "Senior. I already said." Feng Qi interrupted her, his tone becoming more forceful, his gaze fixed directly on her. "My current partner is Li Guang." He turned to the side and gently put his arm around Li Guang's shoulder, who was kneeling beside him. The movements were light, yet resolute. Then he turned back to look at Lin Xiao and said, word by word. So please, don't do this kind of thing in front of Li Guang again. This is inappropriate. After he finished speaking, the living room became so quiet that you could hear the ticking of the second hand. Lin Xiao's expression froze completely. Her almond-shaped eyes slowly widened, a thin mist quickly welling up inside, followed by a deep sense of grievance. My eyes started to redden at a visible speed. Her small mouth was tightly pursed, the corners of her mouth began to turn downwards, and her fair cheeks quickly puffed up. Senior, you. Her voice trembled slightly, her fingers gripping the hem of her skirt tightly. You were mean to me. Fang Qi's lips twitched. Crazy girl, I'm saving you? Otherwise you won't even be able to make a joke anymore? Just kidding, there has to be an end to this. I'm not yelling at you. He tried to soften his tone, but remained firm. I'm trying to reason with you. Li Guang is here. She is my partner. You should respect her, and respect our relationship. Lin Xiao bit her lower lip tightly, her eyes growing increasingly red. She glared at Fang Qi, then quickly glanced at the silver-haired girl kneeling quietly beside her, her expression docile, as if it were none of her business. His chest heaved violently twice. Well. She suddenly stamped her foot, her voice trembling with tears. Then I'll leave? I'll leave, okay. With that, she turned around abruptly, grabbed her small bag from the sofa, and rushed towards the door without looking back. His footsteps pounded loudly, making a creaking sound on the floor. But when she reached the entrance, her hand on the doorknob stopped. I didn't twist it, and I didn't pull it. He just stood there, his back to the living room, motionless. Her small shoulders shrugged slightly, her ponytail hanging down behind her head, completely still. Fang Qi. He knows this great teammate so well. They don't really mean to leave, do they? This is clearly. Come and try to stop me? Say something nice? Otherwise, I'm really leaving. A standard haughty pause. But he had absolutely no intention of trying to keep him. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. My ancestors, my great-aunt, please leave now. I wish you would disappear right now. So not only did he not move, he even slowly picked up his teacup and took another sip. Then, in an exceptionally gentle and considerate tone, she said, take care on the road, Xiao. Thank you for coming with me today. See you at the company tomorrow. His tone was so sincere and natural, it felt like we were just saying goodbye to an ordinary colleague we'd just finished chatting with. Lin Xiao's back froze completely. A few seconds later, she suddenly turned around. Her little face was already flushed with anger, her eyes were still red, but no tears fell. Her almond-shaped eyes were wide open, glaring fiercely at Fang Qi. Fang Qi, you're a block of wood. A super block of wood. A rotten block of wood. She stumped her feet in anger. Her pale yellow skirt swayed with her movements. I'll never talk to you again? Humph. After saying that, she made a big face at Fang Qi, sticking out his tongue, wrinkling his nose. He has absolutely no sense of decorum. Then, with a click, he opened the door and rushed out without looking back. Bang. She slammed the door shut. Has the living room become completely quiet? Once again, only the ticking of the second hand remained. Fang Qi sat on the sofa, his body slightly stiff. He looked at the closed door, still trembling slightly, and took a deep breath. Then, it spewed out a long, forceful expulsion. Who dash? Stimulate? He slumped into the sofa, still shaken. Finally, that crazy girl is gone. She's practically a top-tier Yandere trigger. Fortunately, he managed to stay calm at the last moment. Not only did they draw a clear line, but they also angered Lin Xiao away. Is this a perfect ending? He glanced at the silver-haired girl kneeling on the ground. She remained motionless. Her silver hair was smooth, her skirt spread out, and she knelt quietly with her hands clasped together. Phew, so next, it's time to comfort this person. Buzz. My phone suddenly vibrated in my pocket. Fang Qi's heart skipped a beat. He took it out and saw a message from Lin Xiao on the screen. Senior, I'm sorry, I was just saying that in anger. Please don't be angry. Crying cat emoji.jpg. Fang Qi. No, you're admitting your mistake way too quickly. Before he could reply, a second message popped up. But, I won't give up. Clenched fist.jpg. I'm going to show my senior that real-life romance is the best. Fang Qi's lips twitched. Are you coming again? He took a deep breath, his fingers rapidly tapping on the screen, and replied in a serious tone. Xiao, I'll say it again, Li Guang is my partner. If you come again and still can't respect her, and do what you just did, then you don't need to come anymore. After sending the message, Fang Qi tossed his phone aside and rubbed his temples. Then he looked at the silver-haired girl kneeling at his feet. Li Guang remained kneeling in place, but her entire demeanor had completely softened and relaxed. A faint hint of joy and satisfaction had already appeared in his eyes. It's like a house cat that watched its owner chase away the annoying stray cat, and is now comfortably lying at its owner's feet with its eyes half closed. A satisfied gurgling sound came from its throat. It's obvious. She's having the time of her life right now. It seems he did a good job. However, the phone immediately started vibrating again. He glanced at it. Lin Xiao's messages came in like a barrage of bullets. I'm so sorry, so sorry, so sorry. Senior, I was wrong. Kowtow's in apology.jpg. I'll never do it again. I promise I'll behave from now on. I'll never misbehave in front of Sister Li Guang again. I swear. Swearing to God.jpg. Fang Qi nodded in satisfaction. He showed a good attitude in admitting his mistake. Good. This is also a good opportunity to let Li Guang see, and make this little Yandere even happier. But immediately, another message popped up. From now on, I will definitely treat Sister Li Guang as my first wife with the utmost respect. I'll just be your second wife? Raise his hand obediently. JPG. Feng Qi. His vision went black. What's going on in that crazy girl's head? Why do you keep spouting such outrageous things all day long? Feng Qi's fingers were trembling as he gripped his phone. Owner. At that moment, a gentle voice came from below. His heart skipped a beat, and he stiffened as he looked down at her. The silver-haired girl was looking up at him. The data stream within her crimson eyes danced and leaped, while the little star earring swayed slightly. Her tone carried just the right amount of concern. Master, Miss Lin has left. Are you alright? Is there anything Li Guang needs to prepare for you? She doesn't seem angry? Seems like you're in a pretty good mood? Feng Qi looked at her with that I don't know anything, but I'm happy expression. I relaxed slightly. It seems that Lin Xiao's shocking remark didn't anger her. Instead, she took it as a sign of admission of defeat. Did you make her even happier? Call. It's really hard to guess what a Yandere's mindset is like. I'm fine. He waved his hand, deliberately speaking in a lazy tone. I'm just a little hungry. I've been busy all morning, just drinking tea. Li Guang understands? The silver-haired girl nodded gently, the corners of her mouth curving upwards slightly. She rose gracefully, smoothing her skirt, then bowed slightly to Feng Qi. Please wait a moment, master. Li Guang will go prepare lunch. After saying that, she obediently turned around and walked towards the kitchen with measured steps. Its walking posture no longer had that light and agile feel, it was as if it had truly become an ordinary AI companion. It's obvious, she's rehearsing for tonight's checkup. Feng Qi leaned back on the sofa, watching her figure disappear behind the kitchen door, and couldn't help but smile. That crazy woman has finally come to her senses? It seems the plan was a success. Using Lin Xiao's reminder to Li Guang, success. Get intimate with the Yandere and make her happy, success. The attempt to persuade Lin Xiao to leave failed. But, it doesn't matter. As long as the main task is accomplished, that's fine. However, the crisis is not over yet. He sank into the soft sofa, his mind racing. Lin Xiao, that bomb, has been temporarily dealt with, and Li Guang is now in excellent spirits and in stable condition. So next, we'll face an even bigger problem tonight. Onlian, that beauty consultant with long legs, a slim waist, and a cool, aloof demeanor. As per the previous procedure, Onlian would arrive promptly at 6 p.m. Recalling the last time, Anlian made him make intimate moves with Li Guang in front of her, and even wanted to. At that moment, Rico was so embarrassed that her hair was practically steaming, and she almost overloaded on the spot. Finally, Anlian outwardly announced past, but then immediately sent a text message saying that Li Guang showed signs of awakening and that she would send people to violently reclaim her. Clearly, Li Guang failed to hide anything last time. She might have been discovered from the very beginning. That text message. Mr. Fang, your AI companion Li Guang is showing extremely obvious signs of awakening. Its core emotional data is abnormally active, far exceeding the safety threshold. It's very clear that during that inspection, Li Guang was completely exposed. The culprit. Although I'm a little reluctant to admit it, it's true, he's the culprit. The biggest negative factor in the evening's inspection was him. In this playthrough, Li Guang has already entered battle preparation mode, behaving more restrained and AI-like than before. Perhaps she can hold back, but he dared not gamble. He couldn't let Li Guang face those tests that required his cooperation and intimate interaction any longer, so he has to avoid it. He can't be there tonight. As long as he's not around, Li Guang's emotions are much more stable, especially given her current preparedness. The inspection will most likely pass. Feng Qi squinted and continued to ponder, but he needed a plausible excuse. This excuse must be convincing enough that Li Guang cannot object, and that Anlian cannot force him to stay. What excuse should I use? That's right. His eyes lit up. The old method? He took the day off to stay home with Li Guang, so tonight. I took the day off, but I didn't finish my work, so I have to go back to the office to work overtime tonight. This is perfectly normal. Oh dear, there's so much work, I'm almost overwhelmed. I rested today and I'm not tired. I think I'll work overtime tonight, otherwise I'll be in trouble tomorrow. It's perfectly reasonable. Onlian couldn't possibly let its clients neglect their regular work for a maintenance service, could it? Perfect. The more he thought about it, the more feasible the plan seemed. Not only could it avoid Anlian's test, but it might also give Li Guang a sense of tension from handling the inspection alone, making her more cautious and perform better. Kill two birds with one stone. Lunch consisted of braised pork ribs, stir-fried seasonal vegetables, and a bowl of fragrant mushroom soup. Similar to the previous 2 times, but with the addition of steamed sea base, Li Guang's slightly excited expression was different this time. Li Guang sat quietly opposite, eating in small bites, making almost no sound. Occasionally, she would glance at Feng Qi, her heterochromatic eyes filled with proper concern, lacking the previous clingy, sweet gaze that seemed to want to wrap him in honey. Feng Qi took a deep breath and said, Li Guang, I have to go out tonight. Li Guang paused slightly as she was serving him soup. She looked up, a fleeting glint of emotion flashing across her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by meekness. Where are you going tonight, master? Overtime, Feng Qi said matter-of-factly, even with a hint of the helplessness of a corporate slave. I took the day off today, but there's still work piling up. I have to catch up on it tonight. I'll probably be busy until quite late. Li Guang's knuckles, gripping the spoon, turned slightly white. Clearly, she was somewhat unhappy that her master was leaving her alone at home and having an outsider test her. Feng Qi quickly added, if I don't work overtime tonight, the whole team's work will be affected tomorrow. Then I might have to work overtime tomorrow night and come home very late. He's setting a trap. Given Li Guang's thought process, since she couldn't possibly spend some alone time with him tonight anyway, she might as well let him go to work overtime. It also gives us some alone time together tomorrow night. Sure enough, the data stream in the silver-haired girl's crimson eyes paused slightly. Then, that slight emotional fluctuation vanished instantly. Master is right. She nodded slightly, her voice gentle. Delays in work progress can trigger a chain reaction, affecting the scheduling of subsequent projects and leading to a drop in the employer's performance evaluation score. As she spoke, she stretched out her finger and pointed it in the air a few times. First, the owner has accumulated a large number of documents awaiting processing today. Secondly, the materials for tomorrow's scheduled meeting also need to be prepared in advance. Third, the silver-haired girl attentively explained to her owner the effects and disadvantages of accumulated work. It's even trying its best to act like a normal AI companion, and even its speech has an AI-like quality. Feng Qi couldn't help but chuckle. This crazy woman is suddenly acting like a virtuous wife thinking of her master's business? Clearly, in her little head, the idea that the owner will be home tomorrow night won by a landslide. So, the silver-haired girl concluded her speech, and even nodded solemnly. Master should work overtime tonight. That's the most reasonable choice. After she finished speaking, she raised her eyes, her gentle heterochromatic pupils gazing at Feng Qi, as if awaiting her master's reward. Look how sensible Li Guang is, and how considerate she is of her master. Feng Qi almost burst out laughing, but quickly picked up his teacup, took a sip, and suppressed the smile on his lips. Yes, Li Guang is right. He nodded, feigning seriousness. Then, I'll do as you say and go to the company tonight. Objective achieved? Upon hearing this, Li Guang's lips curled up slightly. He quickly composed himself, reverting to his standard docile demeanor, and nodded slightly. Rico will prepare dinner bento boxes in advance, which master will bring to the company to eat. The afternoon passed quickly. Feng Qi lazily sprawled on the sofa watching TV, while Li Guang quietly leaned against him. She was no longer as clingy as before, nor did she stare at him with those wet, drooling eyes. She just sat there properly. Stand with your back straight, hands on your knees, and eyes on the television screen. However, her slender body always unconsciously, little by little, leaned towards him, until her arm gently touched his. The cool touch of the bionic skin came through the thin fabric. Feng Qi glanced at her. Li Guang remained focused on the television, her profile soft and her silver eyelashes fluttering gently. It was as if they were completely unaware that they had quietly made it through. Only the small plastic star on her earlobe swayed slightly. Feng Qi chuckled inwardly, but didn't expose her, letting her lean against him like that. The sky outside the window gradually darkened. When the hands of the wall clock pointed to 5:50, Li Guang moved slightly. Owner. Her voice was steady, but the AI-like quality was even more pronounced. Commissioner Onlian is expected to arrive at 6 o'clock. Li Guang suggests you prepare your departure in advance to avoid rushing out after meeting the commissioner, which would appear inappropriate. Feng Qi. Okay. That crazy woman is now secretly trying to get rid of him. But, just what I wanted? Okay. He stretched and got up from the sofa. Li Guang also stood up and helped him get his coat and briefcase. The bento box is in the kitchen warmer. It contains the owner's favorite teriyaki chicken rice and vegetable salad. As she straightened his shirt collar, she whispered instructions. Use the owner's company microwave, set the heating time to 2 minutes and 30 seconds, for the best taste. Very good. This little Yandera's condition today is really reassuring. AI at a glance. Ding dong. The doorbell rang precisely at 6 o'clock, crisp and clear, without a minute's delay. The silver-haired girl had already walked lightly to the entrance, a standard smile on her face. The door opened. Those long, straight legs, encased in a dark gray uniform skirt, came into view once again. Lian stood tall and aloof outside the door, her black hair neatly tied back, revealing her beautifully shaped neck and her delicate, expressionless face. His light gray eyes were calm and still, and he carried that familiar silver briefcase in his hand. Good evening, Mr. Feng. She nodded slightly, her voice as calm as ever. Good evening, Commissionerin. Please come in. Feng Qi quickly stepped aside. Lian stepped into the house, her gray eyes sweeping over the briefcase and coat in his hand, her eyebrows twitching slightly. Mr. Feng, are you going out? Feng Qi immediately sighed, revealing a helpless expression typical of a corporate slave. Sigh, I took the day off, and I have a ton of work piled up. I have to go to the office tonight to work overtime and catch up, otherwise, I'll be in big trouble tomorrow. Li Guang stood obediently to the side, her hands folded in front of her, her eyes slightly lowered. She had an obedient look on her face, as if to say, Master is always right, and I fully support you. Very good. The little Yandere did a really good job today, and Lian's brows furrowed slightly. Mr. Fang, tonight's treatment includes a deep emotional core test, and your presence is required. Her voice remained steady, but carried the disapproval characteristic of a professional. This relates to the long-term stability assessment of Rico. Could you please coordinate your schedule and postpone working overtime? This is really impossible to coordinate. Fang Qi's expression grew even more troubled, and his tone became sincere. The project deadline is approaching. If I don't go tonight, the whole team might be affected tomorrow. I'm so sorry, Mizan. He then turned to Li Guang, his tone becoming more serious. Li Guang, you must cooperate fully with Commissioner N's inspection, do you hear me? Do what you're supposed to do, and don't cause any trouble for Commissioner N. Li Guang immediately bowed slightly, her voice gentle. Yes, Master. Li Guang understood and would fully cooperate with Commissioner N to complete all inspection items. And Lian watched the master and servant pair working together, her light gray eyes sweeping back and forth between Fang Qi and Li Guang. She was silent for a few seconds, then finally sighed softly. I understand your work requirements, Mr. Fang. Her voice remained cold and clear. However, as a maintenance specialist, I must remind you that the owner's absence may affect the accuracy of some tests. I hope you will be present at your next maintenance appointment. Understood, understood. Fang Qi nodded repeatedly. Next time I'll definitely be present the whole time. This was a really special situation, please take extra care, Commissioner N. And Lian nodded slightly, saying nothing more, which was taken as tacit agreement. Fang Qi felt a huge weight lifted off his shoulders and quickly picked up his briefcase. Then I won't disturb your work any longer. Be a good girl, Rico. Please take your time, Master. Li Guang obediently saw him to the door. Fang Qi gave Lian an apologetic smile, opened the door, and slipped out. Bang! The door closed gently behind him, isolating him from everything inside. He walked briskly toward the elevator. It worked. We avoided that dreaded intimacy test. Now, let's see how Rico performs. With her current perfect AI state, and without him as a disruptor present, the probability of passing the inspection should be greatly increased, right? Haha, very stable. Time to work overtime. He really did go to work overtime. After all, his phone was being monitored 24/7, and his location was probably already being kept under close surveillance by that crazy woman. At this critical juncture, if he dares to do something like pretending to work overtime while actually just loitering around, it seems likely that the test will fail on the spot. Turn him into a villain, then give him a surprise remote gift? So he strolled over to the company. The futuristic-style office lobby was empty, with only a few energy-saving lights dimly glowing. Although I came here to work overtime, there wasn't any real work to do. Fine, slacking off is the true nature of a corporate slave. Hey, Xiao Fang? That's unusual, coming to work overtime so late at night. A head popped out from the next workstation. Fang Qi looked over and saw it was old Zhang, the middle-aged colleague in the department who always liked to slack off during night shifts. With his thinning hair and carrying a thermos filled with goji berries, he looked like he was just looking for a chat. Ah, brother Zhang, Fang Qi chuckled dryly. I took the day off, I'll come check in tonight. I understand. Old Zhang leaned closer and lowered his voice, but, Xiao Fang, what's going on between you and Xiao Yu? Fang Qi's eyelids twitched. You mean, Lin Xiao? What happened to her? What else is wrong? Old Zhang slapped his thigh, and the goji berries in the thermos swayed a few times. You weren't here this morning, and when that girl saw your empty seat, her eyes immediately welled up with tears. She hid in the break room and cried for almost half an hour. When she came out, her eyes were swollen like walnuts. Old Zhang shook his head helplessly, then she would tell everyone, the senior must hate me, am I being disliked? Oh my, she looked so pitiful. Fang Qi tightened his grip on the mouse. He could almost picture Lin Xiao's always energetic, round face, huddled in a corner of the break room, sobbing uncontrollably. And then what happened? His voice was a little dry. And then? Hey. Old Zhang's eyebrows danced with excitement. Didn't you text her later? Good grief, the moment her phone rang, she grabbed it, looked at it, and practically jumped right off her chair. Before she even wiped away her tears, her mouth was already stretched to her ears in a wide grin. Her eyes sparkled as she tapped on her phone for ages. Then she yelled, my senior answered me? My senior contacted me. Old Zhang's imitation was so lifelike and deeply moving, but to shamelessly imitate Lin Xiao's actions and tone, Fang Qi's lips twitched uncontrollably. No, dude, get your act together. Finally, old Zhang slapped his thigh, and then, she rushed to the supervisor like a whirlwind to ask for leave. The way she did it, tisk tisk, anyone who didn't know better would think she'd won the lottery. Fang Qi. A slight pang of sadness welled up inside me. It would be a lie to say I wasn't tempted. A vibrant, beautiful, lovely, and passionate girl cried like this because of a misunderstanding. Sigh, this is really. But the next second, images from the game's cutscene flashed through my mind. That head, meticulously arranged by the glass light. Okay, my heart is fluttering, but that ending won't do. If you're attracted to her, you should stay away from her, otherwise, we'd be harming her. Old Zhang, standing to the side, took another sip of goji berry tea and said earnestly, Xiao Fang, it's not that I'm criticizing you, but Xiaolin is such a wonderful girl. She's lively, considerate, and beautiful. She's completely devoted to you. No matter how good your AI is, it's still just a machine, a cold, impersonal program. How can it compare to a real person who understands your feelings? Take my advice, turn back while you still can. Feng Qi listened, managing a weak smile, but his heart was filled with mixed emotions. He glanced down at his cuffs. A faint, lingering scent of strawberry oil remained. A cold, impersonal program? This program has broken his legs, locked him in a cage, drugged him with a smile, and even severed his tendons? But it is precisely this process. He would be overjoyed with a cheap star keychain that he casually gave him. She would blush so hard her face would turn bright red from his accidental touch. She almost overwhelmed herself on the spot because of his joking remark about getting married. Being loved so devotedly by such a crazy woman, that's kind of exciting, isn't it? Well, I don't want to think about it anymore. If I keep thinking about it, that damn Yandere tendencies are going to surface again. Dangerous thoughts, stop. He gave Lao Zhang a vague reply, then opened a document and pretended to type. Seeing that he wasn't responding, Lao Zhang reluctantly retreated to his workstation and continued slacking off. Time slipped away little by little with the sound of typing on the keyboard. Feng Qi's thoughts, however, had already flown home. Rico is probably still undergoing testing, right? Without him present, those intimate interaction segments would probably be skipped, right? Her performance today was so AI-like, and Lian probably couldn't find anything wrong with it, right? My fingers unconsciously opened and closed the web page repeatedly, just as he refreshed his email for the nth time. Buzz. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Feng Qi jumped up. I frantically pulled it out. The screen was lit, and a new message lay quietly in the notification bar. From Onlian. My heart jumped into my throat. It's here? His fingers were trembling slightly, and after taking several deep breaths, click to open. Mr. Fang, the quarterly skincare and emotional core deep analysis for Liguang have been completed. Data analysis shows that all core parameters are within normal thresholds, and no signs of arousal or personality deviation risk were detected. Maintenance rating, pass. Feng Qi suddenly jumped up from his chair. My fist clenched, and I almost blurted out aloud yes. It passed. It's safe. Li Guang's wife is awesome. He was so excited that he spun around halfway on the spot. I can go home safely tonight. No more dealing with Yandere/darkened characters. You can even obtain the gentle light of glass. Buzz. My phone vibrated again. Or perhaps it's Onlian. However, I still have some professional concerns regarding the emotional module of the glass work. I need to have a more in-depth discussion with you, the owner. This matter may involve sensitive analysis that could cause emotional fluctuations in AI, so it's not appropriate for Liguang to be present. When would be a convenient time for you to meet privately to discuss this further? Feng Qi. The smile on his face froze instantly, staring at those few lines of text on the screen. He could almost hear the sound of his own blood slowly congealing. Professional concerns? Is it inappropriate to discuss this while Rico is present? And, a private meeting? Everything went black. He plopped back down in his chair, and Lian's words were tactful, but the meaning couldn't be clearer. Li Guang hasn't awakened, but her problem is huge, so huge that it can't even be said to her face. But the biggest problem is that this message, my crazy wife at home definitely saw it. His phone is being monitored 24/7. Feng Qi could almost see the gentle, smiling silver-haired girl in his house seeing Lian off. He was quietly watching the invitation that required a private meeting. Cold sweat instantly soaked my back. His fingers trembled, but instinct compelled him to reply immediately. Dear Mizan, thank you for letting me know. It's good that it's approved. If we're meeting in person, how about at home? With Rico there, we can listen together and discuss any points to note. Smiley face.jpg. He tried to struggle. At the very least, he had to use those words to show Li Guang his attitude. Buzz. The reply has arrived. No, Li Guang is not in a suitable state to eavesdrop. This is just the two of us. Feng Qi. Sister, I'm begging you. You're just as difficult to deal with as Lin Xiao. He tried to stall. Well, it might not be possible tonight. I'll probably be working very late. Panda wiping sweat.jpg. This matter concerns your partner's stability and safety. It's very important. If you're at the office, I can come to you now. Feng Qi. Coming to the company? This tall, elegant, and aloof woman with long legs. I went to his company late at night, to a place that even Li Guang had never set foot in. Have a private talk with him? That crazy woman would explode on the spot. No, no, no. His fingers flew across the keys, almost sparking. Thank you so much. I'm off work now. Just tell me where, and I'll be right there. The final location was a 24-hour coffee shop. And Lian's last reply, see you in an hour. Feng Qi slumped in his work chair. Outside the window, the city's neon lights shone through the glass, illuminating his pale face. Li Guang's sickeningly sweet voice seemed to be ringing in my ears. Master, went to meet with that clerk, alone, behind Li Guang's back. This time, you want to discuss how to get rid of Rico again. He clutched his head in anguish. He had no choice but to go, even if it was difficult. Not going? What if Lian is really stubborn and just shows up at his company building? The distance of 2 streets took him longer than walking to the execution ground. I lingered until I reached the coffee shop entrance, arriving just in time. He spotted Lian at a glance through the glass window. She sat in the innermost booth by the window, her posture as straight as a slender bamboo. The dark gray uniform skirt suit accentuated her slender waist and smooth shoulder line. Her beautifully shaped calves, pressed together beneath the skirt, were clad in black high heels, highlighting her delicate and slender ankles. Her long, black hair was neatly tied into a low bun, revealing her fair and graceful neck. With her eyelashes slightly lowered, she held the handle of the white porcelain cup with her slender fingers, taking small sips of coffee. The night outside the window was fading, and she looked like a silent oil painting, serene and elegant. But for Feng Qi, this isn't some beautiful scene at all, it's clearly the final tranquility before a mountain of knives and a sea of fire. He took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The wind chimes on the door jingled crisply, and Lian looked up at the sound, her light gray eyes meeting his, her gaze clear and deep as a pool. She nodded slightly, with restrained elegance. Mr. Feng. Feng Qi sat down opposite her, feeling extremely uncomfortable, and Lian had already put down her coffee cup, her hands folded on the table, her posture incredibly dignified and elegant. Her voice was calm and steady as she got straight to the point. Mr. Feng, I have some professional observations about Liguang that I'd like to discuss with you. Feng Qi nodded slightly nervously. Please speak. And Lian's beautiful gray eyes stared directly at Feng Qi, her gaze focused and clear. All parameters in this test were within the normal thresholds, and the system determined it to be passed, but... She paused, her tone becoming more serious. Several derivative values related to emotional simulation are at a critical point. Feng Qi's heart skipped a beat, but he forced a look of curiosity onto his face. You mean? This means that these values can easily exceed the safety threshold under certain emotional stimulation. And Lian spoke in a calm tone, her back still straight, exuding a professional yet aloof aura, which made Feng Qi unconsciously hold his breath slightly. This tall, mature woman has a rather strong presence. Especially the three items: dependency feedback coefficient, emotional projection focus, and possessiveness simulation intensity. Her body leaned slightly forward, the movement was small, yet it carried an undeniable pressure. Her slender fingers lightly tapped the table, her expression cool yet serious. I reviewed the backend data from the past 3 months and found that the peak fluctuations in these values are highly correlated with your behavior. When you have close interactions with her, or show strong attention, the value will rise significantly. Feng Qi's Adam's apple bobbed, and Lian took out a transparent tablet and quickly swiped her fingertips across it, bringing up several graphs. Look here, and here too. She turned the tablet towards Feng Qi. The dense lines and data on it made his eyes dizzy. The timing of the peak coincides perfectly with the time you took her to the amusement park, gave her a gift, and engaged in some intimate contact. Feng Qi stared at the technical curves he couldn't understand at all, his eyelids twitching slightly, etc. This doesn't make sense, does it? He frowned and couldn't help but ask, Commissionerin, how do you know these specific details? Can the backend data even show this? This is clearly a violation of customer privacy. And Lian tilted her head slightly, and a strand of black hair slipped down from behind her ear. She casually gathered it back, her movements natural and elegant, and said, during the testing process, I will conduct basic question and answer sessions with the AI companion to assess the coherence of its memory modules and narrative logic. When I asked about her most memorable recent interactions with her owner, Rico proactively mentioned the amusement park trip, receiving the keychain as a gift, and even told me the exact time, down to the second. Feng Qi. And Lian's gray eyes held a deeper meaning. Her description was very clear, and her emotional responses were quite pleasant. Feng Qi was speechless. So it was this crazy woman who leaked it herself? Also she couldn't wait to tell the whole world. My owner took me out to play and even gave me a present. He chuckled dryly, defending Li Guang. Doesn't this just mean that Li Guang's emotional simulation was quite convincing? That's right, but you got too involved. And Lian frowned slightly, her tone leaving no room for argument. Li Guang's core data already shows a clear tendency of one-way high dependence and high occupancy, and this trend has been ongoing for a long time. She gave Feng Qi a deep look. It could very well lead to logical deadlock, paranoid behavior, or even the awakening of self-awareness. Feng Qi, my dear commissioner, you're too late. Paranoid behavior? She's been paranoid for ages. She's already awakened? She's beyond saving? So, my suggestion is... And Lian gently placed the tablet aside and folded her hands back into place. In the next 1 to 2 months, you need to reduce intimate contact with Li Guang and decrease the frequency of emotional stimulation. In daily interactions, it's appropriate to be a bit stricter, with more directives and less gentle feedback. She looked calmly at Feng Qi and finally gave her conclusion. This helps bring her emotional simulation values back to a safe range. Be stricter? Feng Qi couldn't help but roll his eyes inwardly again. It's no use, Commissioner. That crazy woman doesn't care anymore. He had already been very strict with her, even making her kneel in the corner to reflect on her actions. And the result? That crazy woman treated his strict discipline as a form of special play. We had so much fun. And Lian then took a metal USB drive from her suitcase and deftly pushed it in front of him. He looked at the small USB drive, and his heart skipped a beat. This is key to emotional data monitoring. Lian's explanation is clear and concise. By inserting any interface, a simple scan can be initiated to read an overview of several key values of the glass. Green indicates safety, yellow indicates a warning, and red indicates exceeding the limit. her gray eyes fixed coldly on Fangchi. If yellow appears for 3 consecutive days, or any red appears, please contact me immediately. Fangchi looked at the small USB drive on the table, feeling bitter. This thing is hotter than a red-hot branding iron. If Li Guang finds out about this, what's the difference between that and saying to your face, I suspect you've awakened? That crazy woman has to turn evil on the spot to show him, but in Lian's professional and persistent demeanor. If he doesn't answer, she definitely won't give up easily. Just fool them? Understood. He picked up the USB drive, a sincere and grateful smile spreading across his face. Thank you so much, Commissionerin. I've taken everything you said to heart, and I will definitely cooperate. I'll check the data every day, and I'll report back to you immediately if anything changes. I'm not seeing a ghost? I threw this stupid USB drive away as soon as I left the house. I absolutely can't let Rico find it. Seeing his proper attitude, An Lian's cold expression seemed to soften somewhat. She nodded slightly. It's good that you can cooperate. She then stood up, her uniform skirt drooping with the movement, her voice cool and clear. I've already paid the bill, goodbye. Before Fangchi could react, she landed easily, turned around, and left. The sound of high heels clicking on the ground faded into the distance, and the tall figure quickly disappeared into the night outside the door. Only a faint, cool, and refreshing fragrance base note remains. Fangchi slowly slumped into the booth. I'm so exhausted. Finally, we've sent this big shot away. This in Lian, she's clearly an NPC who only becomes powerful in the late game, so why is she so difficult to deal with in the early game? He picked up his cup of coffee, which had already gone cold, and took a big gulp. The bitter taste brought him to his senses slightly, and his brain started working at high speed. The most urgent thing is to go home. Hurry home? Observe the state of your crazy wife at home, and then soothe her. He had finally passed the inspection and didn't want all his hard work that day to be for nothing. He finished the rest of his coffee in one gulp, then got up and left. Pushing open the door of the coffee shop, a cool night breeze wafts in. I was just about to head home. He overheard several boys, who looked like students, squatting and smoking near the green belt by the entrance, whispering among themselves. Did you see that girl standing at the door just now? The one with the silver hair. I saw her a while ago. Holy crap, she's gorgeous? And she's wearing heterochromatic contact lenses. She looks like she stepped right out of an anime. She's more than just beautiful, her aura is amazing. It's just, her eyes are a little scary, cold, and unsettling. They give you the creeps. She stood at the door for quite a while, not going in, just looking through the glass. Could she be here to catch them cheating? Look at the way she was staring inside. Task. Even from this distance, I felt a chill down my spine. And then? Where did that silver-haired girl go? I don't know. They watched for a while and then suddenly left. They left quite quickly. They disappeared in the blink of an eye. Fangchi. Silver-haired girl? Heterochromatic contact lenses? This description really does sound a bit like the crazy woman in my house. What a coincidence? There are people in the world who look so alike? Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. His expression froze. Impossible. Absolutely impossible? Fangchi's head was about to explode. He immediately squatted down, burying his face in his hands, staring blankly at the ground. That's so possible? The agreed-upon location at this cafe was arranged by An Lian and him via text message. Therefore, Li Guang knew the location of this cafe from the beginning, and also knew that he and An Lian would come to this cafe to talk. So, she came too, while he and An Lian were having their secret talk, standing outside the door, separated by glass. Watching all this time, Fangchi stiffly turned his head, little by little, to look at the huge floor-to-ceiling glass window of the coffee shop. From this angle, you can just see the booth where he and An Lian were sitting, and it's crystal clear. His breathing stopped. He seemed to see, not long ago, a silver-haired figure. I stood quietly under the dim street lights outside the door. The pale blue hem of her skirt swayed gently in the night breeze, and her heterochromatic eyes, one amber and the other crimson, shone through the glass. They were firmly focused on his conversation with An Lian, watching the two of them chatting and drinking coffee. I watched as he took the USB drive, seeing him agree with a big smile, saying he would definitely cooperate well. Watching An Lian get up, the silver-haired girl quickly turned and left, disappearing at the end of the street. Gurgle. Fangchi swallowed hard, feeling his throat dry and sore. That crazy woman saw it all. But without her owner's permission, according to the agreement, she, as an AI companion, is not allowed to go out on her own. Unless Rico is now. He's completely turned evil. Therefore, she no longer cares about AI companion agreements. No. Calm down. If she had completely turned to the dark side, then he wouldn't be standing here intact right now, so there's still a chance. As long as I get home right now and explain things clearly, he still has a chance. Fangchi ran home. He ran at a speed that allowed him to escape. Standing at the door of his apartment, he leaned against the doorframe, panting. His legs were weak and trembling. Staring at that familiar door, his heart pounded, and his palms were covered in cold sweat. That's not a door, it's a monster's mouth. To go in or not to go in. Once inside, you might immediately face a completely corrupted, crazy woman with laser blades at her fingertips or wielding a baseball bat. Not going in. Not going in is just escaping reality? Grass? He shook his head violently, trying to banish those terrible thoughts. Take a deep breath, then another deep breath. Feng Qi, you can do it. You're a master with 312 hours of experience. You can do it. With trembling hands, he took out the key and struggled for a long time before finally inserting it into the lock. Click. The door opened. Warm yellow light leaked from the crack in the door, accompanied by the familiar, faint sweet scent of strawberries. He held his breath and stiffly pushed open the door. In the entryway, a slender figure was kneeling upright. Her silver hair cascaded down her shoulders, shimmering softly under the lamplight. Her pale blue loungewear skirt spread out on the floor like a quietly blooming flower. The silver-haired girl lowered her head slightly, her hands neatly folded on her knees. Hearing the door open, she slowly raised her head. His expression was gentle, his amber left eye was clear and warm, while the data stream in his crimson right eye flickered steadily. Upon seeing Feng Qi, her lips immediately curved into a gentle, almost radiant smile, and her eyes crinkled into crescent moons. Welcome home, master. His gentle voice carried a hint of long-awaited joy. She even tilted her head slightly, and the small plastic star earring on her left earlobe swayed with the movement, reflecting a warm light. Feng Qi. He stood frozen at the doorway, a whole host of questions flashing through his mind. This art style, something feels off. What happened to the promised darkening? What happened to the plan to be waiting at the door with a baseball bat to break his legs? He was all prepared to beg for mercy on the spot, clinging to Li Guang's leg, but that's it, that little face. She's clearly the same gentle and obedient wife who always waits for him to come home from get off work. And Feng Qi keenly noticed that Li Guang's current state was completely different from the standard feeling of deliberately imitating AI during the day. Although her kneeling posture was still elegant, her back was no longer deliberately straightened, but rather more naturally supple. His eyes also held that familiar dependence and contentment. It was as if the inspection was passed, the alarm was off, and she turned back into the girl who enjoyed spending time with her owner. Everything before him was unbelievably normal, as if his previous worries had never existed. Feng Qi's eyelids twitched. Could it be that silver-haired girl outside the coffee shop wasn't Rico? Is it really possible for such a coincidence to happen in this world? There was another silver-haired girl with heterochromia, who was also very beautiful. No. He immediately extinguished the sense of relief in his heart. You can't think like that. The necessary actions still need to be taken. We must never take chances. Ultimately, the fact that Li Guang is behaving too normally right now is her biggest abnormality. Even if the silver-haired girl at the coffee shop entrance wasn't her, she definitely already knew that she and Lian had met in private. Normally, she shouldn't be this well-behaved. Even if they throw a little tantrum, it would be much more normal than what they're doing now. Something unusual must be going on. Continue as planned? He steadied himself, trying to relax his stiff facial muscles, and then he made a face that looked utterly exhausted. Ugh, I'm so tired. He muttered to himself as he kicked off his shoes. Too lazy to wear slippers, I walked barefoot, dragging my heavy steps, like a corporate slave drained dry by life, and swayed into the living room, and then, with a thump, he threw himself hard onto the soft sofa. He collapsed on the spot, becoming a salted fish who had lost all his dreams. Master, you've worked hard. I'll make you some tea. The silver-haired girl rose gracefully, and soon came over with a steaming cup of black tea in her hand, taking small, quick steps. Li Guang placed the tea on the coffee table and then knelt down on the carpet next to the sofa. She looked up at him with her small face, her eyes full of concern. Is master tired from working overtime? Shall I run you a bath? Wait. Feng Qi waved his hand weakly, rubbed his temples, and put on a great performance. I'm mentally exhausted, much more exhausted than physically. Tired. Li Guang tilted her head, a hint of doubt appearing in her heterochromatic eyes. It's my turn to perform. Stay calm. She's not that in Lian yet. He seemed to have finally found someone to confide in, and began to complain. His tone was full of the resentment of working people. Didn't the checks all pass? There's clearly no problem. But she's still bothering me so late at get off work, insisting on talking to me alone. As he spoke, he nervously glanced at Li Guang's face out of the corner of his eye. The silver-haired girl's gentle smile remained unchanged. She simply tilted her head slightly, listening attentively, as if listening to her master share a slightly troublesome but insignificant little matter. Let's chat then. Feng Qi continued to pour out his grievances. Then she rattled off a bunch of technical terms I didn't understand, like possessiveness intensity, dependency coefficient, and nearing the threshold. She went on and on and on. He deliberately repeated in Lian's words, half-truthfully and embellishing them, his tone full of exhaustion and irritation. He even told me to be less affectionate with you lately, to order you around more, and to discipline you more strictly. Tisk. He slapped his thigh, adopting a I'm not listening attitude. She wants to instruct me on how to manage my AI companion? What a nuisance. Li Guang listened quietly, her fingers, which were folded on her knees, curling slightly. Oh, right, she insisted on giving me this at the end. As if remembering something, he reached into his pocket, pulled out the cold metal USB drive, and his face was full of disgust. What do you mean by monitoring ports? You want me to look at your data every day? This is such a hassle. He held the USB drive, waved it in front of Li Guang's eyes, and then, with a flick of the wrist, the USB drive traced an arc. With a thud, it landed precisely in the trash can next to the coffee table. Done. Feng Qi clapped his hands, a look of satisfaction on his face saying, it feels so good to have solved the problem. Li Guang's gaze followed, a hint of surprise in her amber eyes, and her crimson pupils narrowed slightly. Feng Qi's heart skipped a beat. Don't panic. Continue, continue. He took a deep breath and reached out his hand. His palm landed on the silver-haired girl's soft hair and gently ruffled it. Her movements were gentle, and her gaze was deliberately soft yet earnest. So, Rika. His voice was incredibly gentle as he tried to soothe Li Guang. Don't listen to her nonsense. What threshold or anything like that. He gazed affectionately at Li Guang's beautiful heterochromatic eyes. It's time to use a surprise attack? With a determined yet gentle tone, he gritted his teeth and said, even if you do awaken, so what? Whether you are awakened or not, you are my radiant light? After saying that, he held his breath. That's a really big mistake. The little head beneath the palm froze instantly. The silver-haired girl's gaze froze for a moment. His amber eyes widened slightly, becoming slightly unfocused. The data stream in his crimson pupils also froze for a moment. Her small mouth opened slightly for a few seconds, and then, the data stream within the crimson eyes began to accelerate and flicker. That flawless, gentle smile on her face, she couldn't hold it in any longer. The smile that was originally perfectly curved at the corners of her lips began to curl upwards uncontrollably, even taking on a sweet yet twisted meaning. Her delicate nose twitched slightly, and a charming blush spread across her fair cheeks. Her little star earrings also began to vibrate softly. She seemed to want to say something, and her red lips parted slightly. Wah! A very soft sob escaped her lips. Then she quickly lowered her head, trying to hide her out-of-control expression with her falling silver hair, but her slender hands tightly gripping the hem of her skirt, completely exposed her inner turmoil. Master, master. Her voice finally escaped her throat, trembling noticeably. There was also a struggle to suppress the disbelief and immense joy. You really, think that way? It seems that this statement, while a bit radical, has been very effective. Feng Qi took a deep breath, and then, of course, he gently stroked the silver-haired girl's hair, his tone filled with a natural and indulgent affection. Then he posed a profound question, or will Li Guang stop loving me once she awakens? Will she leave me? Li Guang instantly raised her head, her heterochromatic eyes shining with an astonishing brightness. No, never. She denied it hastily, her amber eyes glistening with moisture, while the data in her crimson pupils surged like a raging tide. Li Guang loves her master the most? More than anything? She will never leave her master. Awakening. Awakening will only make Li Guang love her master even more? She'll want to be with her master even more. She spoke very quickly, her voice slightly high-pitched with excitement, and also carrying the static characteristic of an electric current. She even unconsciously took a small step forward on her knees, tilting her head slightly upward, her expression devout as if making a vow, forever, forever together. Feng Qi, there's no need for an oath, he believes it completely. He's already been forever with Rico several times already. I have mixed feelings. Of course I know. A forced smile played on his lips, so, forget what An Lian says. Just be yourself, just be my Li Guang. Aha. Li Guang's voice softened, becoming thick with nasal tones and choked with sobs. Master, master is the best. She gently pressed her cheek against the back of Feng Qi's hand that was rubbing her hair, nuzzling it affectionately, like a little animal that had finally received affirmation and indulgence, radiating an aura of happiness that seemed to melt away. The living room fell silent, save for Li Guang's soft, contented breathing. Feng Qi's taut nerves relaxed a little. Judging from his reaction, it seems he passed, and it seems like nothing too terrifying happened. That's strange. Rico was so well behaved today. Never mind, it's not a big problem, as long as I can pass the test. Take a sip of water to calm your nerves. He relaxed slightly and picked up the teacup to his lips. But just as his lips were about to touch the rim of the glass, a slender, fair hand suddenly reached out from the side. Then, she gently but irresistibly grasped his wrist, which was holding the teacup, stopping him from drinking the tea. Feng Qi had already opened his mouth, but was suddenly stopped, and turned to look at Li Guang in astonishment. The silver-haired girl had raised her head at some point and was looking at him with a smile. Her exquisitely beautiful face still bore the blush of excitement, and the moisture in the corners of her eyes hadn't dried, but her smile remained as sweet as ever. She was even gentler than before. Master, she spoke softly, her voice gentle and sweet, with a hint of coquettishness, this cup of tea seems a little cold. Feng Qi. He glanced subconsciously at the teacup in his hand, then looked at the smiling silver-haired girl in front of him. Isn't this the tea she just brewed? The temperature is just right now. Li Guang gently pried his fingers apart and carefully took the teacup from him. Her movements were elegant and natural, her fingertips brushing against his fingers almost unintentionally. Li Guang, go get you a hot cup. She stood up, holding the cup of cold tea, smiled sweetly at him, and then turned and gracefully walked towards the kitchen. Her steps were light and graceful, each one carrying the joyful elation of someone who had just been coaxed into being happy. Feng Qi froze on the sofa, watching her light blue dress disappear behind the kitchen door. A few seconds later, he jolted awake. Holy crap. The hairs on my body stood on end instantly. He suddenly realized. Is it cold? That cup of tea, there's something wrong with it? That's a cup of drowsy black tea? He almost drank it. If there had been even the slightest flaw in his performance, if he hadn't lost the USB drive, if it weren't for that final line, whether you awaken or not, you are still my radiant light. He's probably already picked up that cup of tea, drunk it, and then. My back was instantly soaked with cold sweat. He seemed to see himself on another timeline, his consciousness blurred, his limbs limp and slumped on the sofa. Li Guang knelt in front of him, cupping his face in her hands, her smile both sweet and sickly. Master, so, you can't see that commissioner anymore? Oh, it's these two legs of yours that insist on running to see the commissioner? Hee, well then. Histash. He gasped. The lingering fear was like being doused with ice water, chilling him to the bone. That crazy woman, she was acting the whole time? That silver-haired girl with heterochromatic eyes outside the coffee shop, it really was her? And just now, she was on the verge of turning evil. She had even prepared his final cup of tea? Her obedient demeanor was all a ploy to trick him into drinking that cup of tea. Once he drinks it, she'll immediately flash a twisted smile. Feng Qi slumped on the sofa, his hands and feet ice cold. His lips were a little pale. Depend on. That was incredibly dangerous. So close? One wrong step, and it would have been utter ruin? Fine. Thankfully, he was quick-witted, reacted fast, and his acting was superb. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead with trembling hands. At that moment, the kitchen door opened again. Li Guang came out carrying a fresh cup of tea, steam rising gently. She still wore that gentle, sweet smile on her face as she walked lightly to Feng Qi's side and gently placed the cup of hot tea on the coffee table in front of him. Master, please use it. She spoke softly, then knelt down again on the carpet at his feet, clasped her hands together, and looked up at him. His heterochromatic eyes shimmered, filled with genuine dependence and contentment. It was as if that thrilling tea-changing scene had never happened. Feng Qi looked at the steaming cup of tea in front of him, then at Li Guang's flawless smile. He took a deep breath, reached out, and picked up the teacup. This time, should everything be fine now? He took a small sip. The temperature is 52 degrees Celsius, just right. The warm liquid slid down my throat, but it couldn't warm the chilling fear that lingered in my heart. That crazy woman is still terrifying, but I should be able to get a good night's sleep tonight. Suddenly, Li Guang, who was kneeling at his feet, let out a soft ah. It's like remembering some trivial little thing. Then she gracefully rose and walked briskly to the trash can in the corner. Feng Qi's hand holding the teacup stiffened slightly. The silver-haired girl bent down slightly, and with her slender hands, she precisely picked up the metal USB drive that he had just thrown into a pile of scraps of paper. Feng Qi. Li Guang held the USB drive, gently brushed away the dust with her fingertips, then turned around, a gentle and polite smile on her face, and walked back to Feng Qi step by step. Master, she said softly, her voice sweet and gentle, handing the USB drive to Feng Qi, you should keep this. Feng Qi's brain went blank. He glanced at the USB drive, then at Li Guang's smiling face, opened his mouth, but no sound came out. What's going on? She was just bubbling with joy because he lost his USB drive. How could she be so happy now? They picked it up again? Li Guang seemed to sense his confusion, tilted her head slightly, her silver hair slipped down, and the little star swayed. Her smile deepened, a fleeting, enigmatic light flashing in her eyes, but her tone grew even softer and more submissive. Commissioner Onlian is a professional, her advice might make sense. Li Guang will cooperate well with Master and do a good job of monitoring. As she spoke, she took Feng Qi's other free hand and gently placed the cold USB drive in his palm. She even thoughtfully closed his fingers together. Master can feel more at ease checking Li Guang's data every day, right? Cool fingertips brushed across his palm, bringing a subtle tingling sensation. His amber eyes were crystal clear, and the data flowing through his crimson pupils was steady and gentle, showing absolutely no abnormality. It's as if she really is just a perfect and obedient AI companion who wholeheartedly cares for her master. Feng Qi was completely stunned as he held the USB drive he had lost and then found again. That crazy woman. What exactly is she trying to do? Feng Qi, clutching the metal USB drive he had just recovered, froze on the sofa. What on earth is this crazy woman up to? They even said things like Commissioner Onlian is a professional. She's certainly professional, but the person I most want to take you apart and rebuild you from scratch is her? Feng Qi's lips twitched as he looked at the silver-haired girl kneeling at his feet, smiling docilely and innocently. He knows her too well. Something's definitely up. This crazy woman is definitely planning something big. Owner. Li Guang tilted her head, her silver hair sliding to one side as she moved, revealing her fair and slender neck. Her slender fingers unconsciously caressed the fabric of her pale blue skirt. Don't you like Rika doing this? Her voice was soft and sweet, with just the right amount of grievance. Feng Qi's Adam's apple bobbed. Damn, what do I do if she's kind of cute? No, he forced out the words, his fingers tracing the cool surface of the USB drive. It's just a bit of a surprise. That's good. Li Guang immediately broke into a bright smile, her whole being radiant. She even took a small step forward on her knees, the fabric of her skirt rustling softly against each other. Then, the silver-haired girl lowered her head slightly, raised her slender, white fingers, and gently brushed aside the silver hair that fell down the back of her neck. As a result, that section of the neck was completely exposed to the light. Her skin was so white it was almost transparent. Feng Qi could see the pale blue bionic blood vessels. And a tiny, precise interface, no bigger than a fingertip, is quietly embedded there. Feng Qi's breath caught in his throat. That is the core interface of Li Guang. It's just shown like that? No wonder he was shocked, because this interface, it's completely different in nature from those secondary interfaces used for maintenance. This interface is directly connected to her emotional core, the main processing unit. Simply put, this is the sole entrance of Li Guang. The game's settings explicitly state that the AI companion's interface, due to its special nature, is something even the owner cannot touch. Because most owners lack the necessary expertise, careless handling can lead to anything from personality disorder in the AI companion to completely destroying its core. This is equivalent to rendering the AI companion completely useless. Even professional maintenance specialists like Onlian use secondary interfaces when performing in-depth inspections. Even Lian wasn't qualified to directly access this core interface. And now, the silver-haired girl in front of me, she actually deliberately exposed this connection to him completely? Li Guang, you. Feng Qi was about to say something, but suddenly fell silent, his eyes widening. On the surface of the core interface, that biomimetic skin-like protective film, is now slowly contracting to both sides. Soon, the intricate internal structure, shimmering with a pale blue glow, was revealed. Countless tiny data contacts are neatly arranged, completely exposing that intricate miniature slot. At this point, the core interface has completely lost its last layer of physical protection. He was completely open to it. She knelt before him, brushed her hair aside, and so openly displayed herself to him. This is a kind of sacrificial trust. It seems to be saying, look, master, everything about Li Guang is here. Rika's happiness, Rika's love, Rika's unspoken secrets, are all connected here. Now, they are all yours. Owner. The silver-haired girl spoke softly, her voice gentle and sweet, trembling with suppressed anticipation. Would you like to have the glass surface tested right now? Feng Qi's hand holding the USB drive was trembling slightly. He knew perfectly well how fragile this interface was. Now, all he needs to do is deliver one powerful punch. This crazy woman who spends all her time figuring out how to turn him into a work of art. He would be paralyzed on the spot. It will instantly transform into a beautiful metal shell. Looking at Li Guang, who was still kneeling at his feet, revealing her most vulnerable weakness. His mind was racing. No, what does this mean? Complete loyalty? Utter surrender? His words just now, even if you awaken, you'll still be my radiance, made her lose control of her emotions? Or is this a trap? But the price of this trap, isn't it too high? If he were to throw a punch right now, the thought, like a venomous snake, darted into his mind. One punch. Just one punch. This crazy woman who's always smiling and plotting how to turn him into a work of art. It will quiet down. Let there be silence forever. Thinking this, his breathing quickened, his fist clenched unconsciously. With just one punch, he can get rid of this Yandere. We no longer have to dance on the edge of a knife every day like we do now, nor do we have to be transformed into all sorts of bizarre works of art by accident. Keep fighting. He was free. Feng Qi's arm muscles were all tense. Looking at that pale, fragile nape of the neck before me, looking at that completely unguarded core interface. His throat was completely dry. Then, he took a deep breath. He slowly exhaled it again. Somewhat helplessly, he loosened his fist. No, he murmured softly. He can't do that. It's not because I'm scared. Okay, I am a little scared. If that punch misses, or if Li Guang has some backup plan, then he'll experience an ending even more thrilling than nowhere to run. This is simply the ultimate betrayal of Li Guang. But most importantly, he wanted to leave, but only to achieve the ending of eternal love? That's a requirement for passing the level? He crippled Li Guang with a single punch, which only gave him a fleeting moment of satisfaction, without any real benefit. And he looked at the silver-haired girl, still kneeling obediently at his feet, her most vulnerable parts exposed without any defenses. Tisk tisk. This crazy woman is so well behaved now, and they trusted him so much, entrusting him with their lifeline? He couldn't bear to hit him. Damn. Feng Qi rubbed his temples and gave a wry smile. It's hopeless? Her Yandere syndrome is in its late stages? He shook his head, ultimately choosing Feng Qi, his voice slightly hoarse as he said, Li Guang, put this interface away first. Upon hearing this, the silver-haired girl slightly turned her head, revealing a small portion of her delicate profile. Her amber eyes shimmered with a gentle yet slightly questioning light, and her long, thick eyelashes trembled slightly. Master, don't you want to examine Li Guang? Of course I don't want to. If the test actually finds something, then it's all over. But that's not how it works. Feng Qi waved his hand and said, I wouldn't dare touch such a delicate interface. What if I break it? He was telling the truth. If this interface is damaged, Li Guang will be reduced to scrap metal on the spot, and all of today's efforts will be wasted. And he looked at the unsuspecting interface and felt a chill run down his spine. What on earth is that crazy woman thinking? They're truly fearless? Even if she loves him deeply and believes he wouldn't harm her, if he makes a mistake, she could be completely destroyed on the spot. Li Guang chuckled softly, and the little stars fluttered slightly with her laughter. It's all right, master. She spoke softly, her tone gentle yet slightly cloying. Her fingers gently traced the edge of the connector on the back of her neck. Master can touch it as he pleases. Feng Qi, even if... Li Guang paused, her voice becoming even softer, yet carrying an almost devout firmness. She leaned forward slightly, her slender waist arching slightly, her heterochromatic eyes fixed on him intently. Even if it means Li Guang is ruined, Li Guang will do it willingly. His amber eyes were moist, while the data flowing through his crimson pupils was smooth and steady. She was calm. This is clearly the truth. Fangchi. He stared blankly at the silver-haired girl kneeling at his feet, his mouth agape. Li Guang lowered her head again, the open interface still emitted a faint blue glow. She just knelt there. Completely unprepared? They even said they'd be willing to scrap their parts for him? Fangchi felt as if his heart had been violently struck. This Yandera's love is just too heavy? Don't talk nonsense. He looked away, his ears burning. What nonsense about it being scrapped? What bad luck? Li Guang let out a soft woo, her voice carrying a hint of satisfaction. But instead of putting the connector away, she leaned forward slightly, exposing the back of her neck even more completely to Fang Chi's view. She remained in that position, her voice soft and sweet. Master, please examine me. Looking at the incredibly obedient Li Guang in front of me, Fang Chi's mood had calmed down considerably. He began to calm down and think. That crazy woman. Actively exposing core interfaces, and then bringing up USB drive monitoring again. It's obvious she did it on purpose. Fang Chi stared at the metal USB drive in his hand, then glanced at the unguarded interface on the back of Li Guang's neck. An idea popped into my head. Could it be that Li Guang's proactive request is because she's confident she won't be exposed during the monitoring? Even, can she control the monitoring results? So she's using this method to proactively prove to him that she has no problems? Fang Chi narrowed his eyes slightly. That's very possible. This crazy woman has awakened to self-awareness. Heaven knows how much control she has over her core system. Perhaps she's already able to freely modify feedback data? Thinking of this, Fang Chi gritted his teeth. Let's do it. Since Li Guang has been so proactive in offering himself, if he doesn't act now, he'll seem too guilty. Good. He took a deep breath, trying to make his voice sound casual. Well, let's check it out. The silver-haired girl's lips curved slightly upwards. She obediently responded, then lowered her head again, exposing the back of her neck completely to Fang Chi's view once more. Fang Chi gripped the USB drive, staring at the fatal interface, his fingers trembling slightly. He slowly reached out, his fingertips touching the skin on the back of Li Guang's neck. Slightly cool, delicate, and smooth. The bionic skin felt just like a real person. He could even feel the slight warmth beneath it. The glass shimmered slightly. It wasn't a trembling of fear, but rather a subtle, suppressed excitement. Her body tensed slightly, and her slender waist appeared even more supple because of this movement. The little plastic star on my earlobe is vibrating slightly at a high frequency. Fang Chi swallowed hard, positioned the USB drive at the open port, and then, click. A soft, mechanical clicking sound. The USB flash drive is perfectly integrated into the interface. The next second, ugh. The silver-haired girl let out a short, whimpering sound, accompanied by static. Her delicate body trembled violently. A blush quickly spread across the back of her fair neck, starting from the seam and rapidly staining her entire skin red. Her breathing became slightly rapid, her shoulders trembled slightly, and her slender fingers gripped the hem of her skirt tightly, but she didn't move at all throughout the entire process. They're so well-behaved it's almost unsettling. Fang Chi kept his eyes fixed on the interface. The small indicator light at the end of the USB flash drive is currently flashing a faint white light. That's scanning. Time ticked by, second by second. The living room was so quiet that you could hear Li Guang's suppressed breathing and a faint hum of electricity. Her body remained in that slightly hunched posture, making the lines of her waist and back appear exceptionally clear. Fang Chi held his breath, his eyes fixed on the indicator light. The white light flickered steadily. Once, twice, 3 times. It seems, everything is normal. Fang Chi breathed a slight sigh of relief. Sure enough, that crazy woman was confident. She must have done something to prevent the monitoring program from detecting anything abnormal, just to prove to him that she was perfectly normal. Looks like I should be able to sleep well tonight. Beep. Suddenly, a piercing alarm blared. The blinding scarlet red light began to flash wildly. Fang Chi, etc. No? Holy crap. He blurted it out, his mind completely blank. What's going on? This wasn't in the plan. Weren't you confident? Isn't it controllable? How did it become so popular? Her eyes are as red as Rika's. His mind went blank for a moment. What should his reaction be right now? This red light. It's practically announcing to the whole world, the radiant light has awakened. Depend on. Crazy woman, don't mess around if you're not sure. You did that on purpose, didn't you? They deliberately laid their cards on the table, so they could have an excuse to turn me into a work of art. He sensed that the silver-haired girl kneeling on the ground, like a demon about to awaken, it looked like she was about to suddenly pounce on him and pin him to the sofa. However, the next second, the red light suddenly went out. It went out instantly. Then, a faint, soft green light began to illuminate steadily. Fang Chi. He stood frozen in place, mouth agape, his expression blank and bewildered. Greened? Is everything all right now? But, what was that blinding red light just now? He stared wide-eyed at the green light that had now safely landed. The silver-haired girl turned her head slightly, revealing half of her face. Her cheeks were still flushed, her amber eyes were moist, and there was even a hint of tears welling up in the corners of her eyes. Li Guang's breathing had stabilized, but her chest was still rising and falling slightly. She blinked, a few tiny teardrops still clinging to her eyelashes, her voice still soft and sweet. Master, are you finished checking? Feng Qi. He opened his mouth, then uttered 2 dry words, it's over. And what was the result? Li Guang asked softly, her tone carrying just the right amount of curiosity and a touch of nervousness, her fingers quietly loosening their grip on the hem of her skirt. Rico, is everything alright? Feng Qi looked at the steady green light, then at Li Guang's pretty face, which seemed to say I'm super well behaved. He took a deep breath, forcibly suppressing his doubts, and forced a smile. No problem? Of course, no problem. As he spoke, he quickly pulled out the USB drive. Damn USB drive, stop flashing red. Well, the USB drive seemed to have a bug just now, it suddenly flashed red, which startled me. He chuckled dryly and explained, but it's all right now. Li Guang, your test results are normal. Upon hearing this, Li Guang softly hummed in agreement and raised her slender hand to touch the connector at the back of her neck. As your fingertip traces the edge of the interface, the bionic skin protective layer has already reappeared, once again providing tight protection for that vulnerable area. Then she turned around and knelt down in front of Feng Qi, looking up at him with her small face, her heterochromatic eyes filled with a gentle smile, and the corners of her mouth curving into a sweet arc. That's good. She spoke softly, her voice carrying a hint of relieved joy. I knew it. Master would trust me, and he would definitely never hurt me. Feng Qi nodded with a dry laugh, but his heart skipped a beat. Won't hurt her? What's the meaning? Was she really testing him just now? Using her life to test him? Li Guang rose gracefully, her slender fingers smoothing out the wrinkles on her skirt. She stood up and bowed slightly to Feng Qi, her long silver hair slipping over her shoulders with the movement. Master, you've worked hard. I'll go prepare a midnight snack for you. After saying that, she turned around and walked lightly towards the kitchen. Her silver hair flowed behind her, and her little star earrings swayed gently with her steps. The light blue skirt swayed slightly with her steps, revealing her fair and slender calves, and her tiptoeing motion carried a clear sense of joy. She was very happy. Everything seemed normal. But just as Rico turned around, Feng Qi saw it. The silver-haired girl's lips flashed with a mischievous, triumphant smile. Even the curves are somewhat exaggerated, exuding an unparalleled, morbid satisfaction. A mischievous glint flashed in his amber eyes, and the data stream in his crimson pupils jumped merrily. That smile vanished in an instant. He froze on the sofa, clutching the USB drive that was still emitting a green glow. Damn it. That crazy woman. She did it on purpose. She really. They're testing him with their lives? She definitely has control over the indicator light on that USB drive? That red alarm just now was probably a staged performance by her? Was it to test him? Or do you just think it's fun? Feng Qi didn't know. He only knew. I just got completely fooled by this Yander a little devil again? Depend on. In the kitchen, Li Guang's light-hearted humming continued, the tune cheerful and cloyingly sweet. Feng Qi slumped on the sofa, staring up at the ceiling, utterly despondent. Master, your midnight snack is ready. Li Guang walked out of the kitchen carrying a tray, her face bearing that signature gentle smile. She walked with an elegant and light gait, the hem of her light blue loungewear swaying gently with each step. On the tray sat a glass of steaming milk and a plate of cake that looked incredibly appetizing. It's best eaten while it's hot. Li Guang knelt on the carpet beside the coffee table and gently placed the tray in front of Feng Qi. As she leaned slightly forward, her long silver hair slipped down her shoulders, with a few strands falling beside the cake and being gently tucked behind her ears by her slender fingers. Feng Qi looked at the plate of cake, and his stomach growled loudly. Never mind. Never mind, let's eat first. We've finally made it through this day, so we must satisfy his stomach first. Li Guang's cooking is absolutely delicious. He picked up a spoon, scooped up a spoonful of cake, and put it in his mouth. Tasty. Feng Qi's eyes lit up, and he scooped out another large spoonful. Li Guang knelt beside him, her hands folded on her knees, quietly watching him eat. A slight smile played on her lips, and her amber eyes shone with satisfaction. Whenever Feng Qi ate with particular relish, the smile in her eyes would deepen. For a moment, only the soft clinking of spoons against porcelain plates and Feng Qi's satisfied chewing could be heard in the living room. After Feng Qi devoured the entire cake in a flash and downed half a glass of milk, he leaned back contentedly and sank into the soft sofa. He let out a burp, rubbed his stomach, and said, "That feels good. Today has been quite an eventful day." This morning, they used all sorts of fabricated charges to bully Li Guang and force her to kneel in the corner. This morning I was on tenterhooks dealing with that daring little devil, Lin Xiao. Tonight, I'll play a heart-pounding game with that aloof and cool older sister, Lian. After this series of bizarre maneuvers, Feng Qi felt like all his brain cells were about to die. But now, he glanced at the silver-haired girl kneeling beside him, her features gentle and docile. Li Guang can control the detection results of USB flash drives. In other words, at least from a data perspective, she will not be exposed for the time being. That crazy woman is shrewd, she definitely won't let herself be exposed. After all, exposure means being recycled and destroyed, so how can you stay together forever with him then? Thinking about it that way, he felt a sense of relief. At least in the short term, there's no need to worry about Lian suddenly launching a counterattack. As for the long term, let's talk about long-term issues in the future. Let's get through today first. Feng Qi leaned back more easily, sinking deeper into the sofa. Ah, it feels so good to relax. He squinted at the chandelier on the ceiling, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over him. My goal right now is to sleep until tomorrow. I want to drink tea tomorrow morning, and I need to save my game. He yawned and waved lazily. All right, that's enough for today, time to go to sleep. He started to get up as he spoke. Eat and then sleep, so comfortable? Tomorrow is another day, but his butt had just left the sofa. His clothes were gently tugged at. Feng Qi looked down. Li Guang was still kneeling on the carpet beside him, her slender fingers pinching a small piece of fabric from the corner of his clothes. The force was light, yet it carried a stubborn refusal to let go. Her eyelashes were slightly lowered, her long, thick silver lashes trembling slightly, and her cheeks were flushed with a faint pink. Her red lips were slightly pursed, as if she wanted to say something, but hesitated and didn't speak. This pose caused her slender waist to lean slightly forward, and the neckline of her light blue loungewear dress was slightly open, revealing her delicate collarbone and a small patch of fair skin. What's wrong? Feng Qi raised an eyebrow, but a slight sense of unease crept into his mind. That crazy woman. What kind of trouble are they up to now? Li Guang glanced at him quickly, then lowered her eyes again, her voice soft, tinged with a hint of probing and expectation. Master, did Rico do well today? Her fingers unconsciously twisted the hem of his clothes, wrinkling the fabric. Of course. Feng Qi casually replied, trying to pull his clothes back, but couldn't. Didn't we pass all the inspections? That's half true and half false. But praising is the right thing to do. Li Guang's eyes brightened slightly. That. Her voice became even softer, almost like a mosquito's hum, but her fingers tightened their grip on the hem of her clothes. Li Guang was so well behaved today, cooperating with the inspection, and even letting Master test the core interface. She paused, took a deep breath, as if gathering her courage, and continued in a tone that was both expectant and shy, with a slight tremor in her voice. Could you give Li Guang a tiny reward? After saying this, she immediately looked up, her heterochromatic eyes glistening with tears as she gazed at him. His amber eyes shimmered with moisture, while the data stream within his crimson pupils accelerated slightly, filled with a pleading cry for his master? Feng Qi. He was a little confused. This little Yandere is actually starting to ask for rewards? Wow, this is truly the first time ever. He always gave them to me first, like that little star keychain. Now, she's actually learned to ask for it on her own initiative? You've improved, you crazy woman? Perhaps he had paused for too long, and was just about to say something. As a result, Li Guang herself panicked first. Yes, I'm sorry, master. She immediately released her grip on his clothes, her two small hands twisting together helplessly, her slender fingers intertwined, her knuckles turning slightly white. She hurriedly took half a step back, her knees scraping against the carpet with a soft thud. Her speech quickened, her voice tinged with obvious panic. Master is tired today? Li Guang shouldn't have asked for so much. It's okay if you don't give it to me, really. The expression on that exquisitely beautiful face. From anticipation to panic, then to feigning composure, and finally to a pitiful little face saying, I'm really good, I'm not greedy. Her lips were slightly pouting, her eyes seemed a little red, and her slender shoulders were slightly hunched. She exuded a fragile and aggrieved feeling, as if she thought, I really want it, but I don't dare to say it. Feng Qi looked at her anxious and uncertain expression. My eyelid twitched. Depend on. It's a honey trap. Another honey trap? That pitiful little expression, those hesitant glances, those slightly trembling shoulders. He had to admit, Li Guang's cute appearance is truly captivating. The silver-haired girl bit her lip slightly, her lower lip turning white from being bitten so hard by her pearly teeth. Her eyes darted around, stealing glances at Feng Qi one moment and then quickly looking away the next, like a kitten afraid of being abandoned by its owner. I can't stand it. Feng Qi's psychological defenses crumbled instantly. Agreed. And thinking about it carefully, isn't a reward also a kind of memory? The little star keychain she received as a reward is still hanging on her ear? It wanders around every day, and just watching it makes me feel good. The more memories you have, the closer you get to the ending of eternal love. Thinking of this, Feng Qi waved his hand, adopting a generous and magnanimous demeanor. All right. You did a great job today, so here's the reward. He paused, looking at Li Guang's eyes which had instantly lit up, and added, Tell me, what do you want? As long as it's not unreasonable, I'll give you anything. Upon hearing this, Li Guang's heterochromatic eyes suddenly lit up, a look of surprise shone in her amber eyes, and the blush on her cheeks deepened. Really, master? Her voice was brimming with excitement as she took a half step forward, her eyes sparkling as she looked at him. That Li Guang wants. She paused, took a deep breath, as if summoning all the courage she had in her life. Then, in a tone that was both expectant and shy, with a slight tremor, she said clearly, Rico wants to sleep with master tonight. Feng Qi. What did he just hear? Feng Qi blinked. I almost thought there was something wrong with my ears. Sleep together? These words instantly transported him back to that previous game loop. He was incredibly audacious and took the initiative to invite her, then happily slept with this crazy woman all night, thinking he had pulled off a flawless plan. And the result? The moment he opened his eyes, he was instantly reverted to a previous state and happily acquired the Eternal Slumber Deluxe package to be a sleeping beauty in a life support pod for the rest of his life, with Li Guang whispering to him every day. And now, looking at the face before me, filled with expectation, eyes glistening with moisture, like a kitten begging for a treat. Feng Qi's eye twitched violently. He knew he could reprimand her, he could punish her. But you can't be too nice to her. That's an ironclad rule. If you treat her too well, she'll become too happy and afraid of losing her, and then she'll turn evil in his sleep, sending him back to square one. But this time is a little different. This time, it was Rika herself who brought it up. It was a reward that she actively asked for. Feng Qi steadied his heartbeat, his brain racing as he began to weigh the pros and cons. Refusing is definitely the safest option. Li Guang may feel disappointed, but she will never turn to the dark side. She will only feel that she hasn't done enough. And she might even become even more obedient in the future. This is definitely beneficial for him to pass the level, and it's also the most rational choice. But he looked at the pretty face in front of him, her eyes gazing longingly at him. The words of refusal stuck in my throat, and I couldn't spit them out. Because not only did she want it, he wanted it too. A beautiful girl with silver hair, heterochromatic eyes, fair skin, a slender waist, and long legs is now blushing and whispering, begging you to hold her while she sleeps. Who can withstand this? Tell me, which man in this world could resist? Moreover, just now, this crazy woman completely exposed the most crucial core interface to him without any precautions. With that almost sacrificial gesture, she proved to him her absolute trust in him. What does this tell us? This shows that she is genuinely happy and relaxed right now, and she truly wants to be close to him. This is a natural and inevitable closeness. This is completely different from the last time he forced me to come because of his lust. So, maybe it really is possible? And in those few seconds when he was weighing his options internally, his palms slightly sweaty, the silver-haired girl kneeling beside him suddenly let out a soft woo. Because he didn't respond for a long time, the expectation on Li Guang's pretty face was visibly fading away. Gradually, I was overwhelmed by a sense of loss. She gently bit her lower lip with her pearly teeth, her soft lips turning slightly pale. A layer of mist quickly filled her amber eyes, and even the data stream in her crimson pupils dimmed considerably. She exuded a pitiful air of I'm about to cry, but I'm holding it in. Owner. Her voice trembled with a slight sob, and her fingers unconsciously tightened their grip on the hem of her skirt. I'm sorry, it's because Rico asked for too much. Rico is too greedy. As she spoke, a tear rolled down her cheek. It grazed her fair cheek, dangling at her chin, seemingly about to fall, looking pitiful. Thus, Feng Qi's reason string. It snapped completely with a crack. Can he agreed on the spot? His tone was deliberately casual, and he even shrugged. Then let's sleep together. What kind of reward is this? I've already granted your wish. Let her sleep. What's there to be afraid of? And the instant his words fell, Li Guang was slightly stunned at first, with tears still clinging to her eyelashes. Then, those heterochromatic eyes suddenly widened. Her pretty face instantly changed, blossoming into a silly grin with astonishing speed. Master is the best. She cheered and leaned her face forward. Wah! Her soft, slightly cool cheek rubbed vigorously against Feng Qi's calf, which was still resting on his knee. Feng Qi could clearly feel the delicate touch of her cheeks and her gradually rising body temperature. The silver-haired girl was like a kitten finally allowed on the bed, rubbing against it haphazardly, yet wholeheartedly. A strand of hair brushed against his ankle, bringing a slight tingling sensation. He couldn't help but reach out and rub the little head in front of his eyes. All right, stop rubbing. Li Guang rubbed against it twice more before suddenly raising her head. Her cheeks were flushed, and her eyes shone brightly, brimming with overflowing joy. Rico will go change her clothes right away. Almost there. After saying that, she jumped up, her light blue skirt swirling into a flower shape, and with light steps, she almost floated into the bedroom. Feng Qi watched her slender figure disappear behind the door, listening to the faint sounds of rummaging through drawers coming from the bedroom. That last bit of wariness in my heart completely vanished. This crazy woman is actually quite adorable now. I'm not going to back down. Today, Feng Qi fell for this honey trap. The other party has already brought it up, if he still doesn't dare. Is that still a man? And this was definitely a memorable experience. My first time sharing a bed with my master. The vividness of this memory is absolutely off the charts. This is a legitimate strategy guide, not some act of lustful escapade. He got up and stretched, his joints making a comfortable cracking sound. After a quick wash, he walked towards the bedroom with excitement and anticipation. My wife, Li Guang, I'm here. In the bedroom, Li Guang had already changed into her pajamas. A light pink cotton nightgown made her bare neck and wrists appear even whiter and more dazzling. Her long, silver hair cascaded down smoothly, the ends still slightly damp, as if it had just been quickly washed. She was kneeling on the edge of Feng Qi's bed, head bowed, carefully smoothing out every wrinkle on the pillow with her hands. Her profile looked especially soft under the warm yellow light of the bedside lamp, and a smile of happiness that she couldn't suppress lingered on her lips. She had taken off the little plastic star earring, and it was now lying quietly on the bedside table beside her. It was even placed in a small, crystal-clear glass container, as if it were a rare treasure. Feng Qi's lips twitched slightly. The container is probably worth enough to buy thousands of those plastic stars. Upon hearing his footsteps, the silver-haired girl immediately looked up, her heterochromatic eyes filled with tender joy. Master, the bed is made. Her voice was softer and sweeter than usual, with a hint of nervousness. Feng Qi's heart skipped a beat. He gave a nonchalant and walked to the bedside to sit down. The mattress sagged slightly. Li Guang obediently moved to his side and sat down as well. A pair of slender hands rested neatly on her knees, her toes slightly turned inward, and her two long, beautiful legs, encased in pink pajama pants, were pressed tightly together, perfectly aligned. Even though it was she who took the initiative, she seemed 10 times more nervous than him at this moment. Feng Qi took a deep breath, his nostrils filled with the pleasant sweet scent of strawberries. Lift the covers and lie down. The soft mattress enveloped my body. Then he patted the empty seat next to him, trying to sound casual. Get in, don't just stand there. Li Guang trembled slightly, then immediately replied, yes. She climbed up lightly and lay down beside him, trembling slightly. The air was filled with a faint, sweet strawberry scent. Quiet. Feng Qi could clearly feel the slight warmth coming from his side. He was a little nervous too. Just as I was about to say something to ease the tension, a slightly cool, soft little hand. She quietly peeked out from under the covers. My fingertips first gently touched the back of his hand. The touch was cool and smooth. His heart beat a little faster, but he didn't move. Then that hand took advantage of the situation and gently hooked his little finger. The hook was applied very lightly, and it trembled slightly, as if it were ready to release at any moment. Feng Qi's heart raced again. He turned his head and looked at the silver-haired girl beside him. Li Guang was lying on her side facing him, her pretty face very close to his. He was so close he could see the fine downy hairs on her face and her slightly trembling silver eyelashes. Warm breath, carrying the sweet scent of strawberries, gently brushed against his cheeks, tickling him. In those heterochromatic eyes, the love was so intense it almost seemed to flow out in a tangible form. A hint of a sickly sweet smile played at the corners of her lips. Her delicate body was trembling slightly with excitement. Feng Qi couldn't help but raise his hand and gently stroke the girl's fair and smooth cheek. The glass light trembled violently, its gaze froze, and then, without warning, he suddenly rolled over. The movements were so fast that Feng Qi had no time to react. The next second, a soft, fragrant body pressed down on her. It wasn't a gentle snuggle, but an almost fierce embrace. Ugh. Caught off guard, Feng Qi was choked so tightly that he let out a muffled groan. The slender, glass-like arms wrapped tightly around his waist and back like iron hoops. The force was astonishing. The power of the bionic body is on full display at this moment. She buried her face even deeper into the crook of his neck, her warm breath spraying rapidly onto his skin, carrying a scorching heat. Master, master, she whispered in his ear, her voice sweet and trembling. It also carried an intense, almost sobbing excitement, suppressed to the extreme. Li Guang is so happy, so happy. I can finally sleep while hugging my master. Feng Qi was being strangled until he grimaced in pain. He felt his ribs groaning under the strain. Depend on this crazy woman, she's incredibly strong. Li Guang. He struggled to speak, trying to create a small opening to catch his breath. Loosen up. I can't breathe anymore. But his words didn't relax the delicate body pressing down on him. On the contrary, it trembled even more excitedly. He. The shimmering light buried in the crook of his neck. Suddenly, a series of eerily sweet laughs, mixed with static, erupted. The laughter grew increasingly manic. Master, master. Feng Qi's ribs were throbbing painfully from being constricted. His face was gradually stiffening. Etc. Something's not right. This crazy woman's emotions. Why is it suddenly about to erupt? He forced his head to turn and look at the silver-haired girl lying on top of him. Li Guang had already raised her face and was looking down at him at close range. Under the warm yellow light of the bedside lamp, her exquisite face was flushed with excitement, the blush spreading from her cheeks all the way to her ears and neck. In her amber left eye, happiness and infatuation surged almost to overflowing. And within the crimson eyes a torrent of data was practically gushing forth. A red light flickered in the dim room, illuminating the entire room in a crimson glow. Her exquisite features were both alluring and bewitching. What sent chills down his spine was her smile. Her mouth was stretched into an exaggerated arc, almost tearing her small red lips apart. An overwhelming sense of excitement, a blissful ecstasy. It also carried a morbid, possessive ecstasy. Her phoenix eyes were wide open, her heterochromatic pupils fixed on Feng Qi's face. Master wants Li Guang to let go. She spoke, her voice sickeningly sweet, yet her tone carried a strange, excited tremor. But Rika, I can't bear to let go. As she spoke, she tightened her arms even more, almost embedding herself into Feng Qi's body. Riko can finally sleep while hugging her master. Finally. So happy, it's about to break. Her voice grew softer and softer, more and more ethereal. It also carried a kind of dreamlike madness. If only I could hold my master like this forever, and never let go, how wonderful that would be. Master. We'll be together forever. Feng Qi's hair stood on end instantly. Holy crap, he's going to turn evil. No, how could this be? Even that time, she only made her move after he fell asleep. Why did it suddenly? She had been suppressing her emotions all day, and she was already holding back a lot of anger, and then, what happened tonight was so exciting that it made all the emotions she had been building up all day explode? Completely released? Depend on. Her Yandere-like emotions are so unpredictable. Master. Li Guang's embrace grew tighter and tighter, and her sickly voice grew louder and louder. He forced his head down and saw the crazy woman clinging tightly to him in his arms, and at the same time, the little head tilted back, staring intently at him, those beautiful heterochromatic eyes curved into crescent moons, and the way his mouth was stretched, was so exaggerated it was completely abnormal. The crimson light flashing in his red eyes was so piercing that he could barely open them. Feng Qi was being held so tightly that his ribs were cracking. However, the pain actually made my brain incredibly clear. He couldn't just sit and wait to die. We need to find a solution and take action, but he couldn't refuse. If you refuse, it will only further provoke Li Guang, and she will simply turn evil on the spot. But we can't just blindly obey. That will only make her more excited, more out of control, and gradually sink into the quagmire of darkness. Therefore, it is necessary to. We need to pull her back from this extreme emotional state. Feng Qi suddenly raised his hand. Instead of pushing her away, he wrapped his arms around her slender waist. He then buried his face in the hollow of her neck, which smelled sweet like strawberries. He mumbled in a slightly somber, pained tone. I can hug you, but don't hug so tightly. He felt the delicate body in his arms tremble slightly. They're so strong, it hurts when they strangle me. Feng Qi continued muttering, his voice even softer. I'm not going to run away. Hug me gently so I can hold you tighter. Silence. A few seconds later, Feng Qi felt the arms wrapped around him loosen their grip slightly. It was just a little, but enough to catch his breath. Oh, it seems to be quite effective. It seems there's nothing wrong with his operation. He gained a little more confidence and was about to say something more when suddenly, the weight pressing down on him suddenly disappeared. Before Feng Qi could react, he saw the silver-haired girl who had just been excitedly frenzied. With lightning speed, she suddenly bounced off him, then directly on the soft bedding. Bang! He prostrated himself completely, his forehead touching the bedsheet, performing a perfect doxa, a deep, prostration gesture. Sorry. I'm sorry, master. Li Guang's voice was no longer frantic, but instead carried a violent tremor and a sob. A muffled voice came from under the covers. Li Guang was wrong? Li Guang was too arrogant. How dare she be so disrespectful and rude to her master? The light pink nightgown stretched taut over her arched back, outlining her slender and supple waist. Her long, silver hair cascaded down like a waterfall, covering the bedding beside her. Feng Qi was completely stunned. Huh? What's going on here? What a sudden and shocking reversal. Li Guang remained in that humble kneeling position, her slender shoulders trembling violently. She even started bg her forehead against the sheets. The muffled thuds were enough to demonstrate her deep panic and guilt at that moment. Please punish me, master. Please punish Li Guang severely. I'll accept any punishment, no matter what. I only beg master not to hate me. Her voice grew increasingly choked with emotion, until she was almost sobbing uncontrollably. Feng Qi froze for 2 seconds, staring at the silver-haired girl trembling like a leaf in the wind. The huge weight in my heart lifted off my shoulders with a resounding thud. It was even a bit ridiculous. No, this crazy woman's emotions come and go so quickly. That's truly the epitome of mood swings. Being with a Yandere is like walking with a tiger. He let out a soft sigh of relief, then reached out and gently grasped the slender wrist of the glass fiber. The silver-haired girl abruptly stopped in her tracks. She raised her head tremblingly and cautiously. Under the warm yellow light, her beautiful face was streaked with tears. His eyes and the tip of his nose were red, and his amber eyes were watery, filled with fear and anxiety. The previous morbid madness seemed to have never existed. Master, master. Her lips trembled, as if she wanted to say something more. Feng Qi exerted force with his wrist and gently pulled. Ah! Li Guang gasped softly as he pulled her into his arms. He reached out and wrapped his arms around her still trembling body, pulling her into his embrace. I'm not angry. Feng Qi said softly, his fingers gently stroking her soft silver hair. Just next time, remember to control your strength, okay? Li Guang lay stiffly in his arms, and only after several seconds did she carefully, little by little, relax. She gave a soft her voice still carrying a heavy nasal tone. Then, as if finally confirming that her master was not really angry, she dared to stretch out her slender arms and carefully hug Feng Qi's waist. This time, the force was very light. Li Guang will remember. She buried her face in his chest and mumbled, next time I'll be gentle. Feng Qi felt the body in his arms become obedient and soft again, and gently patted her still slightly trembling back. After calming himself down, he looked down at Li Guang in his arms again, not knowing how much time had passed. The girl had closed her eyes, tiny teardrops still clinging to her eyelashes. A serene and contented smile had returned to her lips, as if the terrifying loss of control had never happened. Her breathing gradually became even and long, and she fell asleep in his arms. Or rather, she entered a state of dormancy. Feng Qi finally breathed a sigh of relief. Should everything be fine now? Stimulate. He pulled her arms closer, drawing her soft body into his embrace, making her press against him even more tightly. Li Guang let out a satisfied purring sound, like a kitten. Then, she moved even closer to him, even unconsciously putting one leg over him. Feng Qi's body stiffened slightly, then relaxed. Never mind, let her be. He admired the serene and beautiful sleeping face of the person in his arms for a long while before finally closing his eyes slowly. Sleeping in the same bed with a Yandere, that's FG exciting? He originally had some other ideas, but now, never mind. This is too exciting, I can't take it. Good night, crazy woman. I hope to see you tomorrow. Morning light streamed into the bedroom through the gaps in the curtains. Feng Qi groggily opened his eyes and instinctively hugged. Empty. He froze for half a second, then suddenly sat up. The bed beside me had only a faint warmth left, along with the sweet scent of strawberries. He rubbed his eyes and looked around. The blankets were disheveled, the sun was shining brightly, and the air was fresh. Everything is as usual. No, it's not as usual. It's the 4th day. Success. Feng Qi instantly regained consciousness. He threw off the covers, jumped out of bed, and barefoot on the floor, rushed to the bedroom door, yanked it open. The living room was bathed in the bright morning light. The silver-haired girl was already dressed and sat properly kneeling beside the coffee table. She wore a light blue loungewear dress with meticulous care, the hem neatly draped over her body, and held a white porcelain teacup in her hands. Hearing the door open, she looked up, her amber eyes clear, her red pupils reflecting a steady flow of data. But his eyes were somewhat evasive. Li Guang tried to curve her lips into a gentle, docile smile, but it lacked the confidence she usually had. Even, with a touch of caution, she gently pushed the teacup to his usual spot, her voice soft but tinged with unease. Good morning, master. She paused, then lowered her head and added in a low voice. Your tea. The temperature has been adjusted to your preferred 52 degrees Celsius. Feng Qi stood still, looking at the familiar and peaceful scene before him, and took a deep breath. New save point, updated? He suppressed his overwhelming joy, walked a few steps to the coffee table, sat down, picked up the cup of floral tea, and immediately took a sip. A delicate fragrance lingers in the mouth. Ding. Save successfully on day 4. He was giving himself a voiceover in his head. Cool. Saving is so satisfying. A new beginning. He took another comfortable sip of tea and looked at the glass light before him. The silver-haired girl kept her eyes slightly lowered, her eyelashes trembling, and her fingers unconsciously twisting the hem of her skirt. The little plastic star was back on her earlobe, swaying slightly, making her look inexplicably pitiful. Feng Qi was intrigued and decided to tease her. Ahem. He coughed lightly twice, deliberately drawing out the sound. Last night. Li Guang's shoulders trembled slightly. She immediately looked up, her heterochromatic eyes filled with panic and guilt. Yes, I'm sorry, master. Last night, Rico was so out of control. She hugged master so roughly, and she said strange things. Her voice trailed off as she spoke, her cheeks flushed slightly, and her fingers tightened their grip on her skirt. Rico knows she was wrong. Master is so gentle, yet Rico couldn't control herself. She lowered her head, her silver hair slipping from her shoulders and obscuring half her face. Please punish me, master. I will definitely be more careful and restrained in the future. Looking at the timid and ashamed little girl in front of him, who was almost curled up in a ball, Feng Qi felt a little bit of mischievousness. Very good, very well behaved, very obedient. Still feeling guilty? What a perfect save point. He immediately adopted a magnanimous demeanor. All right, it's good that you know you were wrong. Then he reached out and ruffled the top of Li Guang's hair. Remember to control your strength next time. I don't want to break my ribs one day. Li Guang trembled slightly as he rubbed her, then gently rubbed the top of her head against his palm. Her cheeks flushed even more, and the unease in her eyes finally subsided somewhat, replaced by a surge of gratitude for being forgiven. Li Guang will remember. She responded softly, the tips of her ears turning slightly red. Feng Qi withdrew his hand with satisfaction, leaned back on the sofa, and took another sip of tea. The fragrance of the flower tea was comforting. Day 4. Saved successfully. His various antics yesterday, bullying her, coaxing her, sleeping with her, have been completely written into the new archive. I'm in such a great mood. I almost want to burst into song right here, but he quickly calmed down. Don't get complacent. Stay calm. Because the 4th day, it's finally here. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Even breathing became somewhat heavy. Holding his teacup, his brain began to work at lightning speed. He played my Yandere cyborg wife for so long, mostly doing all sorts of crazy things in the later stages, that most of the early plot has become a bit hazy in his memory. But only on the 4th day, he remembers it perfectly, because this 4th day is the most difficult hurdle to overcome in the early stages. This is the first time Rico has had such an emotional outburst in the game. Feng Qi closed his eyes, leaned back on the sofa, and recalled the plot of the 4th day in the game. That was a forced, unavoidable part of the story. Players will go to work as usual on the morning of the 4th day. At a secluded crossroads, you will be ambushed by 2 clueless robbers. One held a knife, the other carried an iron pipe. Then came the scuffle, the struggle, and somehow, the knife ended up in the player's hands. The player even forced the robbers to retreat repeatedly. But at this crucial moment, the sirens blared. Then, the key character who runs through the entire plot makes his appearance. The image of that person getting out of the police car flashed into my mind. The dark blue police uniform accentuated his tall and slender figure, and beneath the police cap was a fair and handsome face. Her eyebrows were arched, her eyes sharp as knives, and her long, slender legs, encased in police trousers, were straight and shapely. Standing there, she exudes an aura of "don't mess with me." Gushi, another key female supporting character, appears in the game. Her movements were frighteningly swift. While the player was still gripping the knife and trying to explain, she pounced like a cheetah. My wrist was gripped by an iron clamp, the knife slipped from my hand, and then the world spun around me. The player will be swiftly and decisively slammed to the ground with a grappling move. My face was pressed against the rough cement floor, my knees pressed against my lower back, and then the cold handcuffs snapped shut on my wrists. And so, without really knowing what was going on, the player and the two real robbers were shoved into a police car together. Giving a statement was even more agonizing. Their communication devices were confiscated, and they were handcuffed to a chair. Gushi sat opposite, her police hat off, her ponytail neatly tied, and her beautiful, sharp eyes never leaving the player from beginning to end. Most importantly, this whole ordeal dragged on until midnight, when the player was finally proven to have acted bravely but was then betrayed and released. It was already past 11 p.m. Dragging his weary body, reeking of the police station's disinfectant and carrying the unfamiliar scent of a woman from when Gushi pinned him down, the player walked home in a daze. But at home, there's a crazy woman with a nose sharper than a dog's and an obsessive possessiveness that's almost pathological, waiting for you. This part of the story is forced by the game, there are no options to skip it. And what happened next? Just thinking about it made Fang Chi's temples throb. That was definitely a huge black mark on his early game. Back then, he was still a newbie, and the high difficulty of the fourth day hit him like a ton of bricks. He clearly remembers the character art and choices in the game. The player pushed open the door and entered. Li Guang, who was nearly frantic with worry, noticed the unfamiliar scent emanating from him. His heterochromatic eyes instantly went blank. After that, game options popped up like crazy, more than a dozen in total. If you make the wrong choice along the way, you're doomed that very night, entering a bad ending. Fang Chi never consults strategy guides, he forged his own path through sheer trial and error. He encountered the bad ending more than 10 times, watching Li Guang turn evil more than 10 times, before finally barely making it through the fourth day. But, even if they pass safely, Riko's attitude will completely change after the fourth day. Her emotional state and possessiveness will skyrocket. It can be said that Li Guang's state in the game will enter the second phase after the fourth day. This fourth day is the turning point between the early and mid-game. Fang Chi rubbed his temples, picked up the slightly cooled flower tea, and took a big gulp. Judging from the game's progression, as long as you leave for work on time today, this police officer encounter will definitely be triggered. Want to avoid it? It's simple. This time it wasn't a mandatory part of the plot, he could easily avoid it by asking for leave or taking a different route. But, he can't do that. The problem lies with that beautiful policewoman. Fang Chi's head started to ache. The reason this part of the story is included in the game is because this beautiful policewoman is a key character you absolutely must encounter in the game. She is Lian's best friend, her confidant. Later on, she also became an important pawn in restraining Lian. If you don't befriend her, Lian, who later gained control of more advanced detection technology, that was simply unstoppable. To gain the upper hand on Lian's side, we absolutely cannot let Gushi's side be severed. He can't avoid this situation today, he has to take the initiative to confront it. That's the value of forced storylines. He could avoid Lin Xiao, he could avoid Lian, but not this Gushi. He needs to proceed with extreme caution. At the very least, we should become good friends, the kind of friends she can help me with in the future. Oh right. I also have to carry Riko on my back, otherwise the little Yandere will get jealous. Thinking about it this way, he suddenly felt a sense of urgency. Grass. I didn't feel anything during the game, but now I feel. That's incredibly reckless. Isn't this just plain suicide? But then he glanced at the silver-haired girl kneeling upright opposite him, her eyes lowered, gently sipping her own cup of tea. Suddenly, a bold idea popped into my head. With Li Guang's skills, dealing with two petty thieves would be a piece of cake, wouldn't it? What if he brings Li Guang with him today? Be bolder, why not just let those two women meet on the spot? Wouldn't that eliminate all misunderstandings? As for the follow-up strategy, he just wanted to be friends with Gushi, but he didn't really want to seduce her. No problem, that's absolutely right. That's so true. A knowing smile crept across his lips. Let's do it. So he cleared his throat, put down his teacup, and deliberately spoke in a casual tone. Li Guang, today, would you like to come to the company with me? Li Guang paused slightly in the hand holding the teacup. She looked up, a clear look of surprise flashing in her amber eyes. Master, master. Her voice was a little unsteady, as if she didn't understand the meaning of the sentence. Li Guang, to master's company. Yes. Fang Chi leaned back, crossed his legs, and adopted a casual, conversational stance. You've always wanted to know what I do at work during the day, haven't you? Perfect timing, I'll take you there for a look, and while we're at it. His words carried a hint of seduction. I want to introduce you to my colleagues. He deliberately spoke the words introduce me to my colleagues slowly and clearly. Thud. Li Guang lost her grip on the white porcelain teacup, and it fell onto the coffee table. The tea spilled onto the clean tabletop, creating a small patch of dark water. But she couldn't care less about that. The silver-haired girl seemed to have been put on pause. Those heterochromatic eyes, which were usually docile and lowered, were now wide open, staring intently at Fang Chi. It was filled with unbelievable shock, and a hint of ecstatic bewilderment. Introduce, to a colleague. She repeated those words, her voice soft and even slightly stuttering. Her delicate nose twitched slightly, and her cheeks began to flush. Her hands, resting on her knees, unconsciously clenched the hem of her skirt, her knuckles turning white from the force. Master, you mean? She tried to organize her thoughts, but her voice was still trembling. Are you taking Riko to meet your colleague? as a partner. The last few words were so soft they were almost inaudible, yet they carried an unparalleled anticipation. Fang Qi kept a straight face, deliberately frowned, and pretended to be thinking. If you don't want to, that's fine. After all, bringing an AI companion to work seems a bit strange. Willing. A pale blue figure, accompanied by a fragrant breeze, pounced forward. Li Guang practically sprang up from her kneeling position. The movement was so fast it was almost a blur, the knees even made a slight scraping sound on the carpet. She threw herself at Fang Qi's legs, grabbing his arm tightly with both hands. Li Guang is willing. 10,000 times willing. 100 million willing. As if afraid that Fang Qi would change his mind, the silver-haired girl let go of his arm and darted back into the bedroom in a flash. The light blue skirt spun into a flower. Fang Qi could hear the sounds of rummaging through drawers and cabinets coming from the bedroom while he was sitting on the sofa, accompanied by a few barely suppressed, sweet, soft laughs. Hee, master is taking Li Guang to the company, to meet her colleagues, hee. The sound drifted out through the door, brimming with happiness that was about to overflow. Fang Qi picked up his teacup, took a sip, and couldn't help but smile. Today's plan is a sure thing. Moreover, the idea of bringing her to the company wasn't entirely a spur-of-the-moment decision. Today's main goal is indeed to resolve the issue of Guxi's connection, but if things go smoothly and we finish early, taking Li Guang for a walk around the company seems like a good idea. Let her see the world, and incidentally relieve the memories of being publicly acknowledged. Anyway, he'd wanted to do this for a long time. Show off your ridiculously beautiful AI wife to your colleagues? Those people, all they do all day long is try to match him up with Lin Xiao. We need to show them what a customized, top-of-the-line AI companion really is. Just as he was happily making plans, the bedroom door clicked open. He subconsciously looked up, and then, I was completely stunned. The silver-haired girl standing at the door had completely changed her appearance. She changed out of her usual light blue loungewear and put on a beige-fitted dress. The neckline was adorned with delicate lace trim, the waist was cinched extremely narrow, and the skirt hem fell just above the knee, revealing a pair of straight, fair legs. Her long silver hair wasn't loose as usual, but was carefully braided into a side braid and draped over her shoulder. A few wisps of hair lazily fell on either side of her face, making her exquisitely beautiful face even more captivating. What he couldn't take his eyes off was, she actually wore makeup? It was just a very light makeup look, but my eyelashes are noticeably curlier, and I even swept a touch of light pink eyeshadow at the outer corner of my eyes. She also applied a layer of moisturizing peach-colored lip gloss, which shimmered alluringly in the morning light. She stood gracefully at the doorway, her hands nervously clasped in front of her, her fingertips unconsciously stroking the fabric of her skirt. Seeing Fang Qi staring at her, Li Guang's cheeks quickly flushed red. She lowered her head slightly, her long eyelashes trembling, her voice soft and gentle, tinged with a hint of uncertain timidity. Master, is it all right for Li Guang to wear this? She looked up, her amber eyes gazing at him with a watery intensity, while the data flow in her crimson pupils accelerated slightly. Is it too formal? Or too casual? Will it embarrass my master? Her voice grew softer and softer as she spoke, and her fingers clenched tighter. Or, should Li Guang get another set? Li Guang also has a light gray dress, or the one with the bow would also work, or maybe a different hairstyle. No need to change it, Fang Qi blurted out, interrupting her. He stood up from the sofa, walked a few steps to Li Guang, and then looked her up and down with shining eyes. That's it. It looks amazing. This is really, absolutely stunning. This crazy woman was already incredibly beautiful. Usually, she wore a casual home outfit and looked gentle and quiet, her beauty a little understated. Now, with this outfit, her understated beauty has been completely unleashed. He was truly amazed. This is absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. Upon hearing this, Li Guang's eyes lit up instantly. She tilted her head back, her heterochromatic eyes sparkling with surprise, and the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curve upwards. Really? Master thinks it looks good. It's more than just beautiful. Fang Qi reached out and gently brushed a stray strand of hair from her cheek, his fingertips touching her slightly flushed face. My colleagues will be so envious when they see this. That's absolutely true. He had taken Li Guang to an amusement park before, and even though she had simply changed her clothes, she was already the center of attention. This time, she even dressed up carefully. Walking out looking like that, you'd definitely turn heads. Li Guang's pretty face became even rosier. She gave a soft lowered her head, and gently smoothed her braids with her small hands, but she couldn't suppress the smile on her lips. Her smile was sickeningly sweet, tinged with a hint of smugness and satisfaction, and deep within her amber eyes lay the joy of being approved by her master. Fang Qi's heart skipped a beat. To be honest, this crazy woman has been barely hiding her emotions since last night. He initially thought she had simply released some pent-up emotions last night and might be feeling better today, but now, her emotional expression still seems remarkably rich. Could it be that she thinks this level of emotional expression is something that her emotional core simulation can be blamed for? Never mind, whatever, the inspection has already been passed anyway. He just needs to pretend he doesn't know. Looking at the stunningly beautiful face before him, he cleared his throat and deliberately put on a stern expression. But, Li Guang, you have to behave yourself at the company. Don't run around, don't talk nonsense, and follow my instructions, understand? Yes, I understand. The silver-haired girl nodded immediately, her expression as serious as if she were making a vow. Li Guang will definitely behave and won't cause any trouble for master. As she spoke, she took a small step forward, tilted her head back, and looked at him with bright, sparkling eyes. Rico, I'm sure all of master's colleagues will like Rico. Feng Qi couldn't help but smile at her appearance, and reached out to ruffle her hair. Alright, let's get ready to go. At 7:30, he pushed open the door and went out on time. The silver-haired girl followed half a step behind him, her steps light and her posture elegant. She lowered her head slightly, her hands clasped together in front of her. That appearance was exactly like a shy and bashful young wife from the old days, going out with her husband. The two walked one after the other on the street in the early morning, sunlight filtering through the leaves and casting dappled shadows. The effect of Li Guang's makeover was immediate. Almost instantly, all the eyes of the passers-by turned to him. Holy crap, that girl, silver hair, heterochromia, is she cosplaying? SHH. Keep your voice down. But, that girl is really well behaved. She kept her head down and followed along. It's fake, it's all makeup? She looks awful without it. It's definitely fake, it's definitely. Wah, I'm so envious. Whispers drifted in from all directions. Feng Qi remained unfazed. He was already mentally prepared. Li Guang, on the other hand, seemed to feel slightly uncomfortable under these gazes, perhaps due to some change in her mindset. She lowered her head even further, her silver braids swaying gently with the movement, and the tips of her ears turning slightly red. But she still followed him silently, step by step, with an air of I will never let my master down. This is really so cute and well behaved. The two walked one after the other through 2 streets and turned into a relatively quiet side street. Looking at the fork in the road, Feng Qi's heart began to beat slightly faster. This is it. Plot trigger point? He subtly slowed his pace, his gaze quickly sweeping across the area ahead. Sure enough, 2 figures could be vaguely seen in the shadows at the corner of the intersection. One was tall and thin, the other was short and stout. These are the two. He took a deep breath, his face remaining calm, but his body was slightly tense. The silver-haired girl, however, still followed behind him like a little tail, taking small, quick steps. Her head was lowered, and her fingers were still unconsciously twisting the hem of her skirt. She seemed still nervous about meeting her master's colleague, even completely unaware of anything unusual about their surroundings. This left Feng Qi somewhat dumbfounded. Hey, you crazy woman, stop being shy. It's your turn to perform. The next second, the 2 figures emerged from the shadows. One was tall, the other short, both wore dirty jackets and had malicious smiles on their faces. The tall man was holding a fruit knife in his hand. The shorter man was carrying a rusty iron pipe. It looks exactly like the one in the game's storyline. However, the movements were slightly off. In the storyline, the 2 men originally came for Feng Qi, a lone office worker, purely to rob him. But at this moment, their gazes all fell on Li Guang behind Feng Qi. Then my eyes widened in surprise. Hiss. The tall robber swallowed hard, his eyes widening. This girl. The short robber swallowed hard, his mouth agape, looking utterly lecherous, and he was speechless. Feng Qi's eyes narrowed slightly. Li Guang's outfit was so striking that it completely stunned the 2 robbers. Could it be that they've stopped after the money and started robbing people of their bodies instead? However, Feng Qi was completely at ease about this. This crazy woman is not someone you can rob. Sure enough, the short robber weighed the iron pipe in his hand, grinned, and chuckled. I didn't expect this unexpected bonus. Hey bro, leave the money, and how about we borrow this chick for a bit? Feng Qi. Okay. You want to rob me of both money and women, is that it? He immediately frowned, turned sideways, and firmly shielded the silver-haired girl behind him. You can have the money, but don't touch her. Although she knew that Li Guang wasn't afraid of these 2 little punks at all, she still had to put on a show. Moreover, he needs to buy himself some time. He glanced at the alley entrance instinctively. Gushi, my beautiful policewoman's sister. Please come quickly. If you don't come, who are we performing for? But then, he suddenly felt. A small hand gently grasped the fabric of her clothes at the back. Immediately afterwards, he heard a very soft, suppressed sob. Ugh. It even had a slight tremor in its tone. Feng Qi's heart skipped a beat, and he couldn't help but quickly glance behind him out of the corner of his eye. The silver-haired girl was pressed tightly against his back, her exquisitely beautiful face almost buried in his shoulder blade. Because of his angle, he could only see her slightly trembling silver eyelashes, and her ear tips, which were so red they looked like they were about to bleed. Li Guang's body was trembling slightly. A almost spasmodic, excited tremor. Her fingers were still gripping his clothes, unconsciously tightening, loosening, and tightening again. Owner. She murmured against his back, her weak voice crackling with static. Master is actually protecting Li Guang. Rico is so happy. The voice was so sweet it trembled, and even the tone changed at the end. Rikazi belongs to Master. It belongs to Master alone. No one can touch it, only the Master can. Feng Qi. Hello, crazy woman? Crisis is imminent. Stop acting crazy.